The story begins on a bright, moonlit night at a company building, where one room shines brightly. Inside the illuminated room, a man sits in front of a computer screen. Lacking money, power, status, and a girlfriend, he views overtime as his only hobby during his free time. He types rapidly on the keyboard, muttering to himself, "It's always 9996 today. I see you tomorrow." The term 996 refers to a work schedule of 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, while ICU stands for Intensive Care Unit. After typing for a while longer, he suddenly feels a sharp pain in his chest and slumps over his desk in agony. "I'm afraid I won't even make it to the ICU," he groans, reaching for his computer as he struggles to enter one last command. Press Ctrl+S to save the file. Just as the computer displays the word saved, his head, now overwhelmed, collapses onto the keyboard. He has finally ascended. His hands drop limply. Knocking over his glass of water, he feels a strange resentment toward his job. He promises himself that in his next life, he won't simply eat, wait to die, and go crazy with love. Upon waking up in darkness, he opens his eyes to reveal an incredibly pale hand. He suddenly realizes, wait, am I actually alive? Meanwhile, in a forest, 4 men are carrying a coffin. One of them groans loudly, lamenting his bad luck. This guy appears slender, but why does he feel so heavy? Another, nicknamed Monkey, replies, "You think you have bad luck? The guy you're carrying is the real unfortunate one. King had to live with his wife's family and died before he even made it through the door." The man in front counters, "I think the unluckiest one is Misto. She hasn't even tasted the joys of a man, yet she's lost money on this deal." Another chimes in, "It's good that he's dead. Doesn't that give us a chance?" Suddenly, a series of knocks echoes from within the coffin, causing the eyes of the other 2 men to widen in terror. A foot slowly emerges from the coffin. A dashing man steps out, points toward the sky, and shouts, "Lam Hone has returned!" The 4 coffin bearers stand stunned into silence, frozen in place. For 5 seconds, they finally realize the corpse has revived. They drop the coffin and flee, screaming, "Don't blame us. It was him who spoke nonsense before. It's all because of our foolish talk." Lam, feeling bewildered, waves them back, urging them not to run. He still has something to ask them. A moment later, Lam Hone, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings, muses to himself, "Have I transmigrated?" A sudden pain flashes through his head. The intensity is overwhelming, leaving him momentarily disoriented. Memories of this body flood back. The original owner was also named Lam Hone. His family, once the leading pottery makers in Ningxiao City, had fallen on hard times, struggling even to afford basic necessities. Seeing the Lam family's misfortune, the Tu family, their competitors, took them in and treated them with great hospitality. Mr. Tu intended for Lam Hone to marry his eldest daughter, Tian, and become part of the Tu family. Mr. Lum, recognizing Lam Hone as a composed and respectable young man, felt pleased to have found security for his daughter. As a gesture of goodwill, he gifted the Tu family his most important pottery formula as part of the dowry. However, shortly after handing over the formula, Lam Hone, who had previously been healthy and happy, suddenly fell ill with a mysterious disease. Even the most renowned physicians were unable to help him. Thus, Lam Hone died, and within just 7 days, arrangements were made for his burial in the mountains outside the city. Back in the present, Lam Hone rubs his head, reflecting that transmigration is quite convenient, as it even comes with an explanation. Gazing at his handsome face reflected in a puddle, he admires himself with a touch of narcissism. With such striking features, how could the Tu family be so heartless as to target someone like him? He removes his shirt, revealing a muscular physique with an 8-pack. He declares, "Wait until I bathe and tidy up my appearance. Then I'll deal with the Tu family." Spotting a river ahead, Lam Hone quickly runs toward it. As he pushes aside the dense grass, he uncovers something intriguing, a collection of women's clothing accompanied by a sword. Lam Hone's eyes widen in shock at the sight before him. The bathing woman, sensing that someone is watching, instinctively glances over. However, Lam Hone, in a fit of narcissistic delusion, assumes she is oogling him. Covering himself, he blushes and exclaims, "You pervert! How dare you peek at me?" The sword thrusts forward. Lam Hone puts on a wronged expression. "So now you're resorting to violence? Fine, I'll do as you say." People are so unpredictable these days, completely lacking in conscience. The woman, now dressed, approaches Lam Hone and scolds him. "I've never met anyone so shameless. My name is Nin Tulan. You will not die unjustly by my sword." As soon as Nin Tulan finishes speaking, Lam Hone bursts into laughter, saying, "Ha, ha, Nin Tulan, right? I remember now." Seeing him laugh upon hearing her name, Nin Tulan presses her sword closer to his throat. This shameless naked man, so what if he remembers? Slightly intimidated by her aggressive stance, Lam Hone explains, I was wearing clothes when I came from the mortal world, but they would scare you. Nin Tulan looks at him with suspicion. Mortal world? Clothes that would scare me? Are you trying to trick me? But then, noticing his funeral attire, a chill runs down her spine. Turning back, she finds him gone. He disappeared, she exclaims. Before she can process what just happened, she sees Lambone running in the distance. No, he's running away. Angrily, she shouts after him, How dare you trick me? Don't let me catch you, you scoundrel. Back at the two residents, Mr. Tua's daughter hears the shocking news about the revived corpse. A revived corpse? What's going on? She asks. Upon hearing the servant's report, her father dismisses it as nonsense, convinced that the coffin bearers are merely trying to extort money with a fabricated story. In truth, he was the one who poisoned the Lam Hone and drank all the poisoned wine. How could he possibly be alive? He wonders. Tushin is concerned about the potential gossip circulating among other families. Her father outwardly assures her, we did everything we could to save him. It's just Lam Hone's bad luck. Inwardly, however, he thinks differently. Tutian still doesn't know I was the one who killed Lam Hone. Even if she did know, she wouldn't object. He tells her to focus on the upcoming pottery competition instead, emphasizing that this year the two family must take first place. They need to elevate their pottery from high quality to tribute-worthy. Agreeing with her father, Tuchian insults Lam Hone, claiming that the penniless man has nothing to worry about. After all, he couldn't possibly have jumped out of his coffin. Suddenly, a hand clasps her shoulder, and a sinister voice whispers, What if he did? Both the father and daughter turn around, trembling with fear. Lam Hone, appearing like a vengeful ghost, accuses them. I died a wrongful death, old man. You reap what you sow. I am your retribution. Terrified, Mr. Tu falls back into his chair, stammering, Lam Hone Yuk. He foams at the mouth and then faints. Tushin, terrified, runs away from Lam Hone, pleading, Don't come near me. We're not married yet. You're here to be my husband. You have to listen to me. Don't come any closer. Running frantically, she trips and falls face first onto the ground. Lam Hone is surprised and asks, Why did you stop running? Tushin slowly sits up, tears streaming down her face. Even more surprising is the puddle forming beneath her. Dropping the act, Lam Hone taunts her, asking if she was so scared that she wet herself. Realizing he has gone too far, he reflects that women are so fragile. Suddenly, he pauses and thinks, Wait a minute, why do I feel like a bad guy bullying an innocent girl? A mischievous look crosses his face, recalling how good it felt to sneak a little touch earlier. He tosses aside his wig. Ripping off his tattered clothes, he announces, I was just messing with you. By the way, just to let you know, I don't want this marriage anymore. With that, he tosses aside his ragged clothes and walks away. Tushin sits there, staring blankly at the figure as it retreats. As the two residents step out, a system notification sounds. Confused, Lam Hone asks, What is this? Congratulations, host, on completing your first mission. You've earned an influence boost of 10 and received one opportunity to draw from the shop. The system displays the draw probabilities. Worthless at 46%, common at 40%, rare at 10%, epic at 3%, and legendary at 1%. Lam Hone can't believe he gets a free draw. A free draw? Is this a new benefit? It even displays the probabilities. How generous. He clicks Start Draw. The arrow starts to spin. Congratulations, host, on acquiring a rare item, an advanced pottery crafting method. Lam's face falls. Why not a magical artifact or something even more valuable? As he contemplates the value of his prize, he notices a group of strangers gathered nearby. Curious, he teleports over to investigate and discovers a pottery competition, offering a substantial reward for the winner. He exclaims that this competition is perfectly timed. Footsteps draw near. A tall man arrives, accompanied by a crowd of followers. The man in the middle, with sharp eyes, stares intently at the Lambone. He slowly draws a knife and presses it against Lam Hone's back. Mr. Lam, come with me, he says gravely. At midnight in a deserted graveyard nestled within a forest, Lam Hone is thrown into a hole and buried alive by the men. Exasperated, he thinks to himself that ever since he transmigrated, he seems to be constantly facing death. The leader responds, Dying? Mr. Lam, you jest. This is simply debt collection. You borrowed 10 gold taels from us, and with interest, it has now grown to 120 gold taels. How could you forget? Lam Hone curses his predecessor, who indulged himself before dying, leaving him with this debt. The debt collector draws his saber. Now that we're done talking, it's time to go. My sword is quick, and it won't hurt. Terrified, Lam Hone cries out, Wait, let me pay. Hearing this, the man presses the knife closer to his face and demands 120 gold taels, not a single copper less. Suddenly, Lam Hone chuckles and says, "Don't say 120. Given our relationship, I'll offer you 10,000 taels." The man, now utterly confused, appears to be at Lam Hone's mercy. One of his followers whispers, "Boss, is this guy scared silly?" Not believing Lam Hone, the leader raises his sword once more, causing Lam Hone to break out in a cold sweat. A sudden burst of light. The ropes binding Lam Hone are cut. Xiao Ju, follow him. Give him 3 days. If he doesn't have the money, we'll kill his entire family, he orders. The leader and his men then set off on their journey. Lam shouts and stretches, declaring, "I live with the T family. Killing my whole family includes the T family." This startles the leader, causing him to twist his ankle. He mutters that this son-in-law is a bit crazy. The following day, at Lam's Swan Brothel, a group of scholars and wealthy young men stands outside, buying for attention. One proclaims, "I want to see Lin Ku. I'll give her a set of antique jade hairpins." Another recites a poem, while a third declares, "I'll give Lin Ku my heart." Xiao Ju, accompanying Lam Hone, observes the scene. "Brother Lam, what are they doing?" he asks. Lam Hone explains that the Lam Swan Brothel has a rule. Every month, they hold a gift-giving competition. Whoever's gift Lin Ku chooses gets to meet her. Xiao Ju whispers, "Brother Lam, you're not planning to kidnap Lin Ku for ransom, are you?" Lam gently pats Xiao Ju on the shoulder and says, "My friend, don't always resort to violence. I have my own ways of handling things." The doors of the Lam Swan Brothel swing open, and a hand reaches out. A woman announces, "We have a winner this month, Lam Hone." "Is Lam Hone here?" Lambone waves his hand dismissively, indicating that a meeting isn't necessary. It's sufficient that she's seen my letter. Xiao Ju, gazing at Lam's back, murmurs, "This Mr. Lam has quite the presence." As Lam Hone leads Xiao Ju away, a graceful figure emerges on the city wall. It's Lin Ku. She smiles at the Lam, honey. Picking up his letter, she muses that this Lam Hone is quite interesting. The letter states, "Follow my instructions, and I can help you become an idol of the new era, famous throughout the land." The pottery competition venue buzzes with laughter and lively conversation. Inside, Mr. Tu engages in a discussion about pottery with others. One person flatters him, saying that when it comes to quality pottery, the Tu family still stands out. Another agrees, adding, "Indeed, indeed." Mr. Tu, basking in the compliments, replies modestly, "You're too kind." Just as the Tu family, father and daughter, are basking in the praise, a voice from outside interrupts, asking, "Is that all? And you call this a pottery competition?" Footsteps draw near. It's Lam Hone. He enters, mockingly stating, "You call these trinkets treasures? How boring." His words stand in stark contrast to the earlier praise from Mr. Tu. Enraged at the sight of Lam Hone, Mr. Tu retorts, "Want something new? Fine, I'll broaden your horizons." He then unveils an object covered in black cloth. It's a vase adorned with intricate and unique patterns. He introduces it as the Radiant Landscape Pattern, a masterpiece by the Grandmaster. The onlookers shower him with praise, as expected of Tu family pottery. It's truly amazing. Lam Hone picks up the vase. He inspects it closely. Mr. Tu thinks smugly, "Surprised, aren't you, Lam? I've stolen the Lam family's secret method." After a moment, Lam Hone casually tosses the vase aside with a sigh, wondering if that's all there is. It feels like such an outdated toy. The vase shatters into hundreds of tiny pieces. Mr. Tu, witnessing the vase he stole the formula for now shattered into pieces, clutches his chest. Outdated? Who else besides the Tu family can create Celadon? Lam has honed in on the points. "Everyone is here except for you." Mr. Tu glances at the crowd behind him, coming to a realization. Could it be all of you? One man looks up at the sky, admiring the beautiful weather perfect for flying kites. Another chimes in, asking, "What was that restaurant you mentioned earlier? Let's go eat there later." Lam Hone claps his hands with excitement. "My fellow workshop owners, it's time to reveal the results of the Celadon formulas I shared with you." 3 men present their pottery pieces. Seeing the shimmering pottery, Mr. Tu faints in disbelief. How is this possible? The 3 men kneel before Mr. Lam. "Now that he has spoken, we will not hesitate any longer. Thank you for sharing the Celadon formula and for benefiting the people." Suddenly, Lam Hone kicks a Celadon vase, shattering it into pieces. The crowd gasps. "Mr. Lam, what are you doing? Have you changed your mind?" Lam Hone points to the sky. "It's not about vases, it's about bowls. The method I shared with you wasn't intended for creating these outdated items." He gestures toward the crowd. "Now let's welcome the main attraction." Footsteps draw near. It's the beautiful Lin Ko holding an object hidden beneath a mysterious blue cloth. The men who brought gifts are captivated by her beauty. It's Lin Ko. Why is she here? When did Lam Hone entice her? Who cares? Just being able to see this celestial being is enough. You're here, Lin Ko replies shyly. How could I refuse your request, Mr. Lam? Lam Home snatches the cloth away, revealing what true transcendental pottery looks like for everyone to see. The cloth is lifted, and the crowd gasps in astonishment. They can hardly believe what they see. An exquisite ceramic figure of Lin Ko playing a musical instrument is unveiled. Lin Ko holds the figure, a nearly perfect replica of herself. The wealthy young men, oh my God, the colors, the craftsmanship, the likeness to Lin Ko is uncanny. I've never seen anything like it. One young master adds, Indeed, I came solely to support the pottery competition, but I never expected to discover such a treasure. Lin Ko, sensing the atmosphere, shifts into sales mode. She turns to Mr. Lam and says, This piece is so beautiful. How can people buy it? Lam Hone immediately launches into his sales pitch. It's straightforward. Place an order now, pay half as a deposit, and we'll deliver it to your door in just 7 days. Mr. Tuskovs, Mr. Lam, you certainly know how to navigate the business world. You're relying on pre-orders to raise capital since you don't have any funds of your own. But what happens if you decide to take the money and run? Wouldn't that leave all of us at a loss? The crowd agrees with Mr. 2. The Lam family is bankrupt. Despite their secret technique, they struggle to produce enough, while the product is of high quality. The risk of paying upfront and receiving it later is too great. Mr. 2 presses his advantage. Will you all stand by and watch him ruin the reputation of our pottery industry? The merchants come to understand that profiting from the figure does not directly benefit them. While they appreciate Lam Hone's generosity, they agree that paying up front poses a problem. They insist on sticking to honest business practices. Mr. 2, sensing victory, smirks and says, You brat, how dare you challenge me? You're too young. Lam Hone claps a merchant on the shoulder and sighs. How can you all be so foolish? He then scatters flyers everywhere announcing, I've shared the Celadon technique with all of you. Just come to me for the designs. You can place orders with me or with them. It's all the same. The merchants stare at the flyers in disbelief. Is this for real? Aren't you jeopardizing your own source of income? Lam Hone confirms that it's indeed real. However, I retain the copyright and will only take a 10% cut from each piece. He points at Mr. 2, stating that every merchant here receives a share, except for him. Mr. 2 is furious. He can't believe it's just the Celadon formula and designs. The 2 family has connections everywhere, and he'll have these in his hands in 3 days. Lam honks loudly, letting out an "oh." He asks, I wonder if you can get your hands on the next item. Reaching into his sleeve, he pulls out an item. If you're curious, take a look at this. It's a miniature doll, a flawless replica of Lin Ko. The wealthy young men are captivated. I want it. Lam Hone introduces the doll, which is meticulously crafted by a skilled carpenter. It features lifelike joints and intricate details, and its skin is made from high-grade dragon and phoenix ceramic. He adds that you can even change the doll's clothes, choosing from options like a bunny girl outfit, a sexy dress, or a cute school uniform. One man shouts excitedly, I must have the goddess doll. Lam Hone announces the price, just 290 silver pieces. We have 10 in stock, so it's first come, first served. Take Lin Ko home with you today. A young master tosses a bag of coins at Lam Hone and says, I'll take one. Others quickly join in, tossing money at Lam Hone. No one can take her from me. Lin Ko is mine. Lam Hone is ecstatic, overwhelmed by the enthusiastic response. He announces, Don't worry everyone, I'll offer limited-time franchises for 500 silver pieces each. We'll split the profits 30 to 70. Mr. 2 attempts to intervene, threatening the young masters and challenging them to see who dares to participate. He accuses them of trying to divide their pottery alliance. Young master brings Mr. 2 down to the ground, stepping firmly on his back. The 3 merchants show no sympathy for Mr. 2. They enthusiastically support Lam Hone, believing it's foolish not to pursue profit. They feel that old 2 is standing in the way of their chance to get rich. Mr. 2 is furious, struggling to comprehend his downfall. Lam Hone, witnessing Mr. 2's misery, smiles triumphantly. Mr. 2, do you still believe you can control everything? You reap what you sow. He then bows slightly to Mr. 2 and says, Times have changed, sir. The 2 family steward stands at the center of the pottery competition, announcing the winner of this year's event, the one who introduced the revolutionary concept of character pottery. It is none other than Lam Hone. The system notification chimes. Congratulations, host. You've completed the influence mission. Influence increased by 50. Lamhone adjusts his clothes. He runs a hand through his hair, revealing his narcissism. With a sigh, I think about my talent. It's hard to stay hidden. The audience rolls their eyes. Mr. Two and the three merchants exchange grimaces. Did he really just say that? Lamhone strolls down the street, humming to himself. Today, everyone is in high spirits and celebrating. He comes to a sudden halt, noticing an elderly woman. She seems distressed or frightened. As she walks past him, he feels a strange sensation. He jumps back as the old woman suddenly collapses, clutching her chest in pain. Lamhone is taken aback as he watches an old woman walk past him, clutch her chest, and fall to the ground. Putting it all together, he realizes it's a classic scam. The old woman clutches her chest, her face pale and contorted as if she is in excruciating pain. Lamhone turns back, sweating nervously. I believe she's genuinely injured. He notices the genuine pain on her face and the beads of sweat trickling down. Lin Huan sat down to assess the situation. It wasn't a heart attack relapse, was it? It was too late to find a doctor now. What should she do? Lin Huan rested his hand on his chin as a brilliant idea appeared to strike him. Lin Huan rummaged through the system's various medicines and antiseptics, his eyes scanning the shelves until they landed on a gourd bottle labeled Instant Heart Support Pill. Lin Huan exclaimed happily, I found it! The system displayed a prompt, yes or no, for an exchange of an instant heart support pill, requiring 60 influence points. Lin Huan's hand trembled as she hesitated over the button to select the gourd bottle containing the instant heart support pills. He thought to himself, if I use all my influence points to save someone, what if something dangerous happens afterward? To be honest, I don't even know this old woman. Maybe I shouldn't. Lin Huan shook his head. Finally, Lin Huan resolutely declared, no, as a successor of the new era, I must save her if I can. Lin Huan decisively pressed the button to exchange for the medicine. The system displayed a notification, exchange successful, influence points decreased by 60. A gourd bottle materialized in his hand. Afterward, Lin Huan placed the pill into the old woman's mouth. Not long after, the old woman awoke, letting out a deep exhale. Lin Huan stepped forward to help her up and asked with concern, Grandma, are you feeling better? An old woman grasped Lin Huan's hand and said excitedly, Young man, thank goodness for you. Otherwise, this old body would have been done for. Lin Huan pressed the gourd bottle of medicine into the old woman's hand and said gently, Grandma, take this medicine. Remember to keep it with you. If this happens again, take one pill and you'll feel better. The old woman handed Lin Huan a lucky charm, smiling as she said, Young man, I have nothing to give you. I received 2 peace charms at the temple, one from my son, and this one is for you. After Lin Huan accepted it and turned to leave, the old woman discreetly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and whispered, There are still many good people in the world. Evening had arrived. In the forest, Lin Huan held a wad of cash, his face beaming. He said, without an account number, This money is making my hand numb. Take it. Consider the extra little something for you. Ichi calmly replied, I can't deny that you surprised me. However, you've unfortunately provoked someone you shouldn't have. Lin Huan sighed helplessly, feeling hazy, and continued to think absent-mindedly. As expected, they still wanted to kill me. Then Lin Huan asked Ichi, Tell me, how much did the Su family give you? I'll pay double. No, I'll pay double for each of you. I don't believe that all 17 of you can. Ichi drew his saber and replied, Let me tell you the truth. The Su family is about to form a marriage alliance with the city lord. There are some things that money can't solve. Finishing his words, Ichi charged at Lin Huan with his sword drawn. A flash of light appeared, as though the sword had just pierced Lin Huan's heart. Immediately afterward, Ichi sheathed his sword. At that moment, Lin Huan looked at his hands in shock and blurted out, Huh! Lin Huan stared at the tear in his sleeve, lost in thought for a long time. Someone pointed at Lin Huan, spitting blood, and shouted in fear and indignation, We've been betrayed! The entire group turned to face the person who had just launched the attack. Immediately afterward, a flash of light erupted, causing the entire group to collapse onto the ground. The sound of bodies hitting the ground echoed around Lin Huan, who stood horrified and speechless. Ichi, his long sword dripping with blood, swiftly and efficiently dispatched the entire group, leaving them in a pool of their own blood. Lin Huan's eyes sparkled like stars. He clasped his hands together in a gesture of respect toward Ichi and said, Master, you could become the best swordsman in the world. Ichi swung the hilt of his sword and said softly, Stop flattering me. Do you know why I saved you? Lin Huan looked down at the peace charm the old woman had given him earlier, now being lifted by the tip of Ichi's long sword. Lin Huan recalled the moment when the old woman had given him the peace charm. He remembered her words. "Young man, I have nothing to give you. I just received 2 peace charms at the temple, one for my son, and this one is for you." Then, as if a realization struck him, Lin Huan's eyes lit up and he concluded, "Fate, he's the old woman's son." He's expression darkened as he leaned in closer to Lin Huan and threatened, "Stop daydreaming and give me more money." Not long after, Lin Huan walked down the road, emptying his now empty pockets onto the ground. He lamented, "In these chaotic times, I'll have to buy some anesthetic for self-defense when I get back." He then felt cheerful and carefree, thinking that probably no one would rob him. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 robbers suddenly appeared in front of Lin Huan and shouted fiercely, "Stop! This tree was planted by me, and this road was opened by me. If you want to." Lin Huan was bewildered, his mind filled with questions as he stared at the 2 robbers before him. He raised his hands to cover his eyes, feeling too helpless to speak. A moment later, Lin Huan found himself tightly bound with ropes. He rolled on the ground, pleading with the 2 brothers. "Let's talk this over. Why are you sharpening your knives?" One of the robbers turned around and shouted at Lin Huan, "Shut up, you don't have a single valuable thing on you. We'll send you to your ancestors later." Lin Huan stood up and kicked the edge of the table. He shouted at the robber, "Are you all blind? Do you know who I am?" Then, with his foot on the table, he continued aggressively, "I am the legitimate son-in-law of the Su family, the richest family in Ningzhou City." The 2 robbers began whispering to each other after hearing Lin Huan's words, but their skepticism was evident. They thought to themselves, "This kid looks frail and weak. He must be the Su family's son-in-law. Typically, those who get caught don't dare to shout at us like that. Why not secretly take him away for ransom and split it between us? We can definitely handle the Su family. I heard they have a strong relationship with the city lord." Meanwhile, Lin Huan, tied up in the distance, shouted, "If you have something to say it to my face." The robber approached Lin Huan with a bright smile and quickly untied him. Lowering his voice, he apologized, saying, "It's all because we were blind. We'll personally escort you back later, young master. If you have any requests, just let us know." After being untied, Lin Huan relaxed and replied nonchalantly, "That's more like it. When I get back, I'll reward you with some gold tails." Hearing this, the robbers' eyes lit up as they rubbed their hands together, eagerly anticipating Lin Huan's promise. Lin Huan extended his hand in front of the 2 robbers and casually ordered, "I'm hungry now. Bring me some food quickly." However, in his heart, Lin Huan was thinking, "I'll trick them first and then find a chance to escape." Shortly after, the 2 robbers met with their leader and handed him a piece of paper. Just then, a person entered carrying a tray of silver ingots and said, "Consider this a down payment. There will be more reward once the job is done cleanly." Sean Bao and his 2 henchmen continued to examine the paper. One of them remarked, "This person looks familiar, doesn't he?" The others considered this and replied, "I think so too. I feel like I've seen him somewhere." Sean Bao then added, "I think so as well. I feel like I've seen him before." One of the robbers suddenly remembered something, slapped his head, and exclaimed, "Chief, I remember. Isn't this the Su family's son-in-law from earlier?" The family's steward was taken aback and exclaimed, "Son-in-law? Our young miss isn't even married yet. How can there be a son-in-law?" At that moment, someone walked by casually outside. It was Lin Huan. He walked past the door of the room where Sean Bao and his henchmen were deep in discussion. Sean Bao still held Lin Huan's picture in his hand. The robbers and the steward of the Su family all turned their attention toward the sound of Lin Huan's footsteps. Lin Huan was still humming a tune, completely unaware of what was happening around him, with a chicken leg still in his mouth. As soon as the Su family steward spotted Lin Huan, he shouted his name, startling the robbers who turned to look in his direction. Lin Huan widened his eyes and turned to face the source of the voice that had just called his name. Lin Huan casually tossed the chicken bone in his hand and replied, "You're looking for Lin Huan? What does that have to do with Lin being in debt to me?" Lin Huan sensed the killing intent behind him and quickly tried to slip away. "Ahem, it's getting late. I have to go back and pack," he thought. Suddenly, Sean Bao's hand slammed down on Lin Huan's shoulder, and in a strained voice he said, "Wait a minute." Immediately afterward, Lin Huan was tied to a pole in the middle of the street. Sean Bao raised his saber high and shouted, "Brat, you brought this on yourself. Don't blame me. Try to be a better person in your next life, huh?" The system displayed a notification. Beginner's protection can be used once for revival. All values will be restored after revival, but the difficulty of gaining reputation will increase. Lin Huan ignored the words of the man holding the saber and calmly considered whether to use this feature. If someone were to come to save her, would it be a waste? Suddenly, the sound of approaching hooves echoed in the distance. A girl with her hair in a bun charged forward on horseback wielding a sword. Upon closer inspection, it was Ning Jilin. She swung her sword, sending Shan Bao's saber flying from his grasp. The sword of the man below also dropped to the ground. At that moment, Lin Huan and Ning Jilin recognized each other. Seeing Lin Huan tied up, Ning Jilin swung her sword again, slicing through the ropes that bound him. Good for you, she said. We'll settle the score when we get back. The surrounding crowd, witnessing Lin Huan's release, closed in on him and Ning Jilin. Wanna leave? It's not that easy. Shan Bao glanced at Ning Jilin, a lewd expression crossing his face. I've been feeling lonely lately. I can't believe such a delicate young lady has come here, he chuckled. Ning Jilin regarded him with a cold stare. The steward standing beside her noticed the girl's expression and felt a pang of unease. This was not good. It seemed she. He quickly covered his face with his sleeve and turned away. Suddenly, a strong tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. One of the men shouted, "Did you hear that?" The vibrations made the ground tremble. Someone pointed into the distance and shouted, "What is that?" In the distance, a large troop of soldiers was approaching. They carried a red flag, the emblem of a powerful clan. The men were frightened by this display of power, immediately dropping their weapons and raising their hands in surrender. In an instant, the soldiers bound them and dragged them off. Shan Bao glared at Ning Jilin, gritting his teeth. She appeared to be the leader of the group, and he realized he had just offended her. With a sinking feeling, he thought, I have no way to survive this. I'm going to die anyway. Lin Huan appeared to have understood his intention. A dart suddenly appeared in Shan Bao's hand. Shan Bao's eyes flashed with killing intent as he hurled the dart at Ning Jilin, shouting, "Die, you vile woman!" Lin Huan immediately rushed forward to shield Ning Jilin, being careful in her movements. The dart hit Lin Huan, causing him to collapse. Meanwhile, Shan Bao was overpowered by the soldiers. Ning Jilin quickly embraced Lin Huan. Anxiety etched on his face. Black blood indicated he had been poisoned. They needed to treat him immediately. Not long after, a carriage set off carrying Ning Jilin and Lin Huan to a place for treatment. Inside the carriage, Ning Jilin examined Lin Huan's wound with a worried expression. She thought to herself that the poison was spreading too quickly and he was losing too much blood. If they didn't remove the toxin soon, his life would be in danger. As Ning Jilin considered helping Lin Huan detoxify, a blush crept across her cheeks, realizing that skin-to-skin contact would be unavoidable. She shook her head repeatedly to dispel her embarrassment and made a firm decision. No, he became like this because he saved me, and I absolutely can't let him die. Ning Jilin then started to remove Lin Huan's clothes to treat her wound. As soon as Ning Jilin touched the injured area, she sensed that something was wrong. Lin Huan, who had been unconscious, slowly opened his eyes. He was startled to find Ning Jilin touching his wound. Ning Jilin looked at the black spots on her hand in surprise. She gasped, realizing that this black blood was dye. Lin Huan scratched his head and explained, this. I just bought some dye and was planning to go back and develop a new product. Inwardly, he thought, if it weren't for this, who would dare to joke with their life? Ning Jilin looked at Lin Huan and asked, "You're not injured?" Lin Huan's face suddenly turned pale. To salvage the critical situation, Lin Huan touched his forehead and fell down, pretending to weakly say, I'm hurt. Inwardly, he thought, I have to play dead first. Ning Jilin was filled with intense anger and frustration. At the Ning Marquis residence, Lin Huan had been taken to a room to rest. Ning Jilin was speaking with the imperial physician, who stated that the patient had no serious issues and was likely just unconscious from fright. Suddenly, someone rushed in and called out to Ning Jilin, saying that the Marquis had something important to discuss. Upon hearing this, Ning Jilin bid farewell to the imperial physician. Ning Jilin turned to Lin Huan and said, "Hey, stop pretending. You saved me, and I won't pursue the matter on the mountain any further." Hearing this, Lin Huan sat up in her chair, holding a brush in one hand and a notebook in the other. She replied to Ning Jilin, "It would have been better if you had said that earlier. My back is aching from lying down. Let me study a bit. I want to see what life is like in the Marquise's residence." The following day at the Ning mansion, a hand pushed the door open. Lin Huan opened the door and saw numerous soldiers standing guard outside. He rubbed his neck, contemplating that this was the territory of the Marquis Mansion, the most powerful force in Juzhou City. Moments ago, the old man had referred to that woman as young Miss, indicating that she must be the Marquise's daughter. Lin Huan was strolling around when he suddenly overheard some maids gossiping. "Did you hear? In a few days, Juzhou is hosting the grandest fireworks party ever. I heard that several Marquis sons will be attending. We might get to see some handsome men then." Lin Huan also eavesdropped, pondering to himself, is it that fireworks party? In my memory, the Ning Marquis doesn't have a good relationship with the other Marquis' sons. Could it be because of that? Lin Huan recalled the past and suddenly remembered the servant's earlier report. Young miss, the Marquis has arrived. Lin Huan suddenly appeared behind the two maids, startling them. He asked, tell me quickly, are these young masters married? Two maids turned to look at Lin Huan, their hearts trembling with fear, and replied, no, sir. Hearing this, Lin Huan took a deep breath. He dashed away like the wind, causing the maids' skirts to flutter. Lin Huan thought to himself, Ning young miss is mine. Who dares to steal her? On Ning's island, she pushed open the door and stepped into the room. Standing before her was the Ning Marquis. She asked, Father, did you call for me? Ning Marquis turned inside as several Marquis sons made their way to Juzhou. One of them had already arrived early. She asked again, what's the matter? Ning Marquis handed her something that resembled an envelope and said, outwardly, they want to come here to see the grand fireworks party. Inwardly, they seek to form a marriage alliance with me. Ning opened the letter inside the envelope and replied with a puzzled expression. A marriage alliance? Do you believe this, father? I'm afraid their relationship is just a pretense. They want to control the Ning family and force us into an alliance. Ning Marquis sighed and said, that's possible. However, I'm afraid that if we don't reach an agreement, they will send troops to invade us. Suddenly, a servant knocked on the door and announced, Master, the son of a Marquis requests an audience. Ning Marquis was startled. What? He had arrived so early. At that moment, someone pushed the door open and walked in. The stout man who entered was Na Yang, the son of the Ano Marquis. He flicked his fan and commanded the servants to bring in gold, silver, and treasures. Ning Marquis looked at him with curiosity and asked, you've come from afar, and I haven't welcomed you properly. What does this mean? Na Yang immediately explained, I have admired young Miss Island for a long time. This time I've come to propose marriage to her. I hope uncle can fulfill my wish. Ning Marquis replied politely, I'm truly touched, but how can such a matter be resolved so easily? Hearing this, Na Yang revealed a cunning smile. Incidentally, this marriage is also my father's idea. At this point, Ning's island could no longer contain itself and slammed the table. So, young Master Gui intends to force this marriage? Na Yang smiled and quickly explained. Young miss, you misunderstand. I'm not that kind of person. He flicked his fan and continued. Recently, the young masters of various social circles have been criticizing Marquis Ning. If young Miss Island could marry me, I believe these issues would soon be resolved. In other words, it's not wise to let this misunderstanding persist. Suddenly, Lin Huan's voice rang out. Unfortunately, young master, you're a step too late. Na Yang turned around and asked, who are you? Lin Huan smoothed his hair and confidently declared, I am Zilin's fiancé. Lin Huan's declaration of ownership left Ning Zilin, the Ning Marquis, and Na Yang in stunned silence. Na Yang quickly retorted, preposterous. When did young Miss Zilin have a fiancé? Someone seize this fool. Na Yang's subordinates quickly rushed to seize Lin Huan. In that moment, Lin Huan shouted, Father, please explain. Seeing this, Ning Zilin thought to herself that, although it was a bad plan, it would be best to let him help. Without hesitation, Ning Zilin rushed over to Lin Huan. She immediately clung to Lin Huan and said cheerfully, he's right. He's my fiancé. Seeing Lin Huan and Ning Zilin acting so intimately left the Ning Marquis stunned. Is this for real? How could I not have known? Ning Zilin quickly signaled to Ning Marquis with a wave of her hand. At that moment, Lin Huan walked over and proudly patted Na Yang's shoulder, saying, now that Zilin has a fiancé, as a Marquis' son, you shouldn't push for a broken engagement, right? Lin Huan wore an extremely smug expression, thinking it was better to arrive early than to leave things to chance. Na Yang was furious. He shoved Lin Huan aside and declared, I'll remember your face. Ning Marquis stood behind him and said warmly, be careful on your way back, nephew. Remember to invite the other young masters to my daughter's wedding ceremony. Lin Huan waved goodbye with a smug smile. The door slammed shut. Lin Huan stood there innocently, oblivious to the murderous gaze fixed upon him. Ning Marquis roared angrily, who are you? I'll give you a chance to explain. Lin Huan grew serious once more, adopting the demeanor of a strategist. I have something to say. Please listen to me. Lin Huan clasped his hands and said, please calm down, my lord. My surname is Lin. I used to make porcelain. Marquis, take a closer look at this face. Doesn't it seem a bit familiar? Ning Marquis furrowed his brows and repeated the name, Lin Huan. He remembered meeting him as a child, accompanied by his older brother Lin. Ning Marquis remembered and pointed at him, saying, "So, you are the son of my old brother Lin." Lin Huan smiled slyly, thinking how fortunate it was that she had pretended to sleep earlier and accessed the original host's memories. Her father and Marquis Ning had known each other for a long time and had even made several marriage agreements. Suddenly, Lin Huan was yanked by a powerful force. In the next moment, he found himself lying across the Marquis's lap, being spanked. "You impudent brat," the Marquis declared. "Today, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your father." Lin Huan stood up, rubbing his backside, and declared, under the watchful eyes of the Marquis's mansion, that he would confront the forced marriage, break the deadlock, and drive away the Marquis's sons. "Only I am worthy of young Miss Silent," he proclaimed. An image of his father and the Ning Marquis cheerfully clinking glasses appeared. Lin Huan raised his index finger and said, "First, the Marquis and my father are old friends. I know this very well." Lin Huan raised his second finger and continued, "Second, everyone knows that I used to be very wealthy, but I was deceived and lost everything. Now things are different." He held up his third finger, emphasizing that, most importantly, we had a marriage agreement in place. Ning Marquis pondered his words. What he said made some sense, but had he really agreed to marry his daughter to this fool before? Ning's Island pursed her lips, having observed the entire scene unfold. She spoke up, "Father, I've decided to marry him." Ning Marquis was taken aback by his daughter's words. "What? Silent, shouldn't you think about this a bit more?" Ning stood firm in her decision, stating clearly, "My mind is made up." She respectfully requested that her father send out the wedding invitations as soon as possible and inform the entire city. The ceremony needed to take place before the other Marquis's sons arrived at the mansion. Ning Marquis sighed and agreed with his daughter, saying, "I understand. You've worked hard leading the soldiers these past few days. Go and rest." Ning's Island approached the door, turned around, and observed the unusual interaction between Lin Huan and her father. Lin Huan leaned in close to Ning's ear and whispered, "Father-in-law, I believe it's about the wedding invitations." At the Su mansion, Su Qian paced back and forth anxiously. It had been so long, and he still hadn't returned. Could something have gone wrong? Suddenly, someone opened the door and said, "Young miss, someone is looking for you outside." Su Qian was taken aback, responding with a surprised, "Huh." Lin Huan appeared and greeted, "Long time no see, Miss Su. How have you been?" Su Qian looked at him blankly. "Lin Huan?" Immediately, Su Qian pointed and shouted, "You dare to come back?" My father coughed up blood from anger and is now bedridden. Lin Huan joked, "Oh, is that so? Maybe it's because he couldn't catch me that he fell ill. I feel so guilty." Su Qian trembled with anger. Lin Huan said seriously, "Actually, I came here this time to discuss our marriage agreement." Her eyes widened in surprise at the mention of a marriage agreement. Su Qian crossed her arms disdainfully and scoffed. "Now that your reputation is ruined, you come looking for my Su family. You want to continue the marriage agreement? Fine, but only if you kneel down and beg me." Lin Huan didn't comply. He quickly tossed the red paper at her and said, "Beg you, look what this is." The red paper fell between Su Qian's breasts. Su Qian pulled out the paper, blushing as she scolded, "Pervert! What are you doing?" Lin Huan replied, "Take a good look." She opened the paper and looked at it intently. It was a wedding invitation from Marquis. "You dare to forge this?" Su Qian shouted for help, and a group of people quickly rushed over. They stood on either side of Lin Huan. Su Xian pointed and commanded, "Seize him." Lin Huan unfolded his fan. He fanned himself and said, "You Su family are so interesting. Anything that appears before you is considered stolen or forged." Suddenly, a hand snatched the fan from Lin Huan's grasp. Su Qian shouted angrily, "Do you think I'm stupid? Young Miss Ning of the Marquis Mansion is noble and powerful, let alone a fiancé. Even a servant wouldn't be someone like you." Two people immediately obeyed her orders and tied Lin Huan's hands behind his back. Su Qian violently tore Lin Huan's fan and shouted, "Hand over the formula. I'll take care of things for you. Otherwise, if this gets out, you won't be able to escape." Lin Huan closed his eyes and sighed. "Su Qian, I pity your beautiful face." He snapped his fingers and said, "Beautiful but stupid." Suddenly, a group of people burst through the door shouting, "Who dares to speak disrespectfully to the young master of the Ning Marquis Mansion?" The soldiers surrounded Lin Huan. Lin Huan poked his head out, holding up two fingers with a playful grin, as if teasing Su Qian. Su Qian trembled in astonishment. It truly was him. These people were from the Ning Mansion. Could it be that Miss Ning had actually married Lin Huan? How could this be possible? Lin Huan held the red paper in his hand and leaned towards Su Qian, saying, "Do you believe me now? I specifically brought this for you, thinking it would touch your heart, but unexpectedly." The people from the Ning mansion and the Su family faced off, some wielding swords while others brandished brooms, neither side willing to back down. "Protect Miss Su. No one is allowed to approach her," one shouted. "Protect young Master Lin. We can't let the Chu mansion lose face." Both sides continuously threw objects and papers at one another. A loud shout rang out, commanding everyone to stop. Lin Huan turned around abruptly to face Kong Shan. Kong Shan cupped his hands respectfully and said, "Su Qiang is momentarily foolish. I hope Brother Lin won't hold it against her." Lin Huan glanced at him with disdain and asked, "Who's your brother? Who are you? Is Su Qian engaged to you?" Kong Shan introduced himself, saying, "I am Kong Shan, son of the city lord of Chuzhou." Lin Huan stroked his chin, appraising him. "Ah, so you're a second-generation official." Kong Xian proposed. "Brother, I have a way to resolve today's situation. I hope Brother Lin will approve." Lin Huan widened his eyes and exclaimed, "Oh really? Let's see how you plan to handle this." Kong Chen gradually approached Su Qian. He touched her cheek and said, "Patience." These words puzzled Su Qian greatly. As soon as he finished speaking, Kong Xian slapped Su Qian across the face, causing her to stumble sideways. Lin Huan watched in shock, realizing the ruthlessness of the methods being employed. Su Qian's cheek reddened as she touched her face, tears welling in her eyes. You actually..." Kong Xian smiled gently and asked Lin Huan, "Brother Lin, are you satisfied now?" Beside him, Su Qian's cheeks were flushed and tears streamed down her face. At that moment, Lin Huan's face turned pale. He pointed and exclaimed, "How could you hit this woman? Are you not human? Only parents are allowed to hit their children." He turned and walked away, waving goodbye. "Let's go. These people are crazy." After saying that, Lin Huan slowly walked out, leaving behind the resentful Kong Xian and Su Qian. He slammed the door shut. Kong Shan gritted his teeth in anger at the mention of Lin Huan. Kong Xian glanced coldly at Su Qian. "Don't cry. It was just a play. In a few days, we'll make him pay." A few days later, at the Ning Marquis mansion, the wedding hall stood solemn and grand. Lin Huan, dressed in his groom's attire, stood beside the bride, her head covered by a red veil. The Ning Marquis held the cup in both hands with respect. "Today, my daughter is getting married. Thank you all for coming." Suddenly, a beautiful woman burst in from outside, shouting, "Lin Huan, you heartless man!" Everyone around was stunned by the scene before them, unsure of what was happening. Kong Shan was surprised and thought to himself, wasn't it supposed to be a group of prostitutes? Why was there only one? However, it doesn't matter. One is enough to humiliate him. The prostitute clung to Lin Huan's leg, weeping. "Lin Huan, that night we shared a bed. So intimate all night. Have you forgotten? You said you wanted to marry me. Why are you marrying someone else?" Suddenly, a hand slammed the cup onto the table. Kong Xian cupped his hands and said, "The Marquis is the pillar of Kuo City. This person, behaving in such a manner, is tarnishing your reputation. He is not worthy of Miss Zilong." The scene before them made the onlookers widen their eyes in surprise. Lin Huan knelt beside the prostitute and complimented her acting skills, saying, "I give you 9 points. I'll deduct 1 point for being too confident." After speaking, Lin Huan stood up and walked toward the door, ignoring her. Standing by the door, Lin Huan looked at Kong Xian and asked, "Brother Kong, you seem to be quite quick on this. Did you send this person?" Kong Xian immediately denied Lin Huan's words, calling them preposterous. "I have no grievance with you. Why would I harm you?" Lin Huan smiled gently. "If you have no grudge against me, then I'm relieved." Lin Huan opened the door, and a group of stunning women entered, each one boasting a curvaceous figure. The 4 girls clung to Kong Xian, sobbing as they pleaded, "Young master, you said you loved me. Why did you leave me? Kong Lang, I'm Xiaolu. Have you forgotten me? Don't stay here. Come have fun with us." The onlookers widened their eyes in surprise. A bad boy had arrived, and suddenly, there was a captivating show to watch. Lin Huan gave Kong Xian a thumbs up. "Brother Kong, you are truly vigorous and romantic. You live up to your reputation for being wealthy." Kong Xian's face darkened with anger as he watched Lin Huan laughing in front of him. He thought to himself, "What's going on? I clearly sent someone to deal with this good-for-nothing. Why is he still here?" Kong Xian had no idea that these individuals were all Lin Huan's. The prostitutes present had been arranged by Ling Ji to assist Lin Huan. As Kong Xian found himself increasingly surrounded by the 3 girls, Lin Huan mocked. Brother Kong is truly enthusiastic and promiscuous, living up to his wealth. Hearing this, Kong Shen angrily pushed the beautiful girls aside and shouted, "Very well, Lin Huan. You've deceived others, and now you will pay the price." He turned to look around, searching for sympathy from everyone, and everyone was on his side. Someone voiced their agreement with Kong Xian, affirming his feelings. "That's right. Lin Huan pointed seriously at Kong Xian and asked, "Then tell me, how are you going to pay for the Su family's theft of the Lin family's formula?" Kong Xian and Su Xian felt a wave of guilt wash over them upon hearing this. The crowd began to murmur among themselves. "That's right, I went to Zui Xianlu and heard Wana singing about how shameless the Su family is. Isn't that true? Young Master Lin has already taken action to cut off the Su family's livelihood. Who would want that?" The more Kong Xian listened, the more ashamed he became. He hadn't anticipated that Lin Huan would use this approach to counter him. At that moment, Lin Huan paid no mind to Kong Xian's angry expression. He was too focused on staring at the prostitute's breasts. Lin Huan then pointed at the two prostitutes and said, "Don't change the subject. Let's talk about this. Firstly, I don't know who they are. Secondly, what about the prostitute next to you?" Lin Huan cheerfully pulled a letter from his sleeve and said, "I have some information. Let me read it to you." Wan Su, a fabric merchant and the third son of the Wang family, had a rendezvous in the forest west of the city last month, where he made a promise. Seeing Lin Huan mention him, Wan Su hurriedly stood up and offered Lin Huan a drink, hoping to interrupt his reading. "Stop, stop. Lin Huan, brother Lin, let's have a drink." Lin Huan ignored him and continued reading. Next was Li Lu Gu, who self-proclaimed to be the best writer in the inner city. His representative work, How Gone is Walu, received high praise from many, but the real author is... Suddenly, a guest next to him slammed his hand on the table. He looked startled, glancing around to see what had caused the outburst. Pointing at Kong Xian, she exclaimed, "Kong Xian, how could you slander young Master Lin? No, big brother Lin Huan would never do such a thing. You must be trying to frame him." Upon hearing these accusations, Kong Xian felt a slight panic. He stammered, "Ah, ah, ah." After hearing Lin Huan read, Ning Zilan wondered, "Lin Huan, how do you know these people's weaknesses?" The matchmaker beside her suddenly said, "You don't know, do you?" This startled Ning Zilan. The matchmaker continued, "This gentleman, after making money at the pottery convention these past few days, has been consistently providing us with these items. Along with people from the Merchant Guild, he expresses a desire to collaborate on building some kind of organization. It's likely from those conversations that I learned this." Lin Huan presented the information to Kong Xian, making him feel guilty. He warned, "Look, anyone who stands up for you here will be exposed." Huan remembered that to obtain this information, he needed to seek out Lingzi and spend all his money. Su Chen suddenly stood up and pointed at the girl next to Lin Huan, accusingly saying, "Lin Huan, even if you slander him, you still can't explain who that woman is." Kong Xian was taken by surprise when Lin Huan slapped him. Angrily, he exclaimed, "Control your woman!" After receiving an unexpected slap from Lin Huan, Kong Xian angrily exclaimed, "You dare to hit me!" Lin Huan shot back, "You tricked Sister New York for so long. It's only right that I hit you." Hearing Lin Huan call her name, New York Ni asked in surprise, "What did you call me? You know my name." Lin Huan started to reminisce about his childhood memories with her. "New York Ni, have you forgotten me? I was tied down in Billy Village, right next to you when we were young." New York Ni asked in astonishment, "Is it really you? But weren't you surnamed Lee?" Lin Huan, tears streaming down his face, recounted, "It's a long story. For 2 years, I was sent to Dilly Village to hide from enemies. I can only tell you that although I'm Lin Huan now, I'm still Tai Dan from back then, your closest childhood friend, Tai Dan." New York Ni found this hard to believe. She exclaimed, "But this is still unbelievable." Lin Huan approached New York Ni and added details about her, as if to validate his claims. "I remember you have a heart-shaped birthmark on your shoulder." After hearing Lin Huan's words, New York Ni burst into tears, realizing that this was indeed her childhood friend, Tai Dan. Tears filled her eyes as she called out his name, "Tai Dan." "Sister New York Ni," Lin Huan replied. Then the two embraced, both overwhelmed with emotion. "I must admire this man's acting skills." Lin Huan thought to himself that the brothel was indeed quick to gather information. Ling Ji had even arranged an identity for him. At that moment, New York Ni angrily pointed at Kong Xian and accused him, saying, "It was him. He asked me to frame you. He's not a good person." New York Ni's words sparked exclamations and fueled gossip among everyone present. "I heard that young Master Kong is not a good person." Seeing the situation getting out of hand, Ning Mark spoke up, addressing the young people, "That's enough." Feeling embarrassed, Kong Xian called out to Su Qian, "Su Qian, let's go!" But Lin Huan wasn't about to let Kong Xian leave so easily. He called out, "Hold on." Lin Huan held up a drawing and asked, "Did I say you could go?" He pointed at the illustration of porcelain. Suddenly, Lin Huan tore it in half and declared, "Your Su family is no longer allowed to sell blue and white porcelain. Additionally, all previous sales must share their profits with me." Kong Xian angrily turned around and said, "Who do you think you are? What if I continue selling? What if I don't give you the money?" Lin Huan sighed and replied, "That's fine. But as for others, I won't allow it." Lin Huan held up a sign that read, "Commercial Benefits Bureau," and said, "I've had nothing to do these past few days, so I've been visiting conventions and markets. I'm collaborating to establish the Commercial Benefits Bureau, which will specialize in cracking down on those who don't adhere to the rules of fair trade. I have also secured exclusive rights to blue and white porcelain. If you don't adhere to the rules, don't even consider doing business in the future." Su Ziyan, upon hearing this, angrily shouted at Lin Huan, "You're going too far." Lin Huan sneered and replied, "If there's nothing else, please don't disturb my wedding." He pointed toward the door and added, "Please leave." Observing how Lin Huan managed the situation, the Ning Marquis had a realization. This Lin Huan reminds him of himself when he was younger. It seems that this matter can be entrusted to him. After Kong Xian returned home, he slammed his hand on the table and cursed. "Damn it!" He gritted his teeth, his face flushed with anger. "I can't believe Lin Huan saw through my scheme." A woman's hand, adorned with red-painted nails, rested on his, offering comfort. "Don't worry, Brother Kong." Dong Fengying looked at Kong Xian with a sharp and seductive gaze and said, "This Lin Huan still has to face 2 challenges that I've designed for him." Kong Xian gritted his teeth and swore, "Lin Huan, you dared to humiliate me today. I will repay you 100-fold." Su Qian looked down, lost in thought, remaining silent. At the Ning Marquis mansion, a voice announced that the Li family, a cloth merchant family from the west of the city, presents 10 chests of silk along with a sum of gold and silver. The banquet was grand, featuring a person standing and reading the list of gifts. Lin Huan's eyes sparkled with joy. The gift list alone took more than half a stick of incense to read. Getting married and collecting money is truly lucrative. The Ning Marquis glanced at him and said, "You prodigal. The annual monopoly fees alone could make you rich. Why do you care about this money?" Lin Huan scratched his chin and replied sheepishly, "Father-in-law, you're teasing me again. In truth, I'm the one who hates money the most." The Ning Marquis' close aide respectfully reported that the young masters of the Chu, Nu, Yang, and Ma families had arrived. After his words, 4 pairs of feet appeared, lined up side by side. The 4 young masters stood with style and refinement, radiating a brilliant aura. Upon seeing them, someone sneered and mocked. "What 4 young masters? More like 4 great wastes." The person next to him chuckled and cautioned, "Speak softly. Today, the 4 young masters are here, and no one dares to offend them." The steward asked the young masters if they were there to present their wedding gifts. Of the 4, one, not understanding, asked, "Wedding gifts? What gifts?" The steward patiently explained, "Of course, it's for our young miss and young master Lin's wedding ceremony." The man said with a look of disdain, "Is it really necessary to give gifts to this talentless and virtuous man?" His words made everyone frown and look at him in confusion. Lin Huan maintained a disdainful expression, sighing silently. The steward replied coldly, "Today is a joyous occasion. If you have any grievances, please resolve them privately. If you cannot behave appropriately, we will have to ask you to leave." The man held up a red envelope and said, "Of course, I cannot leave. I am here today for another matter." He held up the envelope with a smirk and declared, "I am here to propose to Miss Ning." Upon hearing this, the Ning Marquis roared angrily, filled with insolence. Lin Huan patted the Ning Marquis on the shoulder and said seriously, "Father-in-law, let me handle this." Lin Huan adjusted his attire, preparing to confront the men, thinking to himself, "You dare come here to steal my bride?" The man laughed mockingly. Lin Huan, this talentless and virtuous person, probably knows he's not worthy of Miss Ning and has come here to apologize. Lin Huan thought wearily, "I just got rid of Kong Xian, and now another group of brats has arrived. It seems this wedding is going to be quite long." The man continued to speak condescendingly, saying he had heard that Lin Huan from the Lin family has been uneducated and unemployed since childhood, wandering aimlessly. He claimed the Ning mansion was muddle-headed. "If you're not convinced," he challenged, "let's have a poetry competition. What do you say?" The others laughed in agreement. "If you win, we'll let you decide what to do with us," they joked, chuckling together. Lin Huan smirked and said, "Let me decide." The man closed his eyes calmly and replied, "Exactly." Suddenly, a fist shot straight toward his face. In an instant, he was knocked to the ground by Lin Huan's decisive punch and sent flying. Lin Huan replied proudly, declaring himself a master of both literature and martial arts. "I'll show you what a true master of both really is." The man who had been punched lay on the ground, unconscious from the pain, prompting everyone to stare at him in astonishment. The remaining three, witnessing their companion being beaten, roared in anger. How could you hit someone like that? Is there no law? Is there no justice? This is too cruel, they exclaimed. Everyone, look at Lin Huan's face! Lin Huan simply brushed off his hands and smiled, casting a glance at them. Lin Huan slowly unsheathed his sword. He pointed his sword forward and said fiercely, I initially thought you four were talented individuals coming to the Ning mansion, surely with insightful opinions to share with my father and the villagers. I never expected you would utter such vulgar words. Gentlemen, please listen carefully. The three men cowered, their faces pale with fear. Lin Huan stepped on the back of the man who intended to propose to Miss Ning. Lin Huan's expression darkened as he pointed his sword at the man's face, scolding, Incompetent scoundrel, your parents must have given birth to you in vain. All you do is flap your lips and spout nonsense like an animal barking outside the Ning mansion. I've never seen anyone so shameless. The humiliated man became enraged. Lin Huan, how can I endure such humiliation? You are despised by everyone, both in reason and in emotion. Lin Huan asked innocently, Didn't you just say you'd let me decide? The remaining three said fearfully, Well, that was only on the condition that you won. Lin Huan said proudly, Win? I will definitely win. Lin Huan held a book in his hand, glanced at it, and said, It's been a long time since I've recited poetry. Everyone, please have a seat. These words left everyone staring at Lin Huan in astonishment. In that moment, Lin Huan transformed into a graceful celestial being and began to recite poetry. The four young masters' eyes sparkled, their faces flushed with admiration. Magnificent! Then Lin Huan transformed into a charming village girl, gracefully gliding across the water. The other girls gazed at him with infatuation, praising his remarkable skill. Next, Lin Huan transformed into a majestic general clad in iron armor. His heart was as calm as still water, and though his appearance was simple and unadorned, it exuded extraordinary grace as he summoned troops and called forth horses. The Ning Marquis stroked his chin in approval and said, Oh, well done. Lin Huan transformed into a man with weathered hair and a sorrowful expression. My heart blooms like a 1,000-year flower, contemplating longing for a new immortal realm. Hearing Lin Huan's poetry, Ning Zilan couldn't help but lift her veil to look at him. She silently prayed that he was not truly useless. Lin Huan held a teacup in one hand, took a sip, and fanned himself with a book in the other. He said languidly, My throat hurts. I won't read anymore. In the next moment, Lin Huan suddenly hurled the book at the man's face. Those behind him widened their eyes in shock. The atmosphere fell silent, leaving everyone caught off guard. At that moment, the Ning Marquis burst into laughter, proud of his son-in-law. Ha ha! Good lad, truly extraordinary, worthy of being my son-in-law, talented, virtuous, and with a beautiful heart. After he spoke, the Ning Marquis tossed something to Lin Huan. A sword was thrown at Lin Huan, catching him by surprise. The Ning Marquis stood up and spoke loudly to Lin Huan, saying, This is the sword His Majesty awarded me for my military service. Today, I bestow it upon you. When the time comes, join me on the front lines and help fulfill my wish to gather troops on the battlefield. Upon hearing this, Lin Huan's face turned pale as if his soul had left his body. I recited a few poems, and now my father-in-law wants me to go to war. This is truly a disaster of disasters. The Ning Marquis stroked his chin thoughtfully and remarked, But why does your poetry and style seem somewhat inconsistent? Covered in sweat, Lin Huan stammered, This is... Before Lin Huan could finish explaining, the aide, his eyes sparkling with admiration, interrupted. I know! Young Master Lin is a world-renowned talent, truly someone with the eye of an eagle. He can analyze and memorize from various perspectives effortlessly. The people outside continue to praise him, saying these poems are broad and each one is a masterpiece. Young Master Lin's poetry is far better than that of the four young masters. Huan thought to himself, My 9 years of education were not in vain. Thank you, teacher. Suddenly, several pairs of feet rushed ahead. The four young masters ran frantically toward Lin Huan. He looked at them in surprise, wondering what they wanted from him. Unexpectedly, the four of them rushed to hug Lin Huan, showering him with praise for his excellent poetry. Excellent poetry, they exclaimed. I was blind to the greatness around me. Today, hearing Big Brother Lin's verses, I finally understand that there are people greater than us heavens beyond heavens. I was wrong. I thought only we had good poetry. But now, we, the four young masters, know, the four little brothers, are proud to acknowledge you as our big brother. Not long after, the ceremony began, featuring Lin Huan and Ning Zilan. The Ning Marquis stroked his beard, his face beaming with joy as the steward announced that the couple would bow to each other. Lin Huan and Ning Zilan faced each other and bowed. The steward shouted, "Consummation!" But before he could finish, he exclaimed in alarm, "Ah, young Master Lin, slow down. Don't be in such a hurry." Lin Huan was already in a rush. He quickly picked up the bride and raced to the bridal chamber. Ning Zilan, captivating with her ample bosom, lay enticingly on the bed. Lin Huan looked at her with greedy eyes, drooling. "My wife, I'm coming." Ning Zilan blushed and scolded. "This is just for show. Don't get any funny ideas." Lin Huan placed one hand on her chest and raised the other, swearing an oath. "I, Lin Huan, if I intentionally act like a pervert towards my wife, let the god of thunder strike me dead." As soon as he finished speaking, a loud clap of thunder echoed outside. Lin Huan was startled, fearing that his words had come true. "I was just kidding. Don't tease me. Don't tease me. Sleep." Ning Zilan looked at the man lying down with a judging gaze. Suddenly, a hidden weapon shot into the room through the window, aimed directly at Ning Zilan and Lin Huan. Ning Zilan quickly sat on Lin Huan, using her body to shield him while shouting, "Be careful!" The concealed weapon hit the wall. Lin Huan cursed loudly, wondering who was sneak attacking. Ning Zilan glanced at him with a darkened expression and replied, "Well." Lin Huan's face paled as he glanced at his hand resting on Ning Zilan's soft breast. She grimaced and said, "Get your hand off." Outside, a dark figure loomed in a tree, silently observing the room. The assassin, having failed, let out a sigh. "It was just a slip-up. The information lies within that arrow. Rumors will spread, and I don't care if I survive or not." After saying this, he vanished. Inside the room, Lin Huan and Ning Zilan were reading the letter. Ning Zilan suspected that he was warning us about an assassin approaching the Ning Mansion garden 1 hour after the hour of the ox. Jin Bu Huan, an elite assassin, has been wanted by the authorities for years. He moves like a ghost, never failing in his missions. Lin Huan stroked his chin, smiling as he envisioned the assassin's appearance. He thought to himself, "This name sounds familiar. I didn't realize just how loyal she was." After a moment of contemplation, Lin Huan suddenly turned to leave. Ning Zilan looked at him in surprise and asked, "Where are you going?" "It's dangerous outside at night." Lin Huan replied confidently, "Waiting around isn't my style. I'm going to catch him." Ning Zilan said exasperatedly, "Many skilled martial artists have tried, but none have been able to catch Jin Bu Huan. Can you?" Lin Huan smiled confidently. "Who said catching me is easy? I'll make him fall into my trap." "Zilan, trust your husband." Ning Zilan blushed and thought to herself, "This guy is taking advantage of me again." At night, outside the city gates, a group of guards stood in formation, vigilantly protecting the entrance. One of them patted the shoulder of the person next to him and said, "Hey, Taiju, don't doze off." Taiju suddenly turned and smiled at him with an eerie expression. A moment later, the guards were knocked down, lying scattered on the ground alongside their weapons. Inside the city, many guards were on patrol. The assassin, Jin Bu Huan, hid to the side, feeling anxious. He thought to himself, such heavy security must mean that something has been leaked. Is it my reputation, Jin Bu Huan, rising in the Jianho? Suddenly, a loud cry echoed from within the city. "Husband, what's wrong? Husband!" This distressing call caught the attention of the guards stationed outside. It was Ning Zilan's desperate cry. Inside, she feigned panic, shouting loudly as she saw Lin Huan coughing up blood and fainting in her lap. "Someone! Help! There's an assassin. My husband has been attacked." A maid hurried in to assess the situation, followed closely by the guards outside, who rushed in to see what was happening. Kim Bat-hun, positioned outside, cleverly blended into the crowd of guards to eavesdrop. He pondered whether there was another assassin present. 2 guards quickly restrained a strange man, bringing him in and forcing him to kneel before Ning Zilan. Lam Hong, who had been unconscious in Ning Zilan's arms, suddenly woke up. He opened his eyes to find Ning Zilan's cleavage right in front of him. Embarrassed, Ning Zilan looked down. Lam Hun, startled, quickly explained, "I didn't mean to look." Ning Zilan sighed, digging her nails into Lam Hun's hand as she spoke. "Husband, are you all right? Don't scare me." Lam Hun winced in pain. His face contorted as he stammered, I'm fine. It's him. He did this to me." Kim Bat-hun. Everyone was taken aback by Lam Hun's words. Even the true assassin, Kim Bat-hun, concealed among the guards, was shocked, pointing at himself in disbelief and confusion. "Who else could be Kim Bat-hun but me?" The guards seized the kneeling man's head and yanked it upward, shouting, "Look up! Show everyone the face of Kim Bat-hun." As the man's face was revealed, the expressions of those around him darkened. He had a disturbing appearance, characterized by thick, red lips. The servants and guards displayed clear fear and disgust, unable to comprehend that the famous assassin appeared this way. A maid exclaimed that it was no wonder he could kill without a trace. His face was terrifying enough to be deadly. The real Kim Bat-hun, hiding behind the guards, sneered with his fist clenched in annoyance. Trying to play tricks, insult me, and force me to show myself? How naive. He chuckled and revealed a hidden weapon, flicking it forward. The weapon flew directly toward Lam Hun and Ning Zilan. Lam Hun sensed it and shouted, "Not good." Kim Bat-hun turned his head and scoffed. How ridiculous. Only fools would fall for such a foolish strategy. He strode confidently out of the crowd, but then stopped mid-stride. Suddenly, white smoke enveloped him. He exclaimed in surprise, "What's this? Poison? An assassination attempt?" A figure appeared before him and asked, "Do you want to learn? I'll teach you." Lam Hun stood with his arms crossed, looking directly at him without fear, a slight smile playing on his lips. Kim Bat-hun stared at Lam Hun in shock, quickly pressing pressure points on himself to expel the poison and seal the occupants, preventing the toxin from spreading. Seeing this, Lam laughed, pointing and instructing him on how to detoxify. "If that doesn't work, I'll give you some taro, carrots, and pumpkin to help with digestion." Kim Bat-hun grimaced, grinding his teeth in frustration. However, he quickly donned a fake smile, clasped his hands, and said to Lam Hun, "Consider me wrong. Let me go, and I'll help you kill the client." Lam Hun smiled brightly and extended a hand to help him up. "Here, get up," he said. In an instant, Kim Bat-hun sprang up, launching a surprise attack on Lam Hun. Lam Hun brushed his hand dismissively and said, "You can't hurt me." Kim Bat-hun stared at Lam Hun in astonishment, thinking, "This is impossible. Why isn't he poisoned? There must be something wrong with the toxin. I'll take his life another day." Fear still etched on his face. Kim Bat-hun turned to flee. Unfortunately, he triggered another trap. A cloud of green smoke burst into his face. He collapsed dizzily, his head spinning. What the hell is happening? Nin calmly walked towards Kim Bat-hun and Lam Hun. "I didn't expect what you created to be so useful. What exactly is beneath the ground?" Lam Hun pointed confidently. "Lam Hun's." He explained to Nin that the outer layer of the poison smoke is made from a pig's large intestine, which is very elastic. This layer is filled with poison powder and quicklime. Use another section of the pig's intestine to create a water-filled pouch. Nin gasped, clasping her hands together. "So, you just pierce the dried intestine with a piece of broken porcelain, and the water mixes with the lime to create a poison pack." Two guards standing nearby asked suspiciously, "Did Kim Bat-hun's poison not work?" Lam Hun lightly lifted the poison-blocking shield, cheerfully taunting Kim Bat-hun. "I told you, you can't beat me." Kim Bat-hun lay immobile on the ground, his body limp, while Lam Hun tossed a few more poison shields at him. Kim Bat-hun, learn more, read the news more, and you might get smarter. The scene shifted to a new location, where a cup of hot tea was being poured. Lord Nin sipped his tea and asked the steward, "Is it taken care of?" The steward bowed respectfully and replied, "Reporting to my lord, the assassin has been dealt with by the son-in-law." The steward vividly described the events, using animated gestures to enhance his storytelling. Lord Nin asked excitedly if Lam Hun pretended to cause a scene to attract Kim Bat-hun's attention, using the opportunity to bury Lamians and block the assassin's escape route. The steward nodded enthusiastically. Lord Nin clapped and laughed heartily, exclaiming, "Excellent, courageous, and strategic." He sighed, lamenting the lengths he had to go to. If he had known the proper techniques, he wouldn't have needed to exert himself so much. The steward responded, noting that it was a shame the son-in-law had already practiced his own style for so long. Otherwise, he could have learned some of the esteemed house's martial arts. Lam Hun suddenly sneezed violently. Checking his system, he wondered who was thinking about him. He examined the data and exclaimed, as expected, that with a little manipulation, influence increases. The system displayed a message congratulating the host for completing the influence mission. Influence increased by 50. There's an opportunity to win a shop voucher. Accept gift? Yes or no? Lam Hun clicked yes. A 6-colored spinning wheel appeared, and Lam Hun smiled confidently. "Hopefully, this time I'll hit the jackpot and retire immediately," he thought. The wheel stopped on yellow, indicating body enhancement. He frowned, stroking his chin. "What? How does body enhancement help me?" But he accepted it anyway. Enhancement is enhancement. Lam Hun punched the air, producing a loud cracking sound accompanied by a puff of white smoke. His hands swelled up, and he whimpered as tears filled his eyes. "Ah, my hand!" He turned and walked away, muttering, "Ridiculous. This wall has no morals." However, Lam Hun didn't notice the unusual dent in the wall caused by his punch. Elsewhere, a slender hand crushed the shards of glass. Dong Fong Dong, furious, bit his nail, wondering, "Humph, that Lam Hun, does he have 9 lives?" He turned to the person lying in bed and said tenderly, "To you, dying Tom, don't worry, I will avenge you." He caressed the person's face, his voice soft yet menacing. "That Lam Hun won't be alive for much longer." At a tea house, a crowd gathered to listen to a captivating story. Mr. Gua enthusiastically narrated to the patrons of the tea house. The hidden weapon master Kim Bat-hun flicked his wrist and launched 3 poisoned silver needles. They soared through the air toward the Nin family's son-in-law, Lam Hoon. Mid-flight, the 3 needles transformed into streams of poisonous gas, 1 black, 1 white, and 1 gray, swirling together to form a Tai Chi diagram, accompanied by a long, piercing shriek. The audience was captivated. A young woman blushed as she praised. "Wow, this Kim Bat-hun is so powerful." A man declared, "Lam Hun is definitely dead." Mr. Gua paused dramatically, striking his fan against his palm. He continued, but Lam Hun was clearly no ordinary man. At that critical moment, he pointed a finger to the heavens and cried out, "Heavenly thunder, aid me!" Immediately, a bolt of lightning descended from the clouds, striking the dying Lam Hun. What do you think happened next? The tea house erupted in clamor, filled with voices eager to know what had just occurred. "What happened? Tell us! Tell us!" Mr. Gua slammed his fan on the table and announced that, to find out what happens next, listeners should stay tuned for our advertisement. The crowd fell into stunned silence. After a moment, they reacted. Some threatened to beat Mr. Gua, demanding to know what he meant by stopping in the middle. "You're not leaving here today if you don't continue," others urged him on, asking, "Is Lam Hun alive? Tell us quickly!" The angry voices shouted, "And what about that advertisement? What the hell is that?" Suddenly, someone spoke up, capturing everyone's attention. "Of course he's alive." It was Lam Hun who explained as he pulled something from his robes. "The advertisement is for promoting a product, and the idea for it comes from me, Lam Hun, in collaboration with Mr. Gua. The purpose is clear." Lam Hun held up a doll, the legendary Jianghu doll, first edition, crafted by the hidden weapon master Kim Bat-hun. The crowd gazed at the doll with fascination and admiration. Lam Hun then revealed another feature of the doll. You can add small needles to create extremely poisonous hidden weapons. This revelation further heightened the crowd's enthusiasm. Lam Hun gazed at the crowd, a slight blink in his eyes as he thought, "Ah, men truly are just children. Toys hold the most power." The men in the tea house clamored, wondering how they could afford it. It must be expensive after all. Lam Hun continued his sales pitch, encouraged by Mr. Gua. "This gentleman asks a very good question. Such exquisite craftsmanship, not for 1 tael of gold, not for 1 tael of silver, but for just 1 copper coin." He continued his pitch amidst cheers from Mr. Gua. "You might think that 1 copper is too much, that you're being deceived. But don't worry, you can't be tricked. There's a 7-day, no questions asked return policy and a 1-year warranty. It would go against my conscience to do otherwise." He then spread a pile of dolls on the table, emphasizing their limited quantity. "Buy quickly if you want one. You can also purchase from Mr. Gua." The crowd fell silent for a brief moment. Then they rushed forward. "I'll take 3. I want 1 too. I want 1 too. Give me a dozen." As the crowd jostled to buy dolls, Kim Bat-hun proudly declared, "This is mine. I got it first." Accepting money from Lam Hun, she exclaimed, "This is the first time I've done this. I didn't expect it to be so fun, much more fun than fighting." Lam Hun simply replied, "Don't worry, there's more to come." Ninthu Lan, who had been observing, spoke up exasperatedly, reminding everyone not to forget why they were there. Lam Hun replied, asking if it wasn't to investigate Kim Bat-hun's client, and then added, "I'm done." He gestured toward Mr. Gua and explained, "You see, Mr. Gua receives a share of the profits from selling the toys. At the same time, he can transform the characters in his stories into real toys. Adding to the excitement, they'll definitely be grateful to me." Mr. Gua was occupied with selling dolls. Lam Hun continued explaining to Ninthu Lan, "From this assassination attempt, I realized that our own observations are not sufficient. Storytellers, who spend their years traveling the Jianghu, are the most effective disseminators of information. We can analyze their words to uncover valuable insights." Lam Hun suddenly pulled out a piece of paper, revealing information about Kim Bat-hun. The paper read, "Hongxi, Eastern Han Duke, the situation." Just looking at those words gave Lam Hun a headache. To him, these ancient texts felt like heavenly scripts. Nin Thulen understood immediately upon reading the words. The Listening Room, the government's largest surveillance organization and one of the 4 major consulates, is known as the Eastern Han Duke. This implies a capacity for discrete operations, easily employing assassins to achieve its goals. Hearing this, Lam Hoen speculated that Kim Bat Hoen had been captured long ago. However, instead of being executed, he had quietly become an assassin for the Eastern Han Duke, carrying out illegal missions for the government. As he spoke, Lam Hoen appeared to have a sudden realization. He quickly approached Kim Bat Hoen, who was standing nearby. He took Kim Bat Hoen's hand. Pulling him along, Lam Hoen said urgently, Kim Bat Hoen must have made up a story. Xiao Ju, we need to warn Boss Chi. He'll be targeted for revenge. Lam Hoen and Kim Bat Hoen burst into a room shouting, "A Chi boss!" The room was in disarray, leading Lam Hoen to believe, as expected, that there were signs of a struggle. He had been taken. A message written in blood was found on the tea table, while a green jade pendant lay on the floor. Kim Bat Hoen pointed at the items and asked Lam Hoen, "Brother Lam, what do we do now? I fear the boss is in grave danger." Lam Hoen picked up the jade pendant. They planned to secretly exchange hostages, aiming to avoid provoking conflict within the household. Otherwise, the consequences could be dire. Lam Hoen declared angrily that anyone who stands in their way will be eliminated. At the hour of the rat, a carriage awaited in West City. Lam Hoen stepped out of the carriage and announced, "We're here." He stretched and complained, "Why is it so late? It's the hour of the rat, and I'm so stiff." A group of people suddenly appeared before him. The leader complimented him, saying, "You're quite handsome. No wonder you got into the Neen family." Lam Hoen looked at him sternly and said, "Cut the crap. Where's a Chi?" They tossed the bound Chi onto the ground. The leader stepped on Chi and threatened him, demanding the surrender of Kim Bat Hoen, warning that he wouldn't hesitate to be cruel. Akai, struggling to breathe, coughed and urged, "Cough, cough, run, leave me." Lam Hoen calmly addressed the leader, saying, "You haven't even introduced yourself. How am I supposed to know how powerful you are? If you're just a cross-dresser, I'll crush you." The leader replied in an effeminate voice, "You're quite spirited. I am Dong Fong Duan, a descendant of the Eastern Eunuch's establishment." Lam Hoen snorted with laughter. An eunuch with descendants, a male-male pairing. It wouldn't be wrong to call you little brother, huh? Provoked. Dong Fong Duan unsheathed his sword. He pointed it at Chi's head and warned Lam Hoen, "If you dare speak nonsense again, I'll cut off his head." But Lam Hoen remained unfazed. He reached into the carriage to retrieve something. Why the haste? The emperor isn't in a hurry, so why should the eunuch be? He dragged the unconscious Kang Kian out of the carriage. He aimed a poison needle at Kang Hain and said, "Let's see. You kill a Chi, and I'll kill him. We'll find out who benefits." This poison, once it enters the body, has no antidote. Even I can't save you. Dong Fong Don looked at Kang Hian, bewildered. "What does he have to do with me? I don't even know him." Before he could finish, Lam Hoen pricked Kang Hian's head with the needle, causing him to cry out in pain. Dong Fong Don immediately recognized Kang Hian's voice and turned pale. Just as Lam Hoen was about to strike again, Dong Fong Duan shouted, "Stop, stop, stop, stop stabbing." He hesitantly dropped his sword and surrendered. Dong Fong Doan asked angrily, "How did you know?" Lam Hoen replied calmly, "When Kim Bat Hong came to assassinate me, I realized who was behind it." Lam Hoen explained his reasoning. "My biggest enemy is none other than the Su family. Su Qian, although foolish, wouldn't dare seek revenge against me. Therefore, only Kang Hian would hold a grudge against me." Lam Hoen tossed Kang Hian towards Dong Fong Doan and continued, suggesting that Kang Hian might not be the one who hired Kim Bat Hong. This implies that a powerful figure is likely behind the scheme, indicating a closer relationship with Kang Hian than usual. Lam Hoen helped to lift the spirits, smugly deducing that this was too easy. Wasn't it, Dong Fong Doan? Dong Fong Don anxiously checked on Kang Hian, asking, "Are you all right?" However, Kang Hian ignored his concern and angrily commanded, kill him for me." Just as the assassins approached Lam Hoen, Dong Fong Duan suddenly shouted for them to stop. Lam Hoen turned to look at them, scoffing. "Couldn't resist, could you? You're just as foolish." He held a lit match in his hand. "I don't understand why you want to capture Kim Bat Hong." As he finished speaking, he dropped the match. It landed on the carriage, which was loaded with explosives. Lam Hoen declared dramatically, "But I won't hand him over. Burn." Dong Fong Doan's eyes widened at the sight of the explosives, and he shouted for everyone to retreat, but it was too late. A massive explosion rocked the area. Lam Hoen continued walking, ignoring the explosion behind him. A Chi, slung over his shoulder, asked, "Aren't you going to look back?" He replied nonchalantly, "Forget it. A real man doesn't look back at explosions." Suddenly, Lam Hoen turned toward a bush. "Did you hear that? Now you understand what he's like." Nin Thurlin was concealed in the bushes, keeping watch over the bound and gagged Su Qian. Lam Hoen let out a deep sigh. he muttered to himself, inadvertently offending the Imperial Guards. Next time, he thought, he would need a more careful plan. On a rocky mountain road, several men in green robes rode on horseback. One of them warned, "This time we're escorting Lord Nin's goods. Be wary of assassins." A large boulder came crashing down from above. One of the men glanced up. His face went pale with fear. A loud voice shouted, "Jump!" He leaped out of the carriage just as the boulder crashed down, shattering the vehicle. The other men rushed over to assess the situation. Sango, still trembling, reported that the goods were completely destroyed. A group of men armed with swords suddenly emerged. They wore ordinary, inconspicuous clothing. The one in the middle spoke, saying, "Go back and tell your master that if he dares to ship goods again, we'll kill him." The scene shifted to Lord Nin's mansion. The men who had been threatened were now reporting to Lord Nin. The porcelain shipment was nearly completely destroyed. The head of the escort agency informed us that they were awaiting instructions. They echoed this sentiment, saying in unison that they were awaiting instructions. Lord Nin raged, furious at the audacity of those bastards. "They dare to touch my goods," he shouted. "Men, with me, we'll wipe them out." Lam Hone, standing nearby, whispered into Lord Nin's ear, "Father-in-law, I suspect something is amiss. If they were highway robbers, why would they only destroy the goods and not kill anyone? They knew our route and timing. I fear there's an inside informant." Lord Nin turned to Lam Hone and said, "Even if that's the case, if we don't eliminate them, they will surely use this as an excuse to exploit Nin's house city." He grabbed Lam Hone's arm and said, "Since you've discovered the problem, take our best soldiers and go." Lam Hone watched him in silence. Back on the road, where Lord Nin's goods had been destroyed, Lam Hone and Nin Thulan took the lead, followed closely by their soldiers. Nin Thulan expressed her concern, saying that based on the scout's description, she feared the bandits might have some backing. Lam Hone exhaled and replied, "As a man, I will not be intimidated. Besides, I still have a few ceramic landmines." Nin Thulan turned to him and said, "The key isn't their strength, but their cunning. They're hard to find. Where do you plan to start?" Lam Hone, riding ahead, chuckled and replied, "This humble strategist has his own tricks." He inhaled deeply. He pointed to the sky and yelled, "Where are you, bandits? Your grandpa is here. Come out. You have the guts to block the official road, but not the courage to show your faces. Don't hide, bandits. I know you're here." Two soldiers whispered, "Is the son-in-law trying to lure them out with reason? That's too naive." Another voice replied, "Look how handsome he is. He's probably just shouting a few times so he can go back and report to Lord Nin." Lam Hone froze at these words. He suddenly produced a megaphone and yelled into it, "Damn you! Come out and greet us! If you don't come out, you'll be left with nothing." He wore an angry expression, and the two soldiers behind him appeared slightly intimidated by his imposing demeanor. He was cursing excessively. A foot emerged, crushing the grass beneath it. Several men with swords charged out angrily. One of them shouted, "Lam Hone dares to say we'll be left with nothing." Another added, "I've never been so humiliated." Lam Hone, holding the megaphone, looked at them and said, "Oh, you finally decided to show up? You forced me to resort to such uncivilized language." He raised his hand and commanded, "No more games. All units, attack." The swordsmen lost their momentum and retreated in a state of panic. They dropped their swords. They raised their hands in surrender. "We were wrong," they said. "We're just wandering the Jianghu, trying to make a living. We don't want to kill anyone. We surrender and wish to join the city guard." Lam Hone raised his knife, his eyes filled with a cold resolve. Wrong is wrong. There are no excuses. Nin Thulan stopped him. "Wait." Lam Hone looked at her, puzzled. "Are you going to recruit them?" Nin Thulan looked at him, reflecting on how many soldiers had fallen into the hands of evildoers. After being recruited, they had shown loyalty and refrained from serious offenses. If there are no casualties today, bringing them into the fold would be advantageous. Lam Hone glanced at a nearby soldier and said, "All right, you're in charge of them." As the soldiers escorted the captured swordsman away, Lam Hone urged his horse forward and spoke to Nin Thulan. "Do you see the problem?" They shouted my name as soon as they appeared. "How would outsiders know me?" Nin Thulan followed closely, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Indeed, it's strange. They surrendered too easily." Lam Hone smiled as he patted his horse. "I'm quite eager to see what they have planned." The following day, Nin City was bustling with activity. A carriage came to a halt in front of a tavern. Inside, several soldiers were drinking and boasting loudly. One of them laughed heartily, proclaiming, "I'm a soldier now." His underlings quickly flattered him, saying, "The boss is wise. Now we can strut around the city." He slammed his sword onto the table, causing wine to spill from the cups. He propped a foot on a chair, jutted his chin out, and roared with laughter, demanding the most expensive wine. "Just keep pouring the finest," he insisted. The terrified waiter hurried over, pleading, "Please spare me, sir. Spare me. We're out of the expensive wine." The leader kicked a waiter, sending him sprawling to the ground. He yelled in frustration, "Damn it! If Lord Nin hadn't sent his troops away, I would have smashed this place to pieces." His underlings quickly rushed to restrain him. The waiter worked hard to clean up the mess of spilled food and broken dishes. As he cleaned, he muttered angrily, "Damn them, they never pay." He noticed a piece of paper and held it up, calling out to the accountant, "Mr. Buh, accountant, come and see what they've written." The accountant's hand trembled as he read the paper. It stated that the emperor was incompetent, listening to slander and causing the people to suffer. Now Lord Nin, defying the crown, would march on the capital. A red seal was stamped next to the message. The waiter, puzzled, asked, "Mr. Accountant, is what's written here a treasure map?" The accountant's expression turned grim as he replied, "This is more important than a treasure map." He rushed out, telling the waiter, "I have business to attend to. You don't need to open the tavern for a few days." Meanwhile, at a luxurious inn, Lam Hon, Nin Thulan, and Lord Nin were enjoying a lively dinner, filled with cheerful conversation. Suddenly, someone kicked the door open, trying to force their way in. Swords drawn, Nin Thulan and Lord Nin stood ready for battle. Lord Nin demanded to know, "Who is it?" Soldiers in red uniforms stormed in, and one of them shouted, "Imperial Guards on official business. Unrelated personnel, get out." Lord Nin's soldiers unsheathed their swords, ready to defend him. A figure stepped through the doorway. It was Kang Heen, who stood before the soldiers and declared, "Lord Nin, do you dare commit treason?" Lord Nin remained calm as he asked, "Treason? Weren't you humiliated enough just a few days ago?" Kang Heen smugly held up the paper from the accountant, presenting undeniable proof. "What do you have to say now? Are you still denying it?" Mom Hoen continued eating, casually remarking, "My, such hot-headed youth. Is this ethical?" Kang Heen trembled with rage as he tightened his grip on the paper. He finally exploded with rage. "Imperial Guards, arrest this traitor and execute him. Anyone who interferes will be killed as well." Soldiers on both sides clashed their swords. The leader from the tavern dramatically placed a hand on his chest and declared, "Lord Nin, I misjudged you. I value righteousness above all else. How could you command these men to kill the emperor? You may not value your life, but think of your parents, your wife, and your children. They will all suffer because of you." Kang Heen smirked. Lam Hon, watching the theatrical performance, applauded enthusiastically. "Ah, excellent acting. You should all be on stage." Lord Nin remained calm as he addressed his men and Nin Thulan. "Sheath your swords. I'll go with them. A clear conscience fears no accusations." Kang Heen sneered. "Very well. Until this matter is resolved, I won't harm any of your family." He gestured toward Lord Nin's soldiers. "These guards are not permitted to follow." Lord Nin turned to his men and ordered them to disperse, instructing them to await his news. The soldiers responded in unison, "Yes, sir." As Nin Thulan watched her father being taken away by Kang Heen's soldiers, she turned to Lam Hon and asked, "Can your plan really work?" Lam Hon replied confidently, "Of course, trust me. It's a sure thing." Nin Thulan was genuinely worried. She turned to Lam Hon and asked, "How are we going to find them now?" Lam Hon smiled as he rummaged through his robe and spoke simply. A pair of purple glasses was revealed. "These are the latest design in ultra-thin sunglasses." Lam Hon put on the glasses and softly explained that they can distinguish a special dye he created. Faced with Nin Thulan's doubt, Lam Hon gestured toward the door and said, "Below lies the miracle of these glasses. Through these glasses, I can see several different kinds of footprints on the ground," Lam Hon explained. "I had instructed Xiaoju and Ah Chi to prepare this special paint earlier. When Kang Heen entered the residence, I had him walk over the area where the paint was applied, and the bandits walked over it as well." With that, Lam Hon quickly mounted his horse. Once settled securely, Lam Hon extended his hand toward Nin Thulan, inviting her to join him. This gesture surprised her and made her blush. Wearing his newly crafted glasses, Lam Hon flashed a dashing smile and said, "Come on, let's go cause some chaos." The mountain forest was deep and vast, with flocks of birds soaring overhead and sunlight filtering through the leaves. Through the special glasses, the various footprints left earlier were clearly visible, marking their traces on the ground. Following the footprints, Lam Hon and Nin Thulan arrived at the location, where they hid behind a rock and carefully observed the situation. Lam Hon remarked that this place is easy to defend and difficult to attack, suggesting that their target must be located behind the mountain. The two spotted a camp in the distance where several soldiers were gathered. Nin Thurlan, feeling anxious, quickly said, "I can't see clearly from here. I'll go ahead and observe. You stay here." In response, Lam Hoen swiftly grabbed her hand and urged her to hold on. Lam Hoen slowly pulled out an object resembling a bamboo tube and said with a light chuckle, "I've already prepared this." Seeing the object, Nin Thulen curiously asked, "What is this? Why are both ends of the bamboo tube blocked by these transparent porcelain pieces?" Since she had asked, Lam Hoen didn't mind explaining. "These are called glass lenses. They can be made in ceramic workshops and crafted into glass." Lam Hoen seized the moment to tease Nin Thulan, smiling as he handed her the object. "This was specially made for you, a matching pair with mine. Consider it our engagement token." Nin Thulan blushed shyly but quickly retorted, Who's engaged to you?" Looking through the lens, Nin Thonlong exclaimed in surprise, "It's amazing. If we had this during the war, we wouldn't have needed to sacrifice scouts." Hearing this, Lam Hoen became smug as he held up the lens and proudly declared, "Follow me. There are many more interesting things to come." Nin Thulan picked it up as well, pouting and blushing. Through the binoculars, the two spotted the silhouettes of three people standing together. Nin Thulan immediately said, "Those are definitely Kang Jin's men. I can see them." Lam Hoen added, "It looks like they are discussing something. We just need to sneak in." Nin Thulan quickly recognized the gravity of the situation. They were outnumbered, and the Nin family had no soldiers present. She pondered whether they would have to fight to the death. However, Lam Hoen remained confident and declared that there was no need for that. Instead, he suggested they would take advantage of the chaos. Nin Thulan was left confused by his words. Lam Hoen whispered the plan into Nin Thulan's ear, saying, "Trust me, it's like this," she responded, half believing and half doubting. "Will it be all right?" Nin Thulan crouched behind the rock, observing as two men prepared to walk past. With lightning speed, Nin Thulan swiftly positioned herself behind the two men, poised to strike. Before the two men could react, Nin Thulan knocked them unconscious, and they collapsed to the ground. Lin Hoen put on the clothes of one of the men. Nin Thurslin crossed her arms and stood to the side, turning to him and saying, "I really don't need a disguise." Lin Hoen explained with a hint of awkwardness that due to certain circumstances, it wasn't suitable for her to disguise herself. Nin Thurslan glanced down at her ample bosom and understood the situation. Blushing in embarrassment, Lin Hoen handed Nin Thurlan a box. She immediately asked, "What is this?" Lin Hoen replied, "This is a makeup box. Inside, you'll find cosmetics, powders, and liquids that I developed using pigments." He reassured Nin Thulan, telling her not to worry and to put on some makeup to help her sneak in. Nin Thulan was genuinely flustered and embarrassed when she saw the makeup. She stammered, "I usually only practice martial arts and haven't touched these things." Lin Hoen, exuding confidence, picked up the brush with practiced movements and said with charisma, "Don't worry, I'll help you with the makeup." With a few brushstrokes and powder applications, the final touch is a layer of bright red lipstick. "All done," Lin Hoen said to Nin Thulan. "Open your eyes." When she did, the breathtakingly beautiful Nin Thulan, enhanced by makeup, appeared even more graceful and gentle. "Shilly," she asked him in a soft voice, "does it look good?" The beauty before him was so stunning that Lin Hoen's heart pounded, and his eyes turned into heart shapes as he mesmerizedly replied, "You're so beautiful." Embarrassed by Lin Hoen's gaze, Nin Thulan quickly pushed the love-struck man away, saying, "Stop staring. Let's get down to business." Lin Hoen couldn't ignore her words and foolishly agreed, "Right away, right away." Three soldiers stood together when someone appeared, laughing heartily, proclaiming that this trip had truly been fortunate. Lin Hoen and Nin Thulan had successfully disguised themselves. Lin Hoen, pretending to be lecherous, grabbed Nin Thulan's chin and declared that this trip had not been in vain. "I've captured a beauty from the city," he laughed. One of the soldiers, noticing Lin Hoen, sensed that something was off. He asked, "Why do you look so unfamiliar?" Lin Hoen, undeterred by the danger, fully embraced his villainous role. He drew his sword, pressed it against the man's neck, and with his chin held high, declared, "When I came and went, you were still pissing at the crossroads. Do you have the audacity to question me?" Seeing Lin Hoen poised to attack at any moment, the other men quickly apologized, insisting it was a misunderstanding. One of them stepped forward to ease the tension, suggesting that since they were all on the same side, they simply needed to provide the password. Nin Thulan, listening from behind, felt a wave of worry wash over her. "Oh no, they have a password. Are we going to be exposed?" Lin Hoen suddenly shouted, startling Nin Thulin. He raised his sword high and declared, "Here's your password." With a swift slash, Lin Hoen severed his middle finger. The severed finger dripped with blood as Lin Hoen, his expression fierce, roared, "You want me to give the password? I show no mercy. I, Lin Tai Nu, have nothing but the guts to do what I say." The three men huddled together, trembling with fear, and said, "He's ruthless. Someone like that must be from the mountaintop." Not satisfied with the intimidation, Lin Hoen placed the severed finger in his mouth and chewed while glaring at the group. He threatened, "Don't mess with me. Understand? This time it's my finger. Next time, it'll be yours." The three soldiers were terrified, bowing their heads as they ushered Lin Hoen, who was holding the captured beauty Nin Zilan, into the base. Nin Zilan asked him if that finger was made of ceramic. Lin Hoen replied that it was made of a steamed bun painted with dye, noting that they were incompetent and easily frightened by such tricks. The two stopped in front of the target tent. Lin Hoen said he would create a distraction, while Nin Zi Hoen searched for evidence. She reminded him to be careful and asked how he would signal her. Lin Hoen turned and walked away, waving his hand casually. "Don't worry, I guarantee you'll see the signal," he assured. 2 incense sticks later, an explosion erupted, sending smoke and flames billowing upward. Nin Zilan was somewhat speechless. She stood frozen and said, "I can certainly see it, but it's a bit much." Shortly thereafter, Lin Hoen, now dressed in his original clothes, stood confidently in front of the camp, sword in hand. Lin Hoen drove the sword into the ground with force. He began to taunt and jeer at the men, saying, "Hey, you stupid bandits!" The leader of the bandits heard this and immediately rushed out, angrily cursing, "Damn you, Nin family's son-in-law." He then ordered his men to kill Lin Hoen. Lin Hoen wasn't in a hurry. He calmly pulled out a pack of explosives from his robe and said, "You're the ones doing evil, yet you still spout nonsense." Lin Hoen threw the explosives, shouting, "Heavenly thunder, aid me!" Instantly, a massive explosion erupted, sending red flames and smoke billowing into the air, while rocks and debris flew in every direction. The bandits panicked, collapsing to the ground, injured all over. Some cried out in pain, while others clutched their ears in terror, claiming they were deaf and could hear nothing. They shouted in fear about the thunder magic. Thunder magic. A few latecomers arrived, bewildered by the chaos unfolding around them. The leader, witnessing the situation, was furious. He picked up his sword and approached Lin Hoen, gritting his teeth as he said, "Lin Hoen, you've gone too far." The leader charged forward and seized Lin Hoen by the collar. He raised his sword angrily, ready to strike, shouting, "Die!" Lin Hoen smiled brightly, unafraid. Lin Hoen pulled open his robe, revealing a bundle of explosives strapped to his body. He chuckled mischievously, warning, "Oops, if you dare act rashly, you'll be blown to smithereens." Having just witnessed the power of the explosives, the leader hesitated and quickly retreated. The leader hurriedly turned and yelled, ordering everyone to disperse. Lin Hoen commented sarcastically, "What a great leader, huh?" Seeing the leader's fear, Lin Hoen decided to tease him further. He chased after him, calling out, "Don't run, I just want to talk." The leader, too frightened to stay, shouted back, "I'm not crazy!" Lin Hoen caught up and swiftly wrapped explosives around the leader, even tying them into a neat bow. He leaned in and whispered, "Platha Rush, I just want you to cooperate a little." Once finished, Lin Hoen threatened, "If you dare disobey, I'll blow you up." The leader, fearing for his life, cried out in frustration, "I'm innocent. Go find Kang Jian to settle the score." Lin Hoen leaned close to the leader, draping his arm around his shoulder as he spoke gently. "Of course I know," he said, "but you also know someone has to be sacrificed first." He then pointed in a direction, adding, "After all, there are a lot of people watching you." The leader vaguely understood Lin Hoen's meaning and asked in astonishment, "Are you saying Kang Jian sent people to follow me?" As soon as he spoke, someone flinched and quietly turned to flee. The leader spotted the sneaking figure and angrily commanded his men to capture him. After capturing the spy and interrogating him, Lin Hoen stood to the side and remarked, "I didn't even need to find the traitor myself. You and Kang Jian committed treasonous acts. Once he's finished and seeks to clear his name, he'll eliminate you." The leader, filled with anger yet still skeptical, responded that Kang Jian couldn't possibly defeat his men and that he still possessed the letter. He questioned who had given Kang Jian such audacity. In response to the leader's disbelief, Lin Hoen handed him a token, saying, "If you don't believe me, take a look at this." The leader acknowledged the token of the Jashirhan. Lin Hoen casually explained that Kang Xian's primary support comes from the Jashirhan. "You went to the noble residence to make arrests, not under orders from the Jashirhan itself, but at the behest of Kang Xian, who was leveraging the Jashirhan's influence. He then patted the leader's shoulder, advising him like an elder. "Young man, the world is dangerous. You're still young. You must be cautious." The naive young leader was infuriated by these words and immediately retorted, "Even if you're right, so what? You and Kang Xin are the same. Why should I trust you?" Lin Hon switched to a dangerous mode, holding the explosives and wearing a sinister expression. "Don't trust me," he said. "I still have plenty of explosives. If I die, you die. You can only listen to me now." The leader trembled with fear upon hearing this. The fear of death was palpable. However, as a leader facing threats, he was consumed by fury. Suddenly, a guard rushed in, shouting, "Report, Imperial soldiers! Imperial soldiers!" The leader was startled by the report. Lin Hon immediately turned and said, "See, was I wrong? I've already calculated this." Finishing his words, Lin Hon snapped his fingers and said to the leader, "Let me help you a little." A series of explosions erupted, each boom reverberating through the mountains. Smoke and dust filled the air as Imperial soldiers fell to the ground, their fates uncertain. It was all the work of Lin Hon's landmines. He pouted and muttered, having lost quite a few landmines this time. The leader looked directly at Lin Hon, puzzled by his willingness to help. Lin Hon quickly clarified, stating that the Ning residents had no soldiers left. "Of course, I need your assistance. I want you to be my soldiers, that's all." The leader was honorable. Debts must be repaid. That was the rule of the Jiangul. He agreed to help Lin Hon this once, and then turned to retrieve the letter that Kang Xian had given him. Ning Xilan emerged from the tent, having already retrieved the evidence herself, so the leader didn't need to fetch it. Seeing this, the leader questioned Lin Hon, "You clearly intended to use us as your private army, so why did you seek the evidence yourself?" Lin Hon smiled brightly and said to the leader, "As I mentioned a moment ago, we must be cautious." Then, Lin Hon turned around, raised his hand, and shouted enthusiastically, "Lin family army, move out! Let's raid the prison!" The leader behind him, looking bewildered, complained, "Could you at least remove these explosives from me first?" Within the silent prison, the footsteps of two cloaked and masked figures echoed down the corridor. Stopping at a cell door, one of them reached out to unlock it. The person in the cell was Lord Ning. Handcuffed and dressed in only thin clothing, he sat there as two figures approached him. They said, "Lord Ning, someone is here to interrogate you. Please come with us." Hearing this, Lord Ning looked up. Despite his challenging circumstances, he still radiated an air of majesty and power. The two cloaked figures guided Lord Ning to the door. Suddenly, an arrow flew from an unknown source, aimed directly at the figure on the left. Lord Ning was taken aback by this unexpected turn of events and glanced over in surprise. The cloaked figure, struck by the arrow, collapsed to the ground, blood flowing profusely. Before the other figure could comprehend what was happening, another arrow pierced his heart. Lord Ning remained in shock. Two masked figures in black appeared suddenly. They immediately addressed Lord Ning, saying, "Reinforcements have arrived. Quickly, come with us." Saying this, the two figures used their qinggong to leap onto a tree, extending their hands toward Lord Ning and urging him to hurry before they were discovered. Lord Ning remained motionless, silently questioning whether the charade was finally over. The two figures dressed in black froze for a moment before suddenly coming to a realization. Immediately, they shouted, "We've been exposed! Run!" They quickly fled the scene. Lord Ning turned to glance behind him. The person behind him shouted an order, "Fire!" Immediately, a volley of arrows shot toward the two fleeing figures. The cloaked figure who had been struck by an arrow earlier suddenly stood up, pulling the arrow from their body while chuckling. They remarked that it was quite refreshing to lie on the ground on a cool night. The other figure lifted his hand and took off his mask. The mask came off, revealing Lin Huan's handsome face. He smiled and respectfully greeted his father-in-law. Seeing that it was Lin Huan, Lord Ning laughed heartily, patting him on the shoulder. "You rascal, how did you know they would try to impersonate me and break me out of prison?" Lin Huan chuckled in response. "They didn't have any evidence against you, so their only option was to kill you and frame it as a suicide. That's why they arranged everything to make it look like you were scared and trying to escape." While speaking, Lin Huan leaped upward using his qinggong. In an instant, Lin Huan and Lord Ning were seated on the roof, gazing down at Kang Xian and the three Jiqiahan men who were surrounded by soldiers below. Lin Huan remarked that they were about to be taken out for execution. Surrounded, Kang Xian was furious. He pointed at Lin Huan on the roof and demanded, "Lin Huan, are you colluding with bandits? Are you planning to attack the Jiqiahan?" Lin Huan sat cross-legged, his chin resting on his hand as he chuckled softly. "Oh, what a coincidence. Isn't this Master Kang Xian? What brings you here in the middle of the night? Trying to break someone out of prison?" Kang Xian's anger flared, and he was ready to retort. Lin Huan interrupted Kang Xian, tossing a stack of documents his way. Caught off guard, Kang Xian managed to catch them. Lin Huan jumped down and confronted Kang Xian, aware that the men were bandits. He threatened to report to the imperial court that Kang Xian was colluding with them. Despite having the evidence in hand, Kang Xian argued, "Are you trying to frame me in front of the Jishihan?" Lin Huan calmly pointed at him and said, "Indeed, they are the Jishihan, and you are not." Lin Huan politely clasped his hands toward the three Jikshahan men and said, "Brothers of the Jikshahan, as you can see, this matter is a bit complicated. Everyone needs to earn a living, so there's no need for bloodshed." He also emphasized that this was a private matter between him and Kang Xian, assuring them that they would resolve it themselves and that it wouldn't trouble the Jikshahan. Upon hearing this, Kang Xian breathed a sigh of relief, then lifted his chin and said to Lin Huan, "Don't joke. Do you really think they'll take your nonsense seriously?" Lin Huan ignored him and walked towards the Jexian, slipping something into their hands as she chuckled. "I discovered a post station 3 miles west of the city that's giving away gold ingots. So much money, how could they give it away for free? The Jixiahan, having served the country, deserve it, but the common people aren't so lucky." The Jexian men grasped Lin Huan's meaning and exchanged thoughtful glances. Kang Xian understood the situation and, filled with anger, pointed at the Jishan while scolding them. "This is bribery! You work for the imperial court, not as private soldiers." Juxiahan conveniently seized this opportunity to assert, "That's right, we're not private soldiers. Logically speaking, he doesn't have the authority to command us." After expressing their grievances a bit more, they turned and left, questioning what they truly gained from their public service for the city. They had no ties to Kang Zan and only worked for him out of respect for his master. Lin Huan, seeing this, crossed his arms and stood behind Kang Xian loudly and mockingly. "Brother Kang Xian, there's no one left here." Pulling out a confession, Lin Huan pointed at it and said to Kang Xian, "You are guilty, so you won't mind repenting, right?" Kang Xian turned around in anger, drawing his sword and declaring arrogantly, "Fine, very well. If anything happens to me, don't expect this city to remain peaceful." Lin Huan showed no mercy as she slapped Kang Xian hard across the face. "Peaceful? You're thinking about peace?" Kang Xian staggered as Lin Huan, showing no restraint, followed up with a kick. "Peaceful? You framed my father-in-law and colluded with bandits, and you dare talk about peace?" Kang Xian stumbled, lost his footing, and his sword clattered to the ground. Kang Xian fell, collapsing to the ground. Lin Huan picked up his sword and drove it into the earth between Kang Xian's legs. Confronting his fear and panic, Lin Huan spoke in a low voice. "Peace? You messed with me, and you still talk about peace?" Kang Xian was truly terrified, his whole body trembling and his face pale as he stammered, You. Ignoring Kang Xian's state, Lin Huan said what needed to be said and then turned to leave. As he tossed the confession back, he calmly added, "You can run, but what's written in that letter will be made public." Lin Huan turned back, a dangerous expression on his face, as he aimed his threat directly at Kang Xian. "Surrender yourself, or I'll send you to a very peaceful and serene place." At this, Kang Xian flinched. It was a beautiful morning at the Ning residence. Lin Huan and Lord Ning raised their glasses cheerfully together, while Ning Zilan poured wine to celebrate. Lord Ning laughed heartily, exclaiming, "Ha ha ha, I never expected such audacity from you right in front of me." Lin Huan humbly replied, "Father-in-law, it was destiny. I simply went with the flow." At that moment, a servant entered, bowing as he announced, "The Su family's daughter, Su Chen, requests an audience." Lin Huan was puzzled upon hearing this. Su Chen? What was she doing here? Pleading for Kang Xian? He thought there should be no audience. She needed to be sent away. The servant quickly replied, "No, she." But before he could finish, someone behind him placed a hand on his shoulder, stopping him. "Let me handle this." Su Chen, dressed in mourning clothes, clasped her hands and knelt respectfully. "I, Su Chen, come here with a request." Lin Huan, observing the situation, remained motionless in his chair, coldly asserting that there was nothing to discuss due to her connection with Kang Xian. However, Su Chen, setting aside her pride, insisted that it did concern him. Lin Huan made a dismissive guess, laughing as he said, "Begging for mercy, huh?" But before Lin Huan could finish, Su Can, her eyes filled with tears and gritting her teeth in hatred, pleaded, "Please, kill him." Lord Ning and Ning Zilan turned their heads in surprise upon hearing this. Suddenly, Ning Zilan noticed that Lin Huan was now standing. Lin Huan knelt down opposite Su Chen, puzzled about what had happened. Half a day earlier at the Su residence, Kang Xian sat across from Old Su and pushed a piece of paper toward him, saying, "Father-in-law, take a look." Old Su read the contents of the paper, and his face turned pale with shock. He slammed his fist on the table in anger and exclaimed, "Kang Xian, you dare! Kang Jian's expression twisted with malice as his pupils constricted and his teeth clenched. He warned, if you hadn't provoked that Lin Huan, I wouldn't be in such a miserable state. So you better do as I say, or I can't guarantee your daughter won't end up in the pleasure house. Old Su trembled with anger as he knelt on the ground. However, Kang Xian paid him no mind and simply walked away, stating that Lin Huan was to blame. If it hadn't been for him, none of this would have occurred. Su Chen returned from an outing, unaware of the events that had unfolded. Cheerfully, she knocked on the door and called out, Father, I've successfully negotiated with a porcelain maker. We can start selling our handmade goods from now on. Su Chen waited but received no response from inside. She opened the door and stepped in, calling out, Father? Upon entering, Shu Qian was confronted with a sight that shocked her to tears. She cried out in horror, Father, Father, someone help! Old Su had hanged himself. Shu Qian gazed at her father and slowly stepped into the center of the room. Tears streamed down her face as she picked up the paper and read the confession, which admitted guilt. What guilt did her father have? Su Qian angrily turned to the servant who had just arrived. Tell me, he demanded. The servant stammered in fear. Young Master Kong. Su Qian lost her composure, gripping the servant's shoulders tightly. What did he say to my father? She demanded. The servant replied obediently. I didn't hear everything, but when he left, he mentioned you. Su Qian was now filled with rage, her hands trembling as she crumpled the paper. She wiped the tears from her face and swore through gritted teeth. Kang Xian, has the Su family ever wronged you? Blood for blood. You will pay. Su Qian worked to regain her composure. She placed her hand on her chest, looked at Lin Huan, and swore, kill him for me. If you help, I'm willing to do anything. Lin Huan, now grasping the situation, slowly stood up and said, I agree. You don't need to do anything for me. Kang Xian will die. He then walked out, however. I need to gather information about him first. The scene shifted to a pleasure house, alive with the sounds of lively conversation. Come with me, my lord. Hey, beautiful, over here. At that moment, Lin Huan found himself surrounded by enchanting courtesans. This puzzled Su Chen, who glanced at him. Although I have no right to interfere, you promised to help me get revenge and investigate. And yet, here you are? Lin Huan replied calmly, the best source of information is right here, on the upper floor of the pleasure house. Ling Ji smiled and instructed someone to bring Lin Huan up. A moment later, Lin Ji sat seductively on a chair, her hand propping up her chin. She asked, what wind brings young Master Lin here? Your dolls have made me quite a profit, and I'm grateful. Huan sat with his legs crossed, listening to Lin Ji express his gratitude. He replied, let's skip the pleasantries. I'm here for something else today. Lin Ji held a scroll and tilted Lin Huan's chin up. You want information on Kang Xian? I have it. Lin Huan reached out to take the scroll, but Lin Ji quickly pulled it back. Lin Ji stood before Lin Huan, her beautiful face close to his. If you want information, you need to show some sincerity, she said. Lin Huan and Lin Ji faced each other, their eyes locking as if sparks were flying. Wasn't the payment enough? Lin Ji asked. You use my image, and you haven't even paid for that yet. Lin Huan found this amusing. If money isn't enough, how about more fame? This time, it'll be even more effective. Lin Huan leaned closer and whispered something into Lin Ji's ear, surprising her slightly. Can we really do that? She then agreed and tossed the scroll into Lin Huan's hands, saying, you must keep this a secret. Lin Huan took the scroll and opened it immediately, discovering that such a thing actually existed. Lin Ji slowly approached, placing one hand on Lin Huan's shoulder while the other traced his hand as she said seductively, so, now you know my secret. Don't you trust me? However, Lin Huan, showing no tenderness toward the beauty beside him, pushed Lin Ji away and hurried out, knowing this matter couldn't be delayed. Lin Ji, feeling dejected, sighed as he thought about what a strange man he was dealing with. Su Chen, noticing Lin Huan rush out, asked urgently, how was it? Did you get any information? Lin Huan held up the scroll in his hand and replied, of course, even better than expected. This is about my father, Kang Hui. The scroll recounted that 20 years ago, Kang Xian's father, Kang Hui, served as a city gate guard responsible for inspecting those who passed through. At that time, a caravan was departing the city. Reports indicated that Kang Hui, the guard in charge, had left briefly, citing an emergency. The following day, the caravan of wealthy merchants was attacked, resulting in heavy casualties. Later, Kang Hui rescued the fleeing merchants, and from that moment on, they wholeheartedly supported him. Later, spies from the neighboring enemy nation, the Viet Kingdom, initiated their operations, even bribing officials with money. You won't believe what happened next. The king and the chancellor faced a grave misfortune. According to Lin Huan, the culprits were spies from the Viet Kingdom, and they were assassinated by Kong Hui. After that, Kong Hui, having accumulated many merits, became the city lord, his power rivaling that of Lord Ning. Su Cheng continued to read the information on the scroll. It indicated that Kong Hui might have colluded with the neighboring country and been involved in the robbery. Lin Huan, upon learning the truth, clenched his fist in anger. What fueled his rage even more was the fact that the Viet Kingdom had amassed great wealth, while Kong Hui enjoyed fame and profit. To top it all off, he had orchestrated the assassination of the city lord. It was truly despicable. Lin Huan pointed in a direction and said to Xu Chan that, according to the intelligence, before Kong Hui became city lord, he frequently visited the Mingju tea house in the east. Su Qian followed Lin Huan's gaze and added that Kong Hui often went in that direction as well, his movements very secretive. Lin Huan held a box in one hand, while displaying 3 brushes with the other. He had a plan that puzzled Su Chan. Before we go investigate, let's disguise ourselves a bit, he suggested. The scene transitioned to the Mingguti house. Lin Huan and Xu Qian, perfectly disguised, arrived at the location. However, they quickly realized that their plan was more complicated than anticipated. Upon arrival, they were halted by 2 guards stationed outside. "You two, what's your business here? Show your tokens," one of the guards demanded. Just as Lin Huan and Su Qian were stopped at the entrance, they saw a figure soar out. The man stumbled and fell directly at Lin Huan's feet. The man knelt and clung to the leg of one of the guards, begging, "I beg you, just one more time." This only angered both guards. Witnessing this, Lin Huan whispered to Su Chen, "I understand. This place is a gambling den. Just watch." Su Qian wondered aloud, "So, the money that was robbed 20 years ago was laundered here?" Lin Huan smiled as a plan began to take shape. He approached the 2 guards and scolded loudly, "What do you think I'm here for? Do you want a token? My money is my token. Running a gambling den and spouting such nonsense." A guard spotted Lam Hone shouting loudly and, with anger, held his sword close, warning him to keep his voice down. "Do you know this is a casino? Why are you shouting? Are you here to cause trouble?" Lam Hone was unafraid as he grabbed a large silver ingot and slammed it directly into the guard's face. "Are you trying to teach me a lesson? How ambitious," he remarked. Seeing the silver, the 2 guards greedily turned to fight over it, allowing Lam Hone to enter without obstruction. Lam Hone strode in with a fierce posture. Tu Qian looked at him, blushed shyly, and thought to herself, "Why didn't I notice that Lam Hone was like this before? He's so domineering." The casino was crowded and bustling, with people deeply immersed in their own worlds. Tu Qian looked fearfully at the heavily guarded entrance. The security was so tight, how could they possibly find the treasury? In contrast, Lam Hone was unfazed and even excited. "Of course, we let them come to us. You go observe and I'll play a few rounds," he said confidently. Tu Qian was a bit surprised. "You know how to gamble?" Lam Hong regarded Tu Qian with utter arrogance. In the past, Tron Chu Dao had used 20,000 to win 37 million, while Lam Hoke had wagered 200,000 to secure 5 million. "I can do it too," he declared confidently. After saying that, Lam Hong rolled up his sleeves, ready to join the game, leaving Tu Qian speechless. At a table with 3 cups, a man explained the rules of the game. 3 cups, 1 ball. Place your bets, he urged. Buying in costs 5. This is a chance you won't want to miss. As soon as the man finished speaking, he swiftly shuffled the 3 cups back and forth. His speed so remarkable, it appeared almost superhuman. The surrounding crowd eagerly placed their bets on the table. "I bet on Jaya," one shouted, putting down 10 silver ingots. Another chimed in, "To Bin Lu, 15 silver ingots." A voice from behind shouted, "1 ingot!" Hearing this, a man turned around disdainfully and laughed. "Ha ha ha! If you're broke, don't come here. This table is for 10 silver ingots or more." It turned out that the ingot was not silver but gold. A large gold ingot was tossed onto the table. Jia had 1 gold ingot. Lam Hone leaned on the table and laughed, surprising everyone around him. "Open the cup and let's see," he said. The man slowly opened the cup, and indeed it was Jia. The red ball was in the outer cup. The man pointed to that cup and shouted, "Jia, it's the first cup." One of the men excitedly raised his hands and shouted, "Yes, I won! I won!" Lam Home sensed something was amiss, so he quickly seized the hand of the man man who had just overturned the cup, halting him. "Wait a minute, I have some doubts," he said. The man responded with indignation. "Honored guests, you can't falsely accuse others. If I cheated, I'll chop off my hand." Lam Hone picked up the ball, looking reluctant. "Perhaps my luck is just bad." Seeing this, the man pretended to comfort Lam Hone, saying, "Play a few more rounds, you'll win." However, in his heart, he was scheming, thinking, "What a rich fool. I must empty his pockets." The man continued to shuffle the 3 cups quickly. "Place your bets." "No more bets. I'll open them now." Lam Hone confidently tossed several gold ingots from his hand, declaring, "This time, I bet 10 gold ingots." The man's expression turned fierce as he looked at Lam Hone, as if he were an idiot. "Ha ha ha! Caught a fat fish," he taunted. "In a moment, you'll have nothing left." Lam Hone pulled a pair of purple-pink sunglasses from his coat and put them on, looking quite handsome, I bet, to Gia. The man looked at Lam Hone, puzzled. Gia had just come out. How could it happen again? Lam Hone maintained his smile, steadfast in his belief that Jaya was still Jaya. He urged the man to open it. This left the man feeling uneasy, his heart racing with worry. What should he do? Had he guessed correctly? Lam Hone removed his sunglasses and smiled to himself, finding it too easy. He had applied invisible paint to the ball, allowing him to track its trajectory. It could only be Gia. The man had unknowingly fallen into Lam Hone's plan. He was instructed to open the 3rd cup first. He still scoffed in his mind, thinking, "Want to win so easily? Dream on." Lam Hone appeared to have uncovered a trick used by the other man. Just as he was about to open the cup, Lam Hone quickly grabbed his hand. He raised the man's hand and shouted, "You're cheating!" He laughed loudly and pointed to the cup with his other hand, saying, "Ha, don't talk nonsense. There's nothing in my hand. Look, the ball is in the 3rd cup." After saying that, he looked at the people present and noticed their strange expressions, which startled him. What was going on? Why was everyone silent? He gazed down at the cup. Surprisingly, the red ball from earlier had now turned blue in the cup. Lam Hone folded his arms and criticized him, saying, "You deliberately changed the red ball to blue and claim you didn't cheat." This accusation made the man clench his fists and tremble with anger. However, this was all part of Lam Hone's plan. He had intentionally grabbed the man's hand and raised it, creating an opportunity to secretly place the blue ball into the cup. The man, caught in Lam Hone's scheme, turned pale and pointed at him, stammering, You want to harm me." Before he could say anything more, Lam Hone stepped onto the table and kicked his hand, leaving him immobile. Lam Hone drew his sword, aiming the sharp tip at the man's arm. "Whoever cheats gets their hand chopped off, right? Let me help you with that." But just as he raised his sword to strike down, someone intervened. "Wait," said Lam. Hone paused his actions and turned to the man who had just spoken. The man, sporting a mustache, urged him to calm down. "Let's talk things over," he said. "Don't lose your composure over a small amount of money." Lam Hone also let the other man go. The frightened man hid behind the mustached man, a red mark visible on his hand. Lam Hone jumped off the table, emphasizing that money isn't important, but he made it clear that he wasn't there for money. The other man was focused on his sore hand and didn't notice a figure flitting past Taishan. He held a knife pointed at the back of the mustached man, but the man remained surprisingly calm. Lam Hone smiled and suggested, "Would you mind coming to a room to talk?" Taishan pressed the dagger against the back of the casino manager and let out a snort. The manager, unafraid, softly remarked, "Not bad trying." Lam Hone sensed that something was wrong, and it didn't feel good. Something had passed. Fortunately, Lam Hone quickly pulled Tatian towards him. The dark energy grazed by, severing her hair tie. She blushed, surprised by the sudden pull. Once they regained their composure, Lam Hone and Tatian found themselves surrounded by armed individuals. Observing the situation, Lam Hone realized the gravity of their circumstances. He remarked that with such tight security in place, there must be something they were desperate to keep hidden from outsiders. Tachin, glancing around anxiously, whispered her concern. "We can't oppress people. Do we really have to kill to obtain the evidence?" Lam Hone was not in a hurry. He calmly raised his hands and said to Taishan, "Don't worry. Just watch the Oscar-winning actor here." At that moment, a man wielding a sword and wearing a fierce, sinister expression remarked, "It seems that both of you are wealthy individuals. What a pity it would be to die." Lam Hone smiled with an ambiguous expression and replied, "Yes, it's a pity. I came here to show you a way to make money. If you don't want it, then forget it." The man, unconvinced, pressed the sword against Lam Hone's neck and disdainfully replied, "I've heard plenty of boasting like this. You're full of it." Despite the threat, Lam Hone remained undeterred and continued, "I have connections in the South and want to learn from you to form an alliance for opening casinos. Clearly, that wasn't enough to convince them. The manager, wearing a skeptical expression, asked, "What does alliance mean? This isn't a martial arts school. We don't need a leader." Seeing their curiosity, Lam Hone enthusiastically explained, "Think about it. If we unite the casinos from the outskirts to the inner city, how powerful would we be? Not only would we earn money from the young masters of the inner city, but also from those in the outskirts. How about that?" Speaking clearly and understandably, he painted an immediate picture for them. Lam Hone continued to persuade them, arguing that if casinos wanted to enhance their influence and competitiveness, they needed to open more branches and expand outward. He also posed the question of what the biggest challenges would be in opening casinos in new locations. The manager was quick-witted and promptly replied, "First, reputation. Second, power. Without prestige, no one will come, and we can't make money." As he spoke, he envisioned the muscular men with weapons, threatening and demanding protection fees. Taking advantage of the situation, Lam Hone pointed to the sky and asserted that joining the alliance was the solution to the problem of casinos being everywhere. However, the key factor is luck. If all casinos shared the same name, wouldn't that resolve the issue of prestige? Lam Hone became increasingly enthusiastic. Instead of opening casinos on your own, why not hire more people to help? They would benefit as well, and you would gain a great reputation in the process. Lam Hone spread his arms, concluding his enthusiastic speech. He confidently added that by then, all the casinos in the world would treat you like family, thanks to the support of many people. So, what is there to worry about when it comes to not having a fortune? The subordinate remained skeptical. He questioned Lam Hone, asking why they should trust him, and whether he could truly control them. Confronted by the hostility of his subordinate and a sword pressed against his neck, Lam Hone remained unafraid and confidently taunted. "If I, Lam the Ano, who owes money to street vendors and commands respect from north to south, can't control this situation, what is there to fear?" With that, Lam Hone moved closer, feeling the tip of the sword graze his neck as blood began to drip down. Seeing Lam Hone's fearless determination, the subordinate withdrew his sword, adopting a much more conciliatory attitude. He smiled and said, "You are indeed a big shot." The manager beamed, laughed loudly, and rushed over, saying enthusiastically, "Mr. Rao, Lam, tell us more about joining the alliance. What happens if we join the alliance and don't comply?" The atmosphere shifted dramatically. Lam Hone was now seated with the manager, who was serving him tea as he respectfully asked questions. Lam Hone spoke eloquently, emphasizing that managing a large operation is no easy task. When the manager inquired about the meanings of managing and operating, Lam Hone took the time to explain them. On one side, Tatian blushed as she looked at Lam Hone with admiring eyes. She thought to herself that Lam Hone had the remarkable ability to turn enemies into friends. After talking for a while, the manager gave Lam Hone a thumbs up and praised him, saying, "As expected of Lam the Ano, today I have truly broadened my horizons." Lam Hone humbly replied, "It's just a guess." On the surface, he appeared humble, but in his heart, Lam Hone smiled smugly, thinking to himself, "I'm 1,000 years ahead of you in this kind of experience." Lam Hone feigned hesitation and said, "But now there's a problem." The manager immediately grew anxious and urged Lam Hone to speak quickly. Lam Hone pretended to turn and leave, saying, "To succeed, I must review some account books to understand the overall situation before I can take the next step. The boss isn't here, so I'll have to go to another casino." He wondered how the manager could let such a tempting opportunity slip away. The manager hurriedly pulled Lam Hone back, signaling that he wanted to negotiate. The manager turned around and instructed his subordinates to fetch the account books. One of them hesitantly whispered, "No, we need the boss's approval." Before he could finish speaking, the manager kicked him in the butt and shouted, "What are you afraid of? Get it done quickly." The subordinate had no choice but to resign himself to obeying. Seeing that his plan had succeeded, Lam Hone turned to Titian triumphantly, giving her a thumbs up and smiling. Titian returned the gesture with a similar smile. The account books were presented, and Lam Hone sat down to review them, maintaining an air of expertise as he commented, "Good, good. The entries are very clear, and the revenue is quite satisfactory." Then Lam Hone stood up abruptly and said to the manager, "Good, I'll join the alliance. I'll list out the membership fee, training fee, and management fee and send them to you later." The manager beamed and replied with a smile, "Very good." The manager was overjoyed. He enthusiastically escorted Lam Hone to the door, waving warmly even after he had left, saying, "Take care." Once they were outside, Titian asked, "Did you find anything?" Lam Hone smiled and replied, "Yes." Lam Hone explained further that every month, the casino pays a portion of the money to a place called Lin Lung Fong. On February 18th, March 18th, and April 18th, they each sent $30,000. Lam Hone affirmed that this place is the key to overthrowing the Kang family. As Lam Hone and Tishin walked and talked, they remained unaware of a figure concealed in a nearby tree. Observing them, he muttered to himself, "Someone actually managed to check the account books. I must report this to the higher-ups and prepare to close the net." At night, in Lunglin Fong, two figures lurked outside a brightly lit mansion. Driven by curiosity, Lam Hone quietly poked a small hole in the paper window and peeked inside. After peeking, he quickly crouched down, a strange liquid flowing from his nose, and whispered to Tishin, "This is Lunglin Fong. I thought it was a warehouse or something, but I didn't expect it to be this." Hearing Lam Hone's unusual words, Tishin felt slightly puzzled, unsure of what he meant. Immediately afterward, she followed his example and poked a small hole in the window to look inside, but the sight made her blush. Inside, a girl in a sexy light blue outfit, with her hair half tied up, was leisurely playing a flute. In addition, there were other beautiful girls, all of whom shared the common trait of having seductive figures and wearing revealing clothing. Suddenly, one of the girls lost her footing and slipped while dancing. She fell backward onto the floor, showcasing her alluring figure. Seeing this, a madam approached, picked up a leather whip, and struck her buttocks while scolding. "Pay attention and learn. If you don't excel at dancing, playing music, calligraphy, or painting, who will rescue you from the brothel in the future?" This made the girl cry out in fear. Seeing what happened inside, she covered her face and crouched down, her cheek slightly flushed. She said to him, "So that's it." In response, he voiced his guess, "This is training for courtesans." At that moment, he suddenly thought, "This doesn't make sense. Before Nin Thulan's marriage, I even hired courtesans to tease him, and the information about his family came from Lin Ko." Suddenly realizing something, his expression darkened as he exclaimed in panic, "Oh no, we've fallen into a trap." He pushed Du Tian behind him. At that moment, a volley of arrows shot toward them. Lam Hone hurriedly stood up and removed his outer coat, filled with apprehension as he thought, "No wonder Lin Ko possesses such power. In her hands, she wields not only informants and resources, but also," he paused, tossing aside his coat to change the direction of his thoughts. "She must be a spy for Viet Coac." Taking Tian's hand, he led her into the courtyard. In his haste, he kicked the door open decisively. Their sudden appearance made the girl scream in fear. "Ah, pervert!" Hearing their commotion, he angrily swept everything off the table and yelled, "Shut up!" He placed her on the table and anxiously called out to Tien to wake up. Then, he suddenly noticed the arrow embedded in her shoulder. The wound had turned black, indicating signs of poisoning. Panic surged through him. It was a poisoned arrow. He knew he had to save her quickly. After a moment of contemplation, he resolved to tear her clothes, believing that saving her was more important than any further hesitation. He turned and activated the system, saying, "System, settle all completed tasks and exchange them for the antidote." The system displayed a message indicating the start of the settlement. Immediately afterward, a tube of medicine appeared in his hand. With the antidote in hand, he swiftly helped her to her feet and injected it into the wound. As the darkness faded away, he breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that the toxin was dissipating. He adjusted her clothes and covered her with his coat, all the while wondering why Lin, who had originally cooperated with him and exchanged information, would attack now. Did he see something he shouldn't have, or meet someone he shouldn't have known? He clenched his fists, filled with anger as he thought, "You dare to betray me? You're dead." He hurriedly left, but not before turning back to the people inside and saying, "Hey, brothel, take good care of her. Otherwise, I won't let you off even as a ghost." He then tossed the package he was holding to the ground. When the package hit the ground and smoke billowed out, spreading everywhere and forcing everyone inside to cover their noses, by the time the smoke cleared, he had vanished. From the outside, the smoke had mostly cleared. After assessing the situation inside, Lam Hone smiled and picked up his pace, taunting the men in black who were in pursuit. Faced with his provocation, the men in black could only surrender helplessly. However, he continued to run, a slight smile on his lips as he thought to himself, "Plan B begins." Lam Hone ran away as the people behind him shouted to chase him. Suddenly, Lam Hone came to a halt. He looked up and saw a tall wall looming in front of him. The masked men rushed forward, leaped into the air, swung their swords, and shouted, "Catch him! Quick victory!" Two men in black seized the opportunity to rush in from behind, both swinging their swords at Lam Hone simultaneously. However, their attacks failed to connect as he quickly vanished from sight. Lam Hone disappeared, leaving the men looking around in confusion, asking, where is he?" Someone pointed up and said, "Look up there." He climbed up. Lam Hone sneered and shouted, "Come here! Come and get me!" The men looked down, their expressions filled with anger. Behind the wall, two soldiers struggled to pull Lam Hone up, both chanting in unison, "Heave ho! Heave ho!" Lam Hone crossed his arms and smirked, thinking to himself, "You haven't encountered barbed wire before, have you?" Suddenly, ropes with hooks were thrown onto the roof tiles. Lam Hone exclaimed in surprise. "They're well equipped." The masked men were trying to climb up. Lam Hone sat there and sighed, realizing just how persistent they were. Then Lam Hone jumped down just as the men were climbing up. He ordered, "The enemy is too strong. Let's run." The soldiers immediately responded, "Yes, sir." The masked men leaped down. In an instant, all three of their expressions turned somber. Lam Hone waved goodbye and said, "I'm leaving a small gift for you. No need to thank me." The men, in pain from the glass shards embedded in their bodies, said, "I've never seen anything like this. What a shameless scoundrel." Lam Hone looked at the men with disdain. As he reached into his pocket, he said, "You guys are spies. You truly are shameless." The mallet struck the gong, producing a resounding sound. Lam Hone held the loudspeaker and shouted, "Come and see! Come and take a look!" Skilled Viet Coich Kakwo spies pursued someone over a wall, displaying no fear of the commoners around them. In response, the men quickly used ropes to climb the wall, shouting, "Retreat! Retreat quickly!" A soldier smiled and remarked, "Lord Lam is truly remarkable." The Viet Quoc spies, frightened, quickly fled the scene. Another soldier chimed in, "Lord Lam, where do we go next? Are we returning to Nin Mansion to request troops?" Lam Hone smiled and replied, "Why return to Nin Mansion to suffer injustice? We must go to the city lord and demand justice." The two soldiers were dumbfounded. "But didn't you say that the spies and the city lord are on the same side?" Lam Hone replied, "It's precisely because we're on the same side that we can suppress injustice. They want to assassinate me? A gentleman must punish these villains." The scene shifts to the city lord's mansion. Lam Hone rested his chin on his hand and said, "The whereabouts of the Viet Coc spies are clear. City Lord Kang has deployed the troops." Kang Hui raised his teacup for a sip and calmly said, "There's no need to rush. Perhaps you're mistaken. It's not too late to act once we've investigated thoroughly." Lam Hone slammed his foot down on the chair. He pointed and shouted, "Do you want to die?" Kang Hui's expression darkened at those words. His subordinates angrily scolded, questioning the attitude displayed. "Are you threatening the city lord? It seems to me that you are the spy. Apologize immediately." Kang Hui slammed his hand on the table and angrily declared, "Silence! Lam Hone, is it appropriate for you to threaten a city lord like this?" The city lord suggested, "I think you should go to the jail and calm down first, then come out and talk." Lam Hone held a bag in one hand and a yellow piece of paper in the other, smiling as he said, "All right, I'll go sit in jail. But Kang Hui, you only have one way to die." Kang Hui's face paled as he realized what was happening. During this era, gifts were the most effective means of gaining the favor of the royal family. The best time of year to give gifts was during the Empress Dowager's birthday. The gifts presented on the Empress Dowager's birthday were specifically called birthday tribute. Lam Hone pointed at City Lord Kang Hui's face, the invitation still pinched between his fingers. He declared that the spy attack had caused damage to both the birthday tribute and the invitation. He warned that if this matter was not investigated immediately, Kang Hui would be held guilty. Kang Hui extended his hand and said, "Would you mind letting me see the invitation, Mr. Lam?" Lam Hone stood his ground, pulling the invitation back. "What? Can the birthday tribute be faked? What if I give it to you and it disappears?" Kang Hui appeared displeased. He kept his hand out and nodded, conceding. All right, but," Kang Hui continued, stating that as they investigate the case, they need to find clues from the birthday tribute. Therefore, he requested to see the invitation. Hone tossed a gray bag into Kang Hui's hands and said arrogantly, "Take a look." Kang Hui opened the bag and hesitated. Inside, he discovered many colorful pieces of porcelain. Lam Hone described this as the five-colored glazed phoenix, a porcelain piece that the Merchant Association jointly presented as a grand birthday gift to the Empress Dowager. An official held a fan to his mouth and asked doubtfully, "Shouldn't the birthday tribute consist of gold, silver, treasures, or precious jade? Who is supposed to provide this?" Lam Hone glanced at the official and snapped, "Uncultured." The five colors of Lam Hone represent the depth of the sky and the richness of the earth. The profound essence originates from black, which is why the five-color glazed phoenix symbolizes our ruler's dominion over the four seas, commanding all directions. The officials, some with understanding and others without, exclaimed, "Is that so?" Meanwhile, others chimed in, Right, I seem to understand." Lam Hone appeared unhappy. It seems you are not suited for your roles as officials. The official broke into a sweat and quickly replied, No, we understand. Lam Hone turned to Kang Kuei and pointed at him, explaining that the Viet Chu Kok spies had attacked him to destroy the five-colored glazed phoenix. The official shuddered, realizing, Oh no, I didn't consider that. A guard rushed in and whispered in Lam Hone's ear, Lord Lam, why didn't you say so earlier? Otherwise, we would have risked our lives to protect the birthday tribute and prevent the spies from destroying it. Lam Hone dismissed the idea as nonsense. He had broken this and framed the spies. Should he reveal himself and face death? Upon hearing this, Kang Hui replied, All right, we'll investigate. The Merchant Association can simply switch to something else. Lam Hone stood in front of Kang Hui, furious, and shouted, Are you stupid? We've already agreed to send a sample to the capital for the ceremonial officials to review. Shouldn't we go ahead and send it? Lam Hone tossed a letter into Kang Kuei's hand, which was clutching a bag, then turned and walked away, saying, All right, I don't care anymore. If you want to talk to the Kang family, go ahead. I won't concern myself with spies operating in the city. If something happens and you don't investigate, that's on you. Just wait to face the consequences. As Lam Hone was about to leave, Kang Kuei quickly called out, Wait, who said we wouldn't investigate? Kang Hui instructed Kang Heen to lead a group of soldiers to conduct an investigation within the city. Heen commanded the soldiers to start their search from the east side of the city. The soldiers responded in unison. Understood. Kang Heen thought, I can't let him find out about my connection to the spies. I need to steer him in a different direction. Lam Hone stood behind Kang Heen, placed his hand on his shoulder and said, Why go over there? I know exactly where they are. The soldiers didn't believe him and shouted, We clearly saw them. Why go that way? Are you bluffing? Lam Hone grabbed Kang Heen's shoulder and pulled him along. We have to hurry. Otherwise, when the memorial is presented, I will file a complaint with the Empress Dowager, and even the dead won't be able to protect you. Kang Heen gritted his teeth and thought to himself, You're good, Lam Hone. One day, I'll show you. At that moment, a soldier approached Lam Hone and asked, Lord Lam, where are we going? You don't really know where these spies are hiding, do you? Lam Hone smiled and replied, Of course I don't know. Lam Hone smirked, but that won't stop me from exposing them. Kang Heen looked at Lam Hone and wondered how the spy's hideout could be so well concealed that Lam Hone managed to find it. I have to eliminate him. After walking for a while, Lam Hone said to Kang Hen, Go right, while pointing in that direction. Kang Heen was surprised and wondered to himself if Lam Hone was pointing in the wrong direction or if he was doing this on purpose. Heen clenched his right fist and struck his left palm. He realized that if Lam Hone truly knew, he would have embarrassed him as he had before. It seemed that Lam Hone was lying. At that moment, Lam Hone spotted a group of people and shouted, Everyone, the city lord's mansion has just learned the whereabouts of the Viet Quoc spies. Let us witness the moment of justice and eliminate this threat to our country. Upon hearing this, the crowd cheered enthusiastically. I have long held a dislike for those Viet Cong people. Someone in the crowd said, Let me participate. Consider it my contribution to the country. I can't help but wonder if there will be a reward. Kang Hen's eyes flashed dangerously as he chuckled to himself. You want to create a reputation for yourself. You don't even know where I am. How can you possibly catch me? Then, Lam Hone and Kang Hen led the soldiers to the right. Upon arrival, Lam Hone pointed ahead and announced, Everyone, we've arrived. The Viet Cong spies are all gathered in one place. Kang Heen, taken aback, responded with a surprised, Huh. Before them stood the largest casino in the capital, a magnificent three-story wooden building designed in an ancient style. A man with a sword jumped out, brandished it forward, and said seriously, Who dares to act presumptuously? Kang Heen raised his hand to signal the soldiers and the people behind him to stop. Everyone, wait, we need to investigate everything first. Don't act impulsively. Lam Hone was furious and shouted, Kang Heen, what do you mean? How much benefit did Viet Chu offer you? How dare you betray your country? Those around them echoed his sentiments, saying, Lord Kang Heen holds a high position, yet he betrays the nation. You are truly despicable. The villagers buzzed with discussion as soldiers intervened to prevent them from approaching Kang Hen. Some questioned whether the city lord's son had truly betrayed them. Others chimed in, pointing out that if he hadn't, he would surely allow them to take a look. Kang Hen waved his hand and shouted, Lam Hone, you deliberately humiliated me. Two soldiers with spears stepped forward, ready to guard the area. The man from earlier hesitantly called out to Kang Heen, addressing him as master. Kang Heen angrily flung the man away, shouting, You and that cat, get back. Kang Heen thought to himself, I bet I'm still better than you, Lam Hone. He ordered the soldiers beside him, proceed to the city lord's mansion to investigate. Those who are unrelated leave quickly. As soon as he finished speaking, Lam Hone led the villagers in a rush toward them. One villager casually shoved Kang Heen, sending him sprawling. Kang Heen collapsed wearily, leaving his guards uncertain about how to respond. The villagers rushed inside and began to vandalize. Lam Hone couldn't help but admire their fervor. Not bad at all. He urged them to smash some more. The gold bars had originally belonged to everyone, so they should take them and divide them among themselves. Lam Hone pointed to a room and said, "There's money in there. Everyone, hurry and take it." They quickly ran in that direction. Kang Heen watched the scene with immense anger, slamming his hand against the wall and yelling, "You! Have you no shame?" He hastily ordered his soldiers to stop them and arrest them. Seeing the soldiers unmoving, Kang Heen turned to them. Lam Hone explained that these individuals were relatives and neighbors of the soldiers, emphasizing that no one would be foolish enough to arrest their own people. Lam Hone reached out and removed the helmet from one of the guards' heads. He then asked Kang Heen, "I wonder if you've ever experienced the power of the public." Suddenly, Lam Hone pressed the helmet firmly onto Kang Heen's head. Lam Hone turned around, pointed at Kang Hen, and shouted, "There's a spy here trying to run away with the treasures. Get him!" Upon hearing this, the villagers' eyes turned menacing. After allowing Kang Han to be beaten by the crowd, it was time for Lam Hone to confront the real spy. Lam Hone walked toward a large tree trunk. He aimed his slingshot at the top of the tree and said, "Last time, you hid here." The spy in the tree glanced at Lam Hone, fully aware that he had been discovered. He quickly jumped down from the tree and ran away. A vat walked over and praised Lam Hone, saying, "Well done. Do you need me to chase after him?" Lam Hone looked at the egg in his hand and smiled. "Let him run. He'll return to his lair and reveal it to us soon." On the bustling street, the informant walked down the road, glancing around nervously. "Why do I always feel like something's not right? It's better not to report directly." He approached a mirror, looked into it, and noticed someone hiding behind a pillar staring at him. He realized that someone was definitely following him. He quickly entered the nearest tea house, snatching a purple cloak as he passed by. He stood on the second floor of the tea house and looked down, spotting the person who had been following him as they searched for him on the street below. He picked up a cup of tea and took a sip, smirking confidently at the thought of their petty tricks to try to catch him. Then his hand trembled, and the teacup fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. His head throbbed as he exclaimed, "This tea is poisoned." He slumped over the table as the tea house workers laughed. One of them spoke up, saying, "Of course it's poisoned. This whole street is set up by Master Lam Hone." A bucket of water was poured over the Viet Minh's head, snapping him back to reality. The Viet Man's eyes widened in surprise. "Huh, where am I?" he exclaimed. He realized his predicament. Half naked and tied to a chair, a critic of Lam Hone deemed him useless. "Your current approach has revealed your shortcomings. At this rate, it will take until next year to find them." Lam Hone chuckled and said, "It's all right. I have a way to make him talk." The Viet Man said, "Keep dreaming, Lam Hone. Though your methods are clever, it's a pity." The Viet Man attempted to bite down on something in his mouth. He realized that the object he had concealed in his mouth was missing. Lam Hone smiled as he held a black pill in his hand. "Looking for this? I took it out while I was poisoning you." The Viet Man appeared agitated, asking loudly, "How did you know?" Lam Hone laughed, saying, "Luckily, I often read novels." The man said, "Kill me if you want. I'll never say a word." With that, he clenched his fists. "Oh, really? I admire your bravado. Now I can torture you to a fate worse than death." Lam Hone paused, holding a red box in his hand. "There's no need for you to act. I have many better tricks." Lam Hone stated that even without saying a word, he could still obtain the information he needed. He then placed a stethoscope, a piece of paper, and a brush pen on the table, considering these items to be essential tools that had cost him a significant number of influence points to acquire. Lam Hone told those around him that what he was about to do was the most advanced tool currently available. It's a lie detector test. Lam Hone used the stethoscope and placed it on the Viet Man's heart. He asked him if he was from Vietnam. His heartbeat was steady. Seeing him gnash his teeth in anger, Lam Hone continued, "You came here to hide and cooperate with the Kang family to seize control of the capital." His heartbeat stayed within the normal range. A person got angry and called out to Lam Hone. Everyone knows that. Lam Hone raised his left hand, urging everyone to remain calm. Lam Hone's right hand still held the stethoscope against the man's heart. "Your hideout is in the east," he said. His face paled, yet his heartbeat remained steady. The two guards looked at Lam Hone in confusion. He continued, "Your hideout is in the south." His heartbeat stayed steady. Lam Hone pressed the stethoscope to his heart and continued, "Your hideout is in the north." This time, his heartbeat quickened, pounding rapidly. To the Viet man's surprise, Lam Hone turned around and put away the stethoscope. He informed the guards that it was in the north. The guards were completely confused. Lam Hone continued, I told you, even if you didn't talk, I'd still find out. Are you convinced now? Lam Hone's eyes narrowed dangerously. Seize him. The guards whispered to one another. One asked, what kind of divine being is young Master Lam Hone to possess such strange magic? Another speculated, I think it's probably witchcraft. Lam Hone slapped the guard's helmet in annoyance. Believe in science, he said. It's just a matter of using a lie detector and a heartbeat monitor. When the guess is right, his heart races, that's all there is to it. Two guards stared in disbelief. Lam Hone explained, all right, listen up. First, ask him normal questions and record any changes in his heartbeat. Lam Hone looked at the Viet man and continued to explain. Like this, wait for him to panic. His blood flow will change slightly. At that moment, the lie detector transforms it into a heartbeat wave. The two guards said in unison, so that's it, truly impressive. One of them put his hand to his chin, deep in thought, and remarked, that's not right. You shouldn't reveal it so easily. Lam Hone pointed at the Viet man's face once more. He understands now and plans to use martial arts to enhance his blood flow, making it less effective. At that moment, the man laughed heartily, saying, so what if you know my hideout is in the north? It's so vast, can you even find it? The Viet man harnessed his internal energy. His heartbeat raced abnormally fast. This was not good. He was tapping into his inner strength. That reminded me, I'll seal his AQ points. Lam Hone replied, no need, since I dared to reveal it. I'm not afraid of his tricks. Lam Hone discarded the paper containing the heartbeat recordings. He sat at the ornately carved wooden table and casually said, there are three main roads, north, west, and east. The Viet man was furious, raising his head to confront Lam Hone. Are you looking down on me? Do you think I'll tell you? Lam Hone touched his chin with his right hand and snapped his left fingers as if he had just figured something out. I know. It's east, he declared. Then Lam Hone took out a map, pointed to a road on it, and said, it's this road from top to bottom. Lam Hone pointed his finger at the map, saying, it must be here. Sweat dripped down the Viet man's face as he muttered, no, that's not it. The Viet man's face was filled with rage as he shouted with all his might, Lam Hone, you damn dog! You clearly knew all along and still chose to toy with me. Lam Hone continued, I asked you so many questions, not just to detect lies, but also to chart your responses. At the same time, this provided me with the data I needed to use my ultimate technique. Lam Hone relied on the expressions in the man's eyebrows, the corners of his eyes, and the edges of his mouth to detect his lies. The man's eyes widened in astonishment. Lam Hone stood with his hands on his hips and a smile on his face. The corners of your mouth, eyes, and eyebrows, along with other facial expressions, reveal your true feelings. No matter how well you try to conceal them, you will ultimately betray yourself. The two guards exclaimed that Lam Hone is truly too handsome. It turns out that the large amount of data collected earlier was part of a micro-expression analysis. This tool may even rival the capabilities of the top experts in the world. Lam Hone touched his cheek and thought to himself, oh please, I just bought it from the system store. Ha ha! Lam Hone clenched his fist and reflected on how he had previously focused on casually strengthening his body. Recently, he realized he was lacking in certain senses, prompting him to enhance them without delay. If I continue to strengthen my body, I could become a second Bruce Lee. Lam Hone shook his head, clearing his mind of wandering thoughts. Lam Hone happily gave a thumbs up. We found their lair. We can eradicate them at any time. Ninh Tu Lan and Thu Tien stood upstairs, observing the entire scene unfold below them. Tien remarked, so impressive. I misjudged him before. Ninh Tu Lan responded beside her, yes, I really want to use it. Thu Tien blushed at Ninh Tu Lan's words. Use it? She thought. Even though we're husband and wife, saying that out loud still feels embarrassing. The sight of Ninh Tu Lan in revealing attire, lying on top of Lam Hone, was undeniably blush-inducing. Ninh Tu Lan noticed Thu Tien's strange expression and asked, can I use the lie detector? Thu Tien was startled and replied, what? Tien grew even more embarrassed and asked again, you mean the lie detector? Ninh Tu Lan responded, what else did you think? Thu Tien stammered, nothing. Downstairs, Lam Hone turned to leave and said, let's go. He raised his hand and added, there's another big problem waiting for me. Suddenly, two plump, alluring breasts emerged, adorned with a seductive tattoo on one of them. As soon as Lan Ko saw Lam Hone arrive, she embraced his arm, deliberately pressing her breasts against him. With a sweet tone, she asked, young Master Lam, what brings you here today? Suddenly, Lam Hone pointed at her face and asked, "Why did you betray me?" However, this was merely a figment of Lam Hone's imagination. He sighed inwardly, thinking, "I really want to scold her like that, but her breasts are too big." Lin Hone couldn't bring himself to scold her. Clearing his throat, he said it was nothing, and that he just wanted to ask a question. Then, he turned to A Che and told him to speak. Che showed no mercy as he drew his sword and pointed it at her, coldly demanding to know why she had betrayed Lin Hone. Lin Ko fearfully backed away and asked why he would say such a thing. She insisted she was merely a small pawn of Viet Quoc, not acting on her own accord. She gazed at Lin Hone with tears in her eyes, stepping closer as a few droplets fell. Her beautiful face made it difficult to scold her as she pitifully addressed Lin Hone. Perhaps it was only because young Master Lin had ransomed her, freeing her from captivity, that she was able to serve him. Lin Hone pushed her away, insisting that she shouldn't try to sway him with her beauty, as he wasn't that kind of person. He turned away, his face flushed, thinking to himself that he still found her incredibly beautiful. Lin Hone grabbed her chin and asked if she wasn't afraid he would simply capture her to collect the reward. She smiled and replied, "Would young Master Lin dare to do such a thing?" Lin Hone released his grip and waved to A Che, signaling him to seize her. E swiftly sliced the wooden table in front of him in half with his sword. The bisected table fell to the ground, startling Lin and her companions. She remarked that capturing her wouldn't be easy, as she had 1,000 ways to escape back to Viet Quoc. Lin Hone poured himself some tea and responded by asking why she seemed so nervous, suggesting that she should listen to his reasoning. Recalling the assassination attempt, Lin Hone held her teacup and stated that she was definitely involved in the plot against his life. Looking back, Lin Hone continued to admire her beauty, but as for why she did it, he had been pondering the question and arrived at only one conclusion. Lin Hone pointed at her and declared that she was a double agent. Lin Hone's management of the sale quickly propelled her to fame, drawing the interest of numerous investigators. This includes merchants and officials. Had she followed her plan, she would have become a somewhat famous courtesan. Instead, in everyone's eyes, she appeared loyal to her country. Her people didn't have the luxury of time to pursue her ambitions. They were caught up in a larger scheme. This meant that if they were situated between the two countries, their role was limited to protecting her and gathering information. She selected him as a pawn for her own advancement, a truly despicable tactic. The brothel she was in served as the information bridge between the two countries. Raising his teacup, Lin Hone continued, "One wrong move and she would have nowhere to hide." Lin Ko angrily asked, "So what?" This was merely his speculation. Lin Hone responded that while it was indeed just speculation, it wouldn't impact his upcoming actions. Lin Hone stood before her and declared that he would threaten her. She asked, confused, "Threaten me?" He put his hand to his face in exasperation. Seriously, he was being so obvious about it. Lin Hone took a sip of her tea and explained that it was because she wouldn't dare to gamble. Lin Ko's robe slipped down. She revealed her ample bosom as she asked if threatening her meant he desired her body. Upon hearing this, Lin Hone spat out the tea he had just sipped. Why did she always twist his words? Lin Hone adjusted her robe and stated that he needed her to provide information about Kong Kui's treason. Regardless of whether it succeeded or not, he promised to let her go. Lin Hone leaned close to Lin Ko and whispered, "This is what you need to do." Meanwhile, Tajin anxiously paced back and forth, contemplating his next move. In contrast, Nien Thulin sat calmly, sipping her tea. Lin Hone knocked and entered, inquiring about what was wrong and if Ta Xian was upset about something. Taishan sighed, expressing that despite their efforts to deal with the Viet Quoc spy, they still couldn't take any action against the Kang family. Nien Thulan gently closed the lid of her teacup, nodding in agreement with Tatian. It was true that the city lord's mansion boasted a formidable military presence, leaving them with no means to launch a direct attack. Lin Hone waved his hand dismissively, reassuring them not to worry, as he had already made arrangements. They would know in a few days. Nien Thulin turned to leave, telling Lin Hone it was great and that she would head to the barracks to check on the arrangements. The spy's lair would soon be sealed off. Lin Hone waved goodbye to her as she departed. Taishan sat listlessly, sighing as she gazed out the window. Suddenly, the commotion at the table behind her caught her attention. "Hey, have you heard about that?" one person asked. "You mean about the Kang family?" another replied. Hearing this, Tatian worried whether Lin Hone's strategy had been successful. The four people at the next table continued their animated conversation. It turned out that the former Holy Lord was the gatekeeper who colluded with Viet Quoc during his guard duties, which is nothing short of treason. Additionally, the circumstances surrounding the old city lord's death were suspicious. My father confided in me, revealing secrets that aligned with what was on the list. The two men in green and brown were both intrigued. The records were so detailed that they seemed almost too comprehensive to have been compiled by anyone. Where had this leak originated? A flyer suddenly appeared on the table, accompanied by a confident voice stating that it bore Master Lin Hon's seal. Since he was from Nin Mansion, there was no doubt about its authenticity. At this point, Taishan stood up and politely asked where the flyer had been distributed. One of them pointed outside and told her to go out and take a look. Taishan opened the door and tossed the paper outside, exclaiming, "Here!" The papers fluttered to the ground around the passing crowd, accompanied by the words, "Latest news. If you can read it aloud for us to hear." Soldiers on horseback urged passers-by to move aside, warning them that discussing the matter would be a serious crime. Kang Hian's expression darkened with anger. "Lin Huan, you've gone too far." Kang Hian pointed and shouted his orders, startling the soldiers. "The city lord has declared that Lin Huan is spreading false rumors with malicious intent. Search the entire city for him, even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground." The subordinate stammered nervously, admitting that this would be somewhat difficult. The subordinate remembered the moment he met Lin Huan. Lin Huan had handed him a piece of paper and instructed him to deliver it to Kang Hian, assuring him that he would know the right time to do so. The subordinate glanced at the paper Lin Huan had handed him. It stated that he had left the city an hour ago and requested that it be delivered at the right moment. Written on the paper were the words, "Bye-bye. So long, I did it on purpose. You're done for this time." Kang Hian furiously tore the paper in half, cursing Lin Huan under his breath. Tuchen smirked at Kang Hian's frustration. Kang Hian, you're doomed. There's nothing Lin Huan can't do." Nin Thurlin and her subordinates were hiding outside, urging everyone to remain vigilant and to capture all the Viet Quoc spies together. A subordinate handed a piece of paper to Nin Thulan, stating that Master Lin Huan had mentioned he would share these tips and tricks with her before the operation. Nin Thulan felt both surprised and confused. Nin Thulan opened the paper, curious about the tips and tricks it contained and the game he was playing. Lin Huan winked at her with 2 fingers. The note read, "The more you use it, the higher your chances of survival." Lin Huan sat on horseback and turned back to announce that the inner city was about to change, urging them to seize the opportunity and act quickly. Nin Thurlin guided her horse to a specific location. As she entered, she noticed 2 men. One was sitting at the counter with his chin resting in his hand, appearing quite bored. Upon seeing Nin Thulan, he asked if she was still staying after checking out. Instead of answering, Nin Thulan pointed at him and shouted, "Viet Quoc scum, pay with your lives!" Hearing this, the man jumped up, drew his sword, and prepared to attack Nin Thulan. "Stop your nonsense!" he shouted. Nin Thulan was unafraid and smirked. The man, noticing her unusual expression, felt a surge of fear. In the next moment, something pierced straight through his body, causing his sword to clatter to the ground. It was an arrow that pierced his heart, causing him to fall instantly. Seeing this, his accomplices drew their swords and ordered an attack. "Our identities are exposed, and there's only one of her. Attack. Kill." Nin Thulan rested her hand on her chin, lost in thought about Lin Huan, and sighed in exasperation. That certain idiot insisted I had to use a special move. Suddenly, a squad of archers appeared behind her. Nin Thurlin looked incredibly composed as she commanded them, showing no mercy to the weak. One of them declared powerfully, "Viet Quoc warriors, we would rather die than surrender." As soon as he finished speaking, he caught a whiff of something and turned, a suspicious look crossing his face. "Wait, this is..." They all turned to look as the scent wafted from the body of the man Nin Thulan had just shot. Additionally, that poison never acted so recklessly. Nin Thulan held the piece of paper, feeling slightly puzzled as she observed the group of people covering their noses in fear of the scent. What was going on with Lin Huan? Why did he want her to read this? Was he making fun of the spies? Did he want them organized in the prison? At Dai Diwen prison, the Viet Chok man was incarcerated. His face suddenly turned bright red. Lin Ko, sitting in the adjacent cell, adopted a seductive and fragile demeanor, pretending to initiate a conversation. "You caught too." The man, seeing Lin Ko, jumped up in surprise, grabbing the bars. "It's you! How were you exposed? Aren't you an inside informant?" Lin Ko, noticing his question, adopted an angry expression and recounted everything. It was the Kong family who had taken advantage of the confiscation of the gambling den's assets. They pocketed Viet Quoc's share and held on to the list of spies, intending to catch us all in one fell swoop. Lin Ko explained that if it weren't for her, Nin Man-chun wouldn't know your whereabouts so clearly. The man, hearing her words, found them very convincing and nodded in agreement. That makes sense. It's likely, he said. Lin Ko began to cry, appearing very pitiful. Additionally, they tortured me to eliminate the evidence against the Kang family. Lin Ko cried even harder, sobbing pitifully, evoking sympathy from everyone around her. They even tried to rape me, she said. Hearing this, the man became furious and shouted, "Damn those Kang family bastards!" Lin Ko continued, explaining that they even planned to send someone to eliminate her. Seeing her distress, the man comforted her, saying, "Don't worry, Nin Man-chun is clever and skilled in the sound poison technique. We can still escape this disaster. That Fu Tan Chu fellow won't be able to kill us." Night fell, and the moon shone particularly full and bright. Suddenly, footsteps approached. A man in black holding a key whispered, "Patriots, I'm here to save you." Lin Ko understood that the moment had arrived. She took the initiative to grab the man's hand, causing him to blush. "It's you. I know you. You're from the Kang family." The man in black felt a bit embarrassed. However, upon hearing Lin Ko's somewhat loud voice, he raised a finger to his lips, signaling her to be quiet. "Please, keep it down. I was entrusted by the city lord to rescue you." Lin Ko kept her left hand tightly clasped around his, while her right hand drew the sword hanging from his waist. She pretended to accuse him, saying, "What are you doing? Why are you drawing your sword?" The man in black panicked and quickly denied it, insisting, "I didn't. I don't. Don't talk nonsense." Lin Ko, having obtained the key ring, held it up and thought to herself, "Damn Kong family." The man in the cell, witnessing Lin Ko fall, was confused about what was happening. "What's going on?" he wondered as Lin Ko tossed the keyring to him. "Brothers, grab the keys!" Lin Ko, stabbed in the stomach with a sword and blood gushing out, fell to the ground. "Today, I must strive to serve my country. In the next life, I will still be a Viet Quoc citizen," he declared. Lin Cho's face was streaked with tears, and a small trickle of blood stained the corner of her mouth. She spoke slowly, urging, "Brothers, avenge me." The man in black, having just witnessed everything, looked utterly dumbfounded. He couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The man in the cell, armed with the keys Lin Ko had given him, made his escape. He charged toward the man in black, sword drawn. "Kang family scum, you must pay!" A slash set blood spraying out. The man opened the doors, freeing the other prisoners. They escaped together, and before leaving, he turned back to leave a message for her. "Lin Ko, we will remember your contributions to Viet Chuk." They had just escaped through the main gate when a cloaked figure, completely covered in black, entered unnoticed from behind. The cloaked figure stood before Lin Ko, praising her for her excellent acting. They had been completely fooled. Lin Ko, who had just been stabbed and collapsed, revealed that she had been putting on an act. She sat up, smoothed her hair, and smiled, saying, "It's all thanks to your guidance." The person slowly pulled down their hood, revealing Lin Hon. He smiled, realizing that the plan had become much more interesting. Lin Ji struck a seductive pose and, in a coquettish voice, said to Lin Hon, "My legs are numb. I can't get up." Lin Hon gallantly extended his hand toward Lin Ji, who was still hurting. "Here, take my hand," he said. Lin Ji stroked her hair and took Lin Hon's hand, saying, "If it weren't for you, I would have died here." As she stood up, she failed to notice a rock beneath her foot and tripped. Lin Ji staggered and fell toward Lin Hon. Lin Hon instinctively reached out to catch her. As soon as he caught her in his arms, he felt something soft as cotton brush against him, causing Lin Hon to blush in embarrassment. Lin Ji placed her hand on Lin Hon's chest, her face radiant and beautiful like a goddess. She remarked that following him was much more interesting than staying behind. Then, she leaned down slightly, almost revealing what was inside her shirt to tempt Lin Hon. "Should we try something more exciting?" Smooch. Lin Hon had a lipstick mark on his face. He was stunned and turned to look at Lin Ji. Lin Ji calmly turned to Lin Hon and said, "What? Still shy even though you have a wife. Let's go. I want to see just how miserable the Kang family will become." At the city lord's mansion, 2 guards stood watch outside. Unbeknownst to them, 2 ropes were slowly descending from above. Immediately after, the 2 were tightly bound by the ropes and pulled high into the air, their faces turning purple from suffocation before they ultimately died. Once everything was completed, several men in black emerged. They forcefully pushed the door open and stormed in as if no one were present. A maid was carrying a tray of water when a man with fierce eyes suddenly covered her mouth tightly with a cloth. Another man, blood spreading across his chest, clutched his wound and shouted, "Assassins! Assassins!" Two masked men in black conversed quietly. "I don't see Kang Hui or Kang Xian. They must have escaped," one said. The other replied, "There's no choice. We need to head to the ancestral hall and retrieve the funds and banknotes. The internal intelligence network is compromised. We'll take Kang's head another day." Immediately afterward, they divided into teams to search. One person rummaged through a drawer and discovered numerous stacks of paper. He informed his companions that they were all their banknotes and records of corrupt officials. Outside, Ning Zilan rode a horse at the forefront of an entire army, proudly leading them with flags waving in the wind. Xilan brandished his sword and shouted with authority, "Ning family army, we are here to rescue the city lord's mansion. You country thieves, surrender now!" The men in black, sensing that something was wrong, felt a surge of fear. They urged one another to escape, warning that there were others. "Run!" one shouted, while another reminded them, "Protect the box." Together, they ran around the back of the mountain in search of safety. However, one of them, clutching the box, was suddenly stabbed through the heart by a sword from behind. He collapsed instantly, overwhelmed by both pain and shock. "Why you?" The man in black, who had just stabbed him, still held the blood-stained sword and watched as the other man staggered and fell. He snatched the box from the dying man's hand, causing him to collapse entirely. Then, he removed his mask, revealing himself to be a Chi who had been disguised all along. "I'm a Chi, just lending a hand to a friend," he said. The remaining survivors raised their swords in unison and demanded, "Whoever you are, put the box down." Before they could charge, soldiers began to emerge from the surrounding area. Lin Huan stepped forward and spoke with disdain, declaring that the Lin family army had arrived and challenging anyone to oppose them. Lin Huan walked over and placed his hand on Chi's shoulder. "Want to kill my man? Did you ask for my permission?" He powerfully commanded the troops, "Listen to my orders. Attack, no matter the cost." A bloody scene unfolded as two masked figures in armor wielded swords, mercilessly slaughtering people and causing blood to splatter everywhere. Jingbu Huan took the bread from Lin Man's hand and, both surprised and suspicious, remarked, "I didn't expect it to be so easy to become a spy." In response, Lin Huan, holding a half-eaten piece of bread, smiled and said, "Of course, an intelligence network is a network because most spies only know a few people. Otherwise, the intelligence would be chaotic and identities would be more easily exposed." A spiderweb-like diagram representing the intelligence network was displayed, with distinctive red dots connecting various points. Lin Huan continued, stating that as long as one impersonates a subordinate or a deceased spy, they can still evade detection. Lin Huan winked and smiled brightly before adding, "Besides, you once wanted to capture me under Kang's orders, so we naturally know all about you." Upon hearing this, Jingbu Huan looked bewildered, holding a wooden sword and left speechless. Jingbu Huan, holding a half-eaten piece of bread, replied, "It's a good thing I didn't become your enemy. What about the two big fish of the Kang family?" Lin Huan rested his chin on his hand, filled with pride, and smiled as he replied, Haven't we arranged that long ago? How could they possibly escape?" Meanwhile, in the suburbs, City Lord Kang Hui and his identical double sprinted down the road, looking as if they were being pursued. He panted heavily as he ran, thinking, "Damn it, who would have thought the country people would suddenly betray us?" City Lord Kang Hui shouted in anger as he ran, "Damn it, it's all your fault! If you hadn't provoked Lin Huan, a city lord like me wouldn't have to be running for my life like this." City Lord Kang Hui was taken aback, his mouth agape, as he spotted some farmers working in the fields ahead. He exclaimed, "Huh, there are farmers. If we show them that we are officials, we will surely be treated well." City Lord Kang Hui frowned in anger, his voice filled with rage. "After this storm passes, I will definitely take down Lin Huan when I return." In contrast, his identical double frowned as well, but a sinister smile crept across his face. Three farmers holding hoes and puffing cigars heard a voice and asked, "Hello, are you farmers from Ningqing?" The three farmers replied in unison, "It's you." Kang Xian, the son of City Lord Kang Hui, smiled brightly and said, "It seems that the farmers are not ignorant at all. I am Kang Xian, the son of City Lord Kang Hui, and this is my father, the City Lord himself. Today, thieves cause chaos in the inner city, and The two farmers were surprised, their eyes wide with astonishment. One held a wanted poster while the other pointed at the two, shouting in unison, Look, it's them! That's right, delicious! We're rich!" Kang Xian snatched the paper from the hands of the two farmers, stomped his foot and yelled, "What is this?" Kang Xian's hands trembled as he held the wanted poster, his eyes fixed on the bold letters declaring it a national wanted order. It instructed anyone who spotted the two men to report and arrest them immediately, offering a reward of 6,000 taels of late-stage Wenlu. The father and son's faces darkened, their hands trembling as they clutched the wanted poster. They struggled to contain their anger as they exclaimed, "Lin Huan, you've insulted us far too much." Suddenly, a hoe appeared. A blow struck City Lord Kong Hui on the head, causing him to spit blood. His son Kong Xian watched in silence, his expression darkening as he witnessed his father's distress. Kang Shen quickly turned and ran, leaving his father, City Lord Kong Hui, lying unconscious on the ground. The earth spun beneath him as he whispered, "I can't stay here long." The farmers stood firm against Kang Xian, brandishing their hoes and shovels to prevent his escape. A look of worry darkened Kang Xian's face as he grappled with uncertainty about his next move. The three farmers lunged at Kang Xian simultaneously, pinning him to the ground. He could only raise his hands and cry out for help, repeating, "Help! Help! I'm the City Lord's son! The City Lord's son!" The farmer with the cigar stroked his chin, pondered for a moment, and concluded that this man must be seriously mentally ill. Grand houses with tiled roofs surround us as laughter echoes in the air. Ha ha ha! Inside, at that moment, Lord Ning placed his hand on Lin Huan's shoulder and cheerfully said, "These days, the city is only on edge because of the wanted order, so let's see who comes out on top." Hearing this, Lin Huan smiled and replied, "Good, good, Lord Ning speaks wisely." Immediately after, Lord Ning turned around and said, "I can teach you some effective strategies. Your personality can be utilized perfectly." Lin Huan replied from behind, "All right." Lord Ning stood at the door, deep in thought. He then handed Lin Huan a scroll and said, "You have a pretty good imagination, and there's no turning back once the bow is drawn. This intelligence has been gathered by my informants over the past 2 years. Take a look." Then Huan opened the scroll, his eyes widening in surprise. He realized that this was such an important matter that it likely wouldn't change fate. Lord Ning closed his eyes and calmly stated that it wasn't necessarily so. A man's will can conquer heaven's decree. Furthermore, this matter is simple to discuss. Travel to the capital to take the imperial examination. The Ning family ancestor Ning Jid was both brave and skilled in war, leading a 1,000,000-strong army to guard the border. Lord Ning is a descendant of the Northwest King's lineage, stationed in Ningqing to guard against foreign enemies, but he does not possess a fiefdom. The Northwest King, clad in a crimson cloak with long black hair tied back, stood alongside Emperor Ning, who wore a crown and a majestic dragon robe. Lin Huan said seriously, "Betrayal?" Lord Ning sighed helplessly. By stripping away the fiefdom, the emperor certainly wouldn't move against the Northwest King immediately, as he wanted to avoid retaliation. Instead, he chose to sow discord. Hearing this, Lin Huan gripped the scroll that Lord Ning had given him, remaining silent as he listened to Lord Ning continue. "As descendants of the Northwest King, those outside the Northwest Army will be the first to be targeted." Ning Zilan paced anxiously and inquired whether their relatives would offer assistance. Lin Huan clarified that in this era, everything revolves around rationality and rules. Many emperors have crafted excuses to systematically undermine the Northwest King's power, leaving him with the ability to seethe in anger, but unable to voice his frustrations. Hearing this, Ning Zilan frowned and said, "No way. We must find a way to preserve our military strength. If we lose our military power, they will falsely accuse the Ning family and eliminate us." Lin Huan emphasized the importance of concealing their identities, traveling to the capital, taking the imperial examination, and gaining a voice in the court. He believed that only by doing so would they secure the support they needed. Huan cried as he held the book, thinking to himself, "I can't believe it. I, a transmigrator, have to read classical literature." Lord Ning held a cup of water, glanced across the room and said, "We need to implement a two-pronged plan. Xilan, you must reach out to the other minor clans with military power and form alliances. You two are newlyweds, and I worry about the risk of being separated." After speaking, Lord Ning pointed to the door and urged Lin Huan and Ning Zilan not to delay. He instructed them to say their goodbyes quickly and depart. Lin Huan's eyes sparkled as she pretended to be weak. Lin Huan opened his arms toward Ning Zilan, puckered his lips, and said in a sugary voice, "Wife, cuddle time." Hearing this cheesy line, Ning Zilan's expression darkened. Her eyes filled with contempt as she looked at Lin Huan and replied coldly, "I'm disgusted." Lin Huan and Ning Zilan embraced affectionately. However, once he turned away, she frowned, her expression revealing discomfort. She thought to herself, "Since my father is here, I'll reluctantly indulge you a little." Lin Huan tightened his embrace, pulling Ning Zion closer, making her cheeks flush as he whispered, "If heaven had feelings, even heaven would grow old." Ning Zilan's eyes widened in surprise. Unconsciously, she responded, "The moon, as if without resentment, is perfectly round." After Ning Zilan finished speaking, Lin Huan turned and walked away, glancing back at her with a flirtatious gesture, trying to appear charming. Ning Zilan blushed and shyly placed her hand over her lips, thinking to herself, "I'm not a little girl. They think they can sway me with poetry. If heaven had feelings, it would grow old alongside me. I hate this." Footsteps echoed as someone exited the residence. Lin Huan looked up at the virtual screen in front of him, placing his hand behind his head with a smug smile. It seemed that overthrowing the city lord had significantly increased his influence this time. Lin Huan stood before the virtual screen, resting his hand on his chin as he pondered the shift from business development to the imperial examination. It seemed he needed to study some resources. Lin Huan stared at the virtual screen, pointed at it, and said blankly, "There, try it." Before long, a line of carriages rattled along the road. Lin Huan leaned against the window frame, gazing out at the scenery below with a sigh. The blue water and green mountains were truly pleasing to the eye, completely free of pollution. A figure appeared behind Lin Huan, resting a hand on his thigh and frowning. "Is it really all right not to bring any troops? It's not safe out here." Lin Huan simply sat there, resting his chin on his hand. He replied casually, "Isn't the point to travel in disguise? Just bringing you is enough." Lin Huan chuckled heartily while holding onto the window frame, prompting a sigh of exasperation from Qi. "Just keep up your disguise," Qi continued, "and when we actually get robbed." Suddenly, Lin Huan fell backward from his seat onto the floor, startling a nearby Qi, who stepped back while clutching the seat. A loud thud echoed through the room. Lin Huan, clutching his head with one hand, pulled back the curtain with the other and irritably asked, "What is it?" A Qi poked his head out from behind, staring blankly outside. Suddenly, two swords appeared, pointed at Lin Huan and a Qi, causing Lin Huan to freeze in fear, unable to speak. In contrast, a Qi simply stared at the swords, bewildered and speechless. Outside, 3 bandits appeared, brandishing swords and shouting fiercely, "Get down now!" The woman behind him clutched her head and screamed in fear. Lin Huan, visibly annoyed, turned to A Qi, unsure of how to respond, and simply said, "Shut your damn mouth." In response, A Qi raised his hands, sweating nervously, and whispered, "I'm sorry." Suddenly, one of the 3 bandits, the one with a shaved head and a large scar on his face, looked surprised, as if he had just made a realization. The fierce bandit's eyes lit up as he pointed his sword at Lin Huan and exclaimed, "Oh, Smooth Skin, not bad. Bring him back as an offering to you, Zhaizhu camp leader." His words left the bandit behind him gaping in surprise. Upon hearing the collapse, he could only helplessly utter, "Seriously?" As soon as he finished speaking, the 2 bandits rushed forward with playful expressions, each grabbing one of Lin Huan's arms and leaving him helpless as he pleaded, "Big brother, let's talk this over." The 2 bandits, disregarding Lin Huan's pleas, turned and walked away, swinging their swords cheerfully. Lin Huan followed behind, crying inwardly, "It's over, my precious body." The 2 bandits tied Lin Huan's hands and tossed him onto the back of a horse. He shouted, "Brothers, let's talk this over. I'm not a pervert." In his mind, he wondered, "Where's he? Are you just going to stand there and watch?" The bandit with the fierce scar glanced blankly at his companion and asked, "Pervert?" After hearing the question, the 2 bandits breathed a sigh of relief. One bandit shook his head and laughed. "Little brother, don't worry. The Law Family S is actually a beauty." The other bandit chimed in, "That's right, she looks just like her father. You lucky bastard." After they finished speaking, Lin Huan envisioned the Law Family S as a muscular figure, resembling 2 giant rats that could easily overpower him, yet dressed in a delicate pink dress with pigtails. With an affectionate tone, it said, "Come on, husband, let's wrestle." This image made Lin Huan's face turn pale, sweat dripping down his forehead, and his mouth agape as he thought, "It looks just like my father." A wrestler? After hearing Lin Huan's words, the 2 bandits were bewildered, their expressions darkening with disdain. They took turns addressing Lin Huan, saying that if the boss hadn't deemed him a scholar, he would be nothing. One of them, with a slightly pale complexion, scoffed, questioning what age he thought he was comparing himself to. The other added menacingly, if he dared to betray his feelings, he would kill him. Hearing this, Lin Huan cried out in fear, yelling for help. "Achie, I don't want to become." But before she could finish, the bandits left her behind in a cloud of dust. A Chi stood behind, envisioning the scene of Lin Huan in a pink dress with pigtails, playfully saying, "Be good, let me give you a kiss," while being embraced by the muscular figure of the Law family S. The thought sent goosebumps rising on his skin. Instinctively, Akai tightened his clothes, sweating profusely, and called out to the departing Lin Huan, "Brother Lin, a true man must endure. Don't worry, I'll find a way to rescue you." Dawn gradually broke over the mountain stronghold, adorned with long red silk banners, as if it were preparing for a grand wedding ceremony. A wooden signboard hung at the entrance, draped in red silk, as if inviting something beautiful to arrive. The steward of the Su mansion stood anxiously with two children, a boy and a girl, as they looked around. The bald bandit excitedly threw his arm around someone and announced loudly, "Our village has never had a scholar before. I caught one and brought him back." Lin Huan, bound and hoisted on the shoulders of two bandits, glanced around anxiously, wondering to himself, "Isn't this place too impoverished?" The bald bandit and his accomplice used red silk to blindfold Lin Huan, shouting with enthusiasm, "We've brought him!" In that terrifying moment of waiting, Lin Huan trembled with fear, sweat dripping down his face. He bit his white robe, wondering why she wore a blindfold. She must be too ugly, he thought, afraid that he might die from the sight. Suddenly, a hand grabbed Lin Huan's collar and yanked him forward, sending him into a panic as he thought, "This strength is truly powerful." The owner of the hand swiftly removed Lin Huan's blindfold and muttered, "Really, these brutes, doing unnecessary things. When did I say I wanted to get married?" Lin Huan's heart leaped with joy as he seized the opportunity to reply, "Ah, if he doesn't intend to marry, then let me." Lin Huan's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized the owner of the hand. A small girl with green hair sat on a stool, holding his blindfold, and exclaimed, "Then I'll lose face." Lin Huan blushed at the sight of the little girl. Placing a hand on his chest, he looked at her with shy eyes and said, "Don't worry, I've decided to stay as your son-in-law." Ngok Ula sat casually on the stool, turning her face away from the bound Lin Huan. She replied indifferently, "I don't want a scholar. I just want to discuss poetry, philosophy, and ideals of life with him every day. Unfortunately, my father says those things can't be eaten, so he won't let me touch them." Ngok Ula appeared to recall something, looked inside her shirt, and said to Lin Huan, "Oh, right." Lin Huan blushed and covered his eyes with his hands, leaving a small gap. He reached out to stop her, saying, "Taking off clothes? No way, I'm not a pervert." Unexpectedly, Ngokula pulled a red-covered book from her shirt, showed it to Lin Huan, and said excitedly, "You're from the inner city. Quickly tell me, who is the author of this? Can I meet them?" Lin Huan stood in shock, his hands clasped together, rendered speechless. Lin Huan blushed, resting his hand on his chin as if deep in thought. Then he laughed and said, "Ha ha, I forgot to mention that I'm a man of both talent and looks, admired by thousands of women." With a confident smirk, Lin Huan declared, "Lin Huan, that's me." Buokei Yu Ye stared blankly at the confident Lin Huan, seemingly unable to comprehend what was happening, rendered speechless. "Oh, Yula extended her hand and shouted angrily, "Someone execute this imposter." Lin Huan panicked, flinching as he humbly insisted, No, I really am Lin Huan. I'm not an imposter." Yu Go Li breathed a sigh of relief and smiled at Lin Huan, making him feel both embarrassed and scared. She said, "Haha, if you want to impersonate my idol, I want to see if you have the same abilities as Lin Huan." Lin Huan breathed a sigh of relief, filled with confidence. He patted his chest and declared, "Test me all you want. If I can't answer, you can do whatever you want with me. I've been studying a lot lately, so what could possibly stump me?" Gakula crossed her legs and began to interrogate the kneeling Lin Huan. Her first question was, "Why are we so poor? If you can't answer, you'll be executed." Lin Huan appeared enthusiastic and excited on the surface, as if he were confident in his knowledge of the answer. Inside, Lin Huan was in turmoil, his mind racing with questions as he thought blankly, "I'm stumped." Lin Huan cowered in fear, scratching his head. "I know astronomy and geography," he thought, "but this girl is testing me on economics." Lin Huan's face paled as he pretended to ask the little girl how he should be addressed. Nok Yu La slammed the water cup on the table, splashing water everywhere, and replied casually, "Nok Yu La." Lin Huan responded, "Huh, fitting name." Gaku La squeezed the cup of water tightly, shattering it into pieces with a sharp crack. She smiled calmly and said, "Hurry up, don't make me impatient. I'm a bit tired." Seeing this, Lin Huan was so frightened that he cowered, thinking, damn, she's so strong. No, Ula sat in the chair, pointed at the kneeling Lin Huan, and warned him, answer, or I'll execute you. Lin Huan calmly reassured her, just stay calm. The scene of the desolate and dilapidated village unfolded as Lin Huan replied softly, explaining that the area is too humid and the soil is not fertile, making it difficult to achieve high yields. Secondly, the La family stronghold is situated between two mountains, meaning that anyone wishing to traverse this area must go through you. However, for the most part, it's just reinforcements making their way through. Thirdly, while there are many strong men in the La family stronghold, none of them truly understand animal husbandry. As a result, there are no chickens, ducks, or pigs in the village. Naturally, survival can only be achieved through banditry. Gok. Yula's eyes brightened as she looked at Lin Huan with a smile. Ah, amazing! It seems you're well versed in books. Oh, Zhu La stood close to Lin Huan, her eyes shining as she gazed directly at him, making him blush. She asked softly, can we solve it? Lin Huan replied shyly, yes, there are 3 ways. Lin Huan explained that the method of time involves improving the soil and planting suitable crops. The law of geography involves opening roads and enhancing economic exchange. People in law aim to establish programs for acquiring agricultural knowledge. Nokula's face flushed and her eyes sparkled. Nokula laughed heartily, grabbed Lin Huan's tied hands, and said excitedly, quick, let's get started right away. I'll execute you if you don't do it. Lin Huan sighed helplessly and replied, untie me first. Ula and Lin Huan stood proudly before a crowd of bandits. The bald bandit, his face flushed from drinking, playfully asked, what's the deal with this pale-faced guy? Is it okay for him to come out so quickly? After hearing the question, Yu Alu looked at him with a helpless and darkened expression. A sharp slap echoed through the air. Nakula stepped forward, seized the bandit's ears, and wrapped her legs around his neck, threatening, I'll execute you right now. This caused him to cry out and beg, I'm wrong, I'll never do it again. Ngo Hui La slapped Lin Huan on the back with such force that it nearly made him cough up blood. He thought to himself, she's too strong. With excitement, Ngok Ula urged, quick, imposter, demonstrate your soil improvement method. If you can't do it, I'll execute you. The bandits standing there expressed their doubts one after another. We haven't been able to accomplish anything for decades. How can he do it? He must be just like that guy, one of them said. I'll talk. Lin Huan stepped forward enthusiastically, declaring, all right, I'll get started right away. Let's build the road first. Lin Huan excitedly revealed his secret formula, declaring, this is my secret formula cement. However, inside, he was lamenting the loss of his points, biting his robe and crying, damn it, I had to spend a lot of prestige points to exchange for this. The bald bandit picked his nose and said disdainfully, here, no way. This stuff that turns to mud with water can make a road. I could smash it with one kick. The other bandit chimed in scornfully, ha ha ha. He must be good at bluffing. Lin Huan held the tools and smiled confidently, saying, watch this. Lin Huan laughed heartily as he marveled at modern technology. The 2 remaining bandits watched in confusion, murmuring, isn't that just mud? Is he crazy? So handsome, yet so insane. How can he be worthy of our attention? Hearing this, Gokula became furious and shouted, shut up, watch quietly, or I'll execute you. At that moment, Lin Huan had completed a section of the cement wall, proudly showcasing his work and declaring that cement is strong and durable, truly the strongest and most practical material of this era. After saying that, Lin Huan tossed aside the cement trowel. He continued confidently, who just said cement was soft and mushy? Come out and try it. Hearing Lin Huan's words, the bald bandit rolled up his sleeves and strode forward, laughing loudly. Ha! Don't try to scare me. Do you really think I believe you're bragging? The bandit gathered all his strength, charged forward with his elbow, and struck the cement wall, yelling, take this. I'll break it. As soon as he finished, the bald bandit collapsed onto the ground, unconscious and groaning. Lin Huan looked down at the fallen bandit with disdain, poking him with a twig and saying, is that all you've got? Yugo Ula, carrying a giant broadsword on her back, looked at the cement wall with excitement, as if it were an opponent. Here I come, cement, she shouted, surprising Lin Huan. With one swing of the sword, she slashed directly at the solid cement wall. With a loud crack, the cement wall shattered into pieces. Lin Huan's face darkened with fear as he turned to look at the shattered cement wall. He could only exclaim in astonishment, what kind of power is this? The crowd cheered, amazed by the display of strength. Nokula waved her hand dismissively, calling it trivial, just scratching an itch. Meanwhile, Lin Huan's face was pale, his hands trembling as he clutched a brick. Lin Huan pursed his lips, contemplating how she could actually break cement. It seemed there was something mysterious about this era, something akin to internal strength. Yok U-la lifted her broadsword, and Lin Huan, feeling the sweat on his brow, glanced back. Gak-U-la touched the blade and realized it required 8/10 of his strength to wield. This cement is truly impressive. She pointed at Lin Huan and turned to the others, declaring that the entire village would follow her orders and, from now on, adhere to this imposter's instructions. Make cement, improve the farmland, and open a school. Lin Huan, holding a brick, looked up in surprise. Huh? That fast? Suddenly, Nuka-Yula touched the surface of the broadsword with her finger. A hole appeared in the blade, and her eyes narrowed. Did he dare not work quickly? Seeing this, Lin Huan quickly nodded and said, "Yes, yes, yes, I'll do it right away." As work began, Ingok-Ula held the hoe, her face marked with a few smudges of dirt. A hand reached out and gently wiped them away. The next scene depicted Ingok-Ula swinging the hoe with great force as the bald man cheered, while Lin Huan watched in fear. When it was time for teaching, Gak-Ula dozed off, much to Lin Huan's annoyance. Lin Huan sat down wearily, his face pale and gaunt. He thought to himself that while it was acceptable to become a contributing member of society before escaping, this was not how he envisioned it. During a period of reformation, the place had adopted a new appearance. Gak-Ula crossed her arms and looked at Lin Huan. After several weeks of testing, I've decided to go through with a fake marriage. Lin Huan twitched in surprise. Huh, I thought you didn't like me and said I was a fake. Gak-Ula replied, you still have some value. If I keep you, our village can rule the mountains and forests in the future. The real Lin Huan, I'll deal with later. Gak-Ula took Lin Huan's hand, looked him in the eye, and said, I'm serious. Now we'll consummate the marriage. Gak-Ula glanced at Lin Huan, who stood there in silence. Suddenly, Gak-Ula felt a rush of warmth to her cheeks. Someone rushed out, causing Gak-Ula to release Lin Huan's hand. He exclaimed, Brother Lin, we're here! Aki stood in front of Lin Huan, having endured countless hardships to reach this place. Lin Huan covered his mouth with his hand. Lin Huan glared at Achi and said, couldn't you have come a little later? You did that on purpose, didn't you? Achi gave a thumbs up, and I brought the Lin family army, which means we can capture the Lao family stronghold. Soldiers from both sides faced off, weapons drawn. Achi raised a token high. Achi stood in front of Lin Huan and addressed Ingok-Ula, saying, this is Lin Huan, the son-in-law of the Ning Mansion in Ningzhou City. Audacious bandits, surrender now. Ingok-Ula pointed at him. In confusion, she asked, you really are Lin Huan? You didn't lie to me before? Ingok-Ula covered her blushing face and ran away, leaving the two behind in confusion. Adat put away the command token and asked what had happened. Did you tease someone's daughter again? Lin Huan rubbed his head and, feeling dejected, explained, I've been wronged. This place is exploiting my labor. Lin Huan turned and walked away, asking, why are you so late? You didn't need to bring the Lin family army, did you? He had followed earlier while searching for you and discovered that the mountain villages were planning something mysterious. So, he returned to Ningxing to seek instructions and gather the Lin family army. Lin Huan walked between the bald man and a soldier, smiling as he extended his hand in a conciliatory gesture. Gentlemen, we're all on the same side. The fake general is about to arrive, so remember to cooperate. A horse came to a stop. A rider sat atop the stronghold. The chief of the Black Bear stronghold, the leader of the Luo clan, commanded someone to come out and receive the order. Gak-Ula and Lin Huan stepped outside. Lin Huan spoke, saying that the clan leader's health was not good. As husband and wife, they would hear the order in his stead. Lin Huan looked up and asked, may I know what orders the stronghold chief has given? Behind him, Ingok-Ula stood timidly. The rider on the horse sneered as he tossed a wad of paper to the ground. See for yourself, he declared. In 1 week, gather at Black Bear Mountain to discuss important matters. Failure to appear will result in immediate execution. He then turned his horse and rode away, while Lin Huan picked up the scattered papers. Lin Huan unfolded the paper, curious about the important matters it contained. Gak-Ula leaned in to take a look, but she didn't actually glance at it. Instead, she covered her face with her hands from behind. A map appeared displaying a designated route. Lin Huan looked at it and said with understanding, I see. Lin Huan turned to Gak-Ula, and the other clan leaders gathered around them. An old man leaning on a cane hurriedly exclaimed, Singri gang, he must be planning to take our lives. One man said to the clan leader, we shouldn't go. If the Empress Dowager is angered, none of our 9 clans will be able to withstand her wrath. Another man beside him added, the Black Bear stronghold chief is causing trouble. Messing with him is certain death. The bald man stated that the clan leader would decide whether to go. The other man continued, right, we will all follow the clan leader's orders. Gaku-la pretended to rest her hand on her chin, suggesting that she found the situation simple. She covered her face and smiled, deciding to listen to her husband. Lin Huan looked down. The men who had been speaking suddenly fell silent. Gok-Lao paused, looking at them in confusion. Why aren't you talking anymore? Did I say something wrong? A hand rested gently on Ngok-Ula's head. Lin Huan patted her head and explained that the clan leader means if playing defensively doesn't succeed, then we'll switch to an offensive strategy. Lin Huan unsheathed his sword. He raised it high, standing beside Ngokulaso. So what if its song resonated powerfully? I'll defeat them all. Later, at Black Bear Mountain, the bright sun shone down. A fire blazed brightly in the darkness. 3 men sat near the fire, enjoying their meal of meat. The man in green, while gnawing on his portion, remarked, "Lately, it's been getting harder and harder to find anything. Even Miss Guanjia doesn't dare to pass through. I can't even reach the stronghold mistress." The man in purple pointed out, "I think the woman at the Luo clan stronghold is truly beautiful." The man in yellow chimed in, "Come on, who doesn't know how powerful her swordsmanship is? I'm afraid that after marrying her, I'd end up chopped to pieces." The man in purple replied, "Even so, I'd be willing to become a ghost and follow her." Ha ha! Outside the gate, someone was beating a gong and announcing that the Luo clan stronghold had arrived. A large carriage arrived, flanked by escorting guards. Clan leader Ingok Ula has arrived. A hand pulled back the curtain, revealing a girl in red shoes as she stepped down. Gok Ula wore a stunning red outfit. The men stared, both dumbfounded and mesmerized. Ngakula placed her hands on her hips and, raising her voice, exclaimed, "What are you looking at? I'll chop you all to death." The men chuckled as they considered her words. The man with tied-up hair rubbed his hands and said, "Lady Luo, don't you think you should accept my proposal this time?" Gaku Yale turned to Lin Huan and took his arm. "Husband, be careful. This place is simple. Don't hurt your feet." They held hands, gazing at each other with knowing smiles. Suddenly, Lin Huan covered his face with a fan, his complexion shifting to an unhealthy shade of purple. Lin Huan vomited while Ngokula watched with concern. Lin Huan thought to himself, feeling unwell. I never expected that the majestic Lin Huan would get carsick. Ugh. Man with the eye patch chuckled again. "Ha! Who is this dog-headed strategist? He gets carsick from riding in a carriage. He'd probably faint if he had to ride a horse." The man next to him added, "Maybe he's just overwhelmed by our handsomeness." The man in green narrowed his eyes at Lin Huan and Gok Ula. "Huh, what's your relationship? Why does she call you husband?" Gok Wula glared at the man with a piercing gaze. "How dare you make a move on my husband?" They surrounded the two, daring to challenge the stronghold chief's authority. Lin Huan gently patted Ngok Ula's head and said, "Wife, it's all right." The man in green shouldered his staff and spoke in a raised voice. "I advise you to leave and let me be Lady Luo's husband." Ha! Lin Huan brought a hand to his mouth. Ahem! What if I don't agree? The man in green charged forward, throwing a punch as he declared, "Now I'll teach you a lesson." He hurried toward Lin Huan. Lin Huan stood there calmly, fan in hand, smiling at the man in green. "All right, don't cry for your mother if you lose," he said. The man in green charged forward in anger. The men outside watched the scene unfold and laughed heartily. "Damn, he thinks he's so tough. Ha! Just fight already, or are you too scared to move?" Hearing this, the man in green's expression darkened. Cracking his knuckles, he said, "Don't worry. I'll give you a quick and painless death." Lin Huan remained calm, his hands clasped together. "Thank you very much," he said. Seeing him like this, the man in green paused, feeling a wave of confusion wash over him. Ha! Lin Huan seized the opportunity and kicked him in the groin. With a disgusted expression, he urged, "Just fight already. You're taking too long." The man in green felt as though his testicles had exploded. The crowd outside, witnessing this, turned pale and instinctively covered their groins. Lin Huan waved his fan and chuckled, realizing that fighting isn't as difficult as he once thought. Meanwhile, the man in green could only clutch his groin, his face turning pale. Nakula, standing outside, exclaimed with delight, "Ah, what a domineering man! I love it! I love it!" The gangsters outside, witnessing this, cursed angrily. "Damn it, what a dirty trick. This guy knows nothing about martial arts. Who fights like that? He's trash. Get him." Suddenly, another gangster charged forward with aggression. "Let me take him on." Lin Huan remained calm and simply shook his head. The man, witnessing this, charged forward in anger and launched an attack. "Let me heal your body," he said. Lin Huan's expression darkened as he smirked and said, "Oh, really? I don't believe you." With that, he seized the man's leg. He then offered his opponent a charming smile. Another pair of fried eggs was served. In an instant, the man's legs spread wide and his face turned pale. The gangsters outside, witnessing this, turned pale once more. With that move, they knew they were finished. Those two had lost their manhood. Does the imperial court still accept eunuchs? This is urgent. Once again, Lin Huan aimed directly for the groin. They then went on to crush it. The testicles were completely crushed. It turned out that the testicles all belonged to the gangsters, who lay scattered on the ground, clutching their groins. Lin Huan said triumphantly, "Anyone else? I'm feeling lucky today. I want to play a little more." The onlookers, upon hearing this, immediately raised their hands in surrender. Suddenly, applause erupted, accompanied by a voice that said, "Excellent. I've been practicing martial arts for 30 years, and I've never seen anyone like you." A man with a scar on his face introduced himself, saying, "You can tell who I am at a glance. I am Scarface Lao Wu, the 5th seat of Black Bear Stronghold." Seeing this, Lin Huan smiled and introduced himself. "I am the leader of the Luo clan stronghold, Mue Fei Sha." "Oh no, I meant Lin Huan, and this is Nakula beside me." After hearing this, Scarface Lao Wu declared, "No matter how cunning you are, Lin Huan, you are still alone. If you don't want to face me one-on-one, then gather a team. Let's take this on together. For your efforts, everyone will be rewarded with 12 taels of silver." The gangsters, upon hearing this, exclaimed excitedly, "Ha ha, team battles. I'm good at this. All right, I'll give it a try for the money." Lin Huan excitedly raised his hand. "All right, Luo clan stronghold, assemble." His men behind him, sensing his enthusiasm, trembled with worry. Lin Huan and Scarface Lao Wu were both filled with fighting spirit. Lin Huan raised his fan high and shouted, "Lu Clan Stronghold, assemble! Let's play!" The excitement in the air was palpable as the members gathered around, ready for the challenge ahead. The gangsters crossed their arms and scoffed at Lin Huan, dismissing the idea of winning with this group of circus performers. Lin Huan frowned and sighed upon hearing their disdain. He reminded himself not to judge a book by its cover. Lin Huan pointed at them and shouted, "What did I teach you? Stand straight!" Everyone stood up straight at Lin Huan's command. He instructed them, one by one, from left to right, to report their numbers. The man in dark green raised his hand to his head and saluted Lin Huan, reporting, "Leader, the Lu Clan Stronghold security team is at full strength with 21 personnel. All members are present. Please give your orders." The three men erupted in disdainful laughter. "What are they doing? Such a strange way to count people." The man with purple hair scoffed and pointed, observing each one standing tall with tidy bookshelves. "They've truly been trained like soldiers. Ha ha ha." Suddenly, Nakula drove her saber into the ground. She pointed and shouted, "You dare make noise, I'll chop you to death." Scarface Lao Wu spoke up, saying, "If it weren't for your father holding power and protecting the Luo clan stronghold from enemy attacks, you would have been torn apart long ago." Lin Huan put his arm around Nakula and said, "Very well, show me how you plan to defeat the Luo clan stronghold army." The gangsters brandished their swords, exuding arrogant confidence. "It won't be long before we send you all on your way, one by one." Lin Huan waved his fan toward the back and commanded, "Squad, attack!" Lin Huan's men were fully prepared for battle. The man in brown among them shouted, "Activate the defensive formation and prepare for engagement." Scarface Lao Wu raised his sword to the sky and leaped into the air, declaring with determination, "No matter what, I can cut you all in half." Scarface Lao Wu's sword came crashing down, striking a shield with a loud clang. In that moment, the air was filled with tension as the clash echoed through the battlefield. In the next moment, the sword shattered into two pieces. Scarface Lao Wu stared at his broken sword in disbelief. This was impossible. How could there be such a shield in this world? The man in brown, holding the shield, explained, "We improved it with cement. Even the clan leader needs to use her internal energy to break through it." Nakula recalled a moment when she used her sword to shatter Lin Huan's shield, which had frightened him. She turned to Lin Huan and asked, "Right, I forgot to ask. Last time I shattered it with one blow. Has it been reinforced now?" Lin Huan replied, "I noticed an issue with the cement. It was hard enough, but it lacked some toughness." So, Lin Huan licked his lips and gave a thumbs up as he explained to Nakula, "I intentionally employed a method of layering cement and cotton cloth multiple times to improve the toughness of the cement shield while maintaining its hardness. This approach also reduces the amount of cement required, resulting in a lighter, more stable, and fire-resistant material." Three gangsters remained resolute in their determination to fight, refusing to back down. They believed that no matter how strong it was, if they all attacked together, it would eventually break. The man in brown shouted orders to his men, instructing them to work together. He organized them into teams of 2, forming 10 teams that would utilize a 4-4-2 formation for a solid all-around defense. The gangsters, before they could raise their swords to attack, stared in astonishment at their opponents, who were already protected behind their shields. One of them angrily cursed, "Damn it, if you have the guts, fight head on. What's the point of hiding behind shields?" Nakula's eyes sparkled with admiration. "Wow, that's so effective. I've never seen such a strong formation," he exclaimed. Lin Huan, observing the scene before him, felt the sense of smug satisfaction. Although he didn't fully grasp military tactics, he understood football well. He realized that borrowing a few formations from football could still be quite useful. Suddenly, a man burst in, carrying a brown bag, and shouted, "Perfect opportunity! Right now! Everyone, get out of the way!" The man hurled the brown bag straight ahead. In a panic, the people behind the shields raised them to protect themselves. The brown bag flew straight toward the three gangsters, sending them into a panic. "Damn it! Put away your weapons, quick!" Just as they finished speaking, the bag struck one of their swords. Then it tore open, spilling a foul green liquid. The foul-smelling green liquid splattered across all three gangsters. They turned pale and covered their noses as the liquid emitted a revolting stench, with flies buzzing around them. They cursed angrily, wondering who was responsible for this. The atmosphere grew suddenly silent and gloomy as everyone around the three gangsters turned pale and stared. Everyone who caught a whiff of it couldn't bear the stench and collapsed, vomiting. Lin Huan, witnessing the scene before him, turned his face away, his own complexion turning purple as he broke out in a sweat. He muttered to himself, "This has nothing to do with me." The lethality was undeniable. It was truly a powerful weapon. At the Black Bear stronghold, a group of people gathered, listening intently to Lin Huan's instructions. At the right moment, everyone will create an opening. You will shoot the arrow directly. This tactic is a defensive counterattack, understood? The only archer present raised his hand to ask a question. "Understood," he said, "but I have another question." He then remarked that it's too easy to wear out and that the arrowheads can't be recycled, calling it a waste. Hearing this, Lin Huan suggested using poison. The archer immediately retorted that it would be too expensive. Finding it too troublesome, Lin Huan rubbed his chin and thought, indeed, someone had used a bow and arrow to strike the stronghold. This time, he knew he had to explore other options as well. Seeing this, the archer approached him with a suggestion. "Why don't we use vegetable fertilizer?" Lin Huan's face darkened at the idea, and he asked, "Isn't that?" Then, as if coming to a realization, his expression gradually turned sinister. Upon reflection, that's not a bad thing. On the day of the competition, a group of people gagged at the overwhelming stench. "Is that your stronghold?" one asked. "No, I have something to take care of. I'll go ahead," came the reply. Nak Yulai's face darkened in disgust. "That's so disgusting. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? It's ruining my image." Hearing this, Lin Huan tried to comfort her while covering his nose with his fan. "Just bear with it a little longer." "Ugh, it's so nauseating." Suddenly a shout rang out. "Enough! Be quiet! I've had enough of this defensive nonsense. Let's have a one-on-one duel. The winner takes all." It was his opponent in the arena below. "Lin Huan, be a man and stop hiding behind your defenses." He continued boastfully, stating that the rules are very simple. They are. Before he could finish, Lin Huan interrupted him, saying, "I'm not." Hearing this, he asked in surprise, "Huh? What did you say?" Enjoying his reaction, Lin Huan sneered, "I said I'm not a man, so I don't need to duel." He flicked his fan, thinking to himself, "I'm still an innocent boy. I haven't truly become a man yet." Hearing his words, the opponent's face flushed with anger. "You have no dignity, no honor." Lin Huan feigned surprise in response. "I even married into my wife's family. What dignity do I have left?" Exasperated by this, the opponent could only stammer, "But." Seeing his attitude, Lin Huan raised his voice and declared, "Enough talk. I won't fight, and that's final. Are you not tired of always thinking about dignity? Can it feed you? Can it earn you money? Can it get you a wife?" His words struck a chord with his opponent. He gestured with his hand to leave, expressing his boredom with the little clan stronghold, a mere retreat. As they prepared to leave, the opponent panicked and rushed over. "You cannot leave. The stronghold chief has ordered that everyone must be present." Hearing this, Lin Huan turned to his men and said, "I've been here for a long time, and I haven't seen him anywhere. On the contrary, he should be the one closing the doors and seeing us off. Does that make sense to you?" The crowd echoed his words. "That's right. We've been here a long time and haven't even seen him. And now, before the village chief has even been elected, he wants to lump us all together? Is that correct?" Unconvinced, the man from before pointed at Lin Huan's face and said, "Lin Huan, don't spout nonsense here. If you want to leave, you'll have to step over my dead body." Hearing this, Lin Huan smiled and raised his hand as he approached him. Really? In a remarkably elegant manner, he hurled a brick directly at his face. The brick shattered upon impact, and a stream of hot blood flowed from the man's nose. He collapsed. Satisfied that the matter was settled, Lin Huan dusted off his hands. This back and forth is giving me a headache. He stepped calmly over the fallen man. Observing his actions, the underlings began to discuss their alarm. He actually attacked Scarface directly. What a ruthless individual. He didn't hold back. He just struck him outright. Nakula rushed over and hugged his arm with admiration. Master Lin Huan, you're so handsome. Suddenly, Lin Huan recalled something important. Oh, right. I almost forgot my purpose. He pulled out a brick that was identical to the one he had just used. He then turned to the crowd and announced, "This is a new type of brick, developed exclusively by the Luo clan stronghold. It's an essential formula for eliminating enemies and seizing their goods. Bricks and cement are currently on sale at the Luo clan stronghold, where they can be used to build houses, stoves, and other structures. Everyone is encouraged to reach out quickly to make a purchase before supplies run out." Lin Huan urged everyone to move quickly. Hurry up, we want to witness the stronghold's collapse. Start in a day, we're stepping away from the competition and living independently. By the time everyone returned, it was nearly noon. Inside the stronghold, the crowd cheered for Lin Huan, filled with pride. They finally vented their anger at Song's stronghold. Haha, fortunately they had caught that guy back then. Finally escaping the noisy crowd, Lin Huan groaned in frustration. Those guys were incredibly annoying. Seeing him attempt to slip away, Nakula swiftly blocked his path. "Where do you think you're going?" She placed a foot on his head, her voice slurred. "Tonight, you will serve me." Noticing that she wasn't sober, Lin Huan lifted her and carried her to her room. "You've had too much to drink. Get some rest," she said. Under the influence of alcohol, the woman continued to struggle, shouting, "Let me go! Let me go!" She added defiantly, "Normally, no one dares to touch me. Why are you so brave today?" As if they had caught wind of some intriguing gossip, the underlings perked up their ears and began eavesdropping. They huddled together, whispering among themselves, he doesn't dare touch me. Doesn't that imply something's broken down there? Just look at how clever Lin Huan is. His body must be weak. We're all making profits, while the clan leader is the only one losing out. How wonderful." Upon hearing this, Lin Huan approached and gave them a beating before dragging them away. "How dare you talk about your teacher like that? Have you finished your assignments yet?" Just then, someone from the crowd called out, "Brother Huan, what about that soil improvement you mentioned?" "We can't wait." Hearing this, he rubbed his chin and said, "This is indeed a big problem. The soil quality here seems fine, but it's difficult to develop." Suddenly, someone ran up and shouted, interrupting his train of thought, "It's bad. The old man has fallen ill with a strange disease." When Lin Huan entered, he saw two people inside. One of them remarked that this happens again and again. Lin Huan felt puzzled. What could this strange disease be? The old man on the bed was pale and weak, his skin covered in spots. Lin Huan turned to the physician and asked, "How is he?" The physician shook his head and replied, "It's indeed a strange disease. Before settling in the village, I had never seen this old man fall ill. Although he can survive for a while after an attack, the patient endures great pain." Then the man who had delivered the news stepped forward, echoing the physician's words. "This is one of the curses of our little clan. At this age, they all seem to contract this disease." The person beside him nodded in agreement, saying, "That's right. This place must be cursed. It seems the Luo clan is doomed." Grasping the key point, Lin Huan turned and asked to confirm his thoughts. "Wait, did you say everyone is like this? Do they all get sick at this age?" Understanding the point he was trying to make, the physician replied, "It seems to be the case, except for the two great clans, the Lu clan and the Zhang clan. However, those two clans are just a matter of time." Lin Huan continued to inquire. "They were originally middle-aged before joining the mountain stronghold, correct?" The physician nodded in agreement. "That's correct." Lin Huan stroked his chin and said to the person next to him, "I have a theory that I need to verify." He then activated his system. "Earlier, I had gained reputation points at the stronghold, so I can now try out a chemistry set." But after reviewing it, his expression turned serious. "How am I supposed to handle this? It's so confusing." He shrugged it off and reached behind him casually. "Whatever, let's give it a try." Lin Huan placed his hand on the old man's pulse, silently reciting in his mind, "Activate 5 armor enhancements. Desire, literature, question, iron." He rubbed his chin and said, "All right, I think I understand." He walked outside, muttering to himself. Behind him, the physician asked curiously, "Can you cure him?" Observing Lin Huan's actions, the man in brown beside him reassured the physician. He must have a way. Lin Huan strolled into the garden behind the house. He squatted down, picked up some soil, and rubbed it between his fingers, murmuring to himself, "As I observe." Lin Huan turned around and informed those behind him about his discovery. This isn't a strange disease. It's metal poisoning. The metal content here exceeds the safe limit. He continued to explain that heavy metal elements can accumulate in the body over time without being processed, eventually leading to organ dysfunction and illness. This is also why only middle-aged individuals tend to experience these health issues. He picked up a handful of soil and continued. "The food we grow here is the culprit. Clearly, the heavy metal content in this soil exceeds the standard. That's why we can't grow much food. And what we do grow doesn't taste good." Hearing this, everyone present was dumbfounded, their minds swirling with questions. Noticing their confusion, he decided to simplify his explanation. "In other words, there's a special type of iron in the soil. You've been consuming iron, and if you take in too much, it can lead to poisoning." The old physician suddenly understood. Now it all made sense. Suddenly, Nakula appeared, holding a wine jar and swaying as she walked over. "This place is so annoying, it's giving me a headache." While she was running, she tripped over a rock. She fell directly into Lin Huan's arms, and he quickly caught her, holding her close. While this might be bad luck for others, it felt like a stroke of good fortune for me. Lin Huan envisioned himself as a fortunate miner. In this era, when heavy metals exceed the standard, it indicates that a mine is nearby. He pointed to the sky, proudly declaring that the world's #1 mine owner was about to be born. He left behind a group of bewildered and speechless onlookers, all wondering, what the hell? In a forest, the early morning sun filtered through the trees as a group of people made their way through the woods. It turned out to be Lin Huan's group, venturing deep into the forest in search of mineral veins. He walked at the front, holding a red flag to lead the way. Turning to his team, he said resolutely, "Our main task this time is to locate the mineral vein. I've already taught you how to identify mineral patterns." The group behind him responded in unison, raising their tools and shouting, "Understood." Everyone was using magnifying glasses to observe their surroundings, searching for mineral patterns. They examined every nook and cranny, leaving no place unchecked. From the ground and grass to the tree trunks, Yongu Ula sat on Lin Huan's shoulders, feeling bored. "Humph, this isn't fun at all. I thought we were going to fight tigers and play in the water," she complained. Lin Huan chuckled and, holding his magnifying glass, continued his search. "Once the mine is developed, you'll be the owner. What else do you want to play with then?" he replied cheerfully. At that moment, a man emerged from the bushes, covered in mud. He spotted Lin Huan and grinned wickedly. "Want to fight tigers? All right, I'll grant you a wish." He used a burning match to ignite something round, resembling an egg. He laughed triumphantly. "My apologies, but don't even think about running this time." A moment later, smoke began to billow from the round object, spreading throughout the forest. Nook Ula was still casually whistling while perched on Lin Huan's shoulders when she suddenly noticed something unusual. She sat up straight on Lin Huan's shoulders, surprising him. Yuga Ula began to scan her surroundings, recognizing the sound. A tiger! Lin Huan, surprised, looked up at her. At that moment, he accidentally caught a glimpse of something a man shouldn't see, and his nose began to bleed uncontrollably. He panicked, realizing the gravity of the situation. And Gak Ula seemed unconcerned, her focus solely on the nearby tiger. She leaned down and said to Lin Huan, "What do you mean he didn't mean to? The tiger is getting closer." Suddenly, a tiger emerged from the bushes, causing everyone to freeze for a moment. The tiger turned to face them and let out a powerful roar. Ngok Ula was excited to finally have something to do. She confidently told Lin Huan, "I'll stop it." Instead of being afraid, he replied with assurance, "Don't worry, I'm prepared." He clapped his hands to capture everyone's attention. Then he shouted, "Huinvu formation, prepare!" Everyone quickly donned their protective pouches in front of their chests and lined up in formation. The individuals at the front quickly drew thick steel shields for protection. Seeing this, the tiger leaped furiously toward them. However, the steel shields were so sturdy that all of its attacks appeared to be harmless. Realizing it couldn't accomplish anything, the tiger angrily retreated into the bushes. However, Lam Huan's group was not so kind. A member standing behind the shield-bearing team threw a pouch of something toward the tiger. Feeling insulted, the tiger swiped its paw at the pouch to assert its dominance. However, the tiger didn't expect the pouch to be filled with lime powder, which temporarily blinded it and made it difficult to open its eyes. The lime powder started to disperse, creating a hazy scene that made visibility difficult. The villain, still concealed in the bushes, exclaimed, "Damn it, I can't see a thing. They even brought lime powder. How cautious are these people? I hope the tiger is all right." As the man continued to observe the situation ahead, Lam Huan and Nakula approached him from behind, wearing wicked smiles. They taunted him, saying, "You should hope you're all right. Let's see how you escape now." The mud-faced man was taken by surprise and immediately reacted by hurling concealed weapons at Lam Huan. He effortlessly caught all the weapons with his bare hands and began to mock. "When it comes to sneak attacks, you should call me Grandpa." Nakula rushed forward to confront the mud-faced man, who yelled in pain. Meanwhile, Lam Huan stood aside, feigning innocence. Driven by a surge of adrenaline, Nakula pressed on. To the edge, the man angrily fumbled for something inside his shirt and threatened, "You forced me to do this." Lam Huan sensed danger and leaped in front of Nakula to protect her, earning an admiring glance from her. The man suddenly pulled out a knife and slashed a long cut across his chest. From behind his back, two snakes emerged, a white snake and a black snake. With a menacing expression, he declared, "You can't escape. These are the malevolent heart snakes. They grow by feeding on blood." Blood from his cuts splattered onto Lam Huan and Nakula, eliciting expressions of disgust from both. Seeing the snake's swift movements, Lam Huan embraced Nakula to protect her, but it appeared to be too late. The white snake bit Lam Huan on the leg. The black snake bit Nakula on the thigh. The venom spread instantly, causing Nakula to faint immediately. Lam Huan seemed to maintain some consciousness, but he appeared unable to hold on for long. With his work complete, the villain gleefully ran away. Lam Huan's eyes slowly closed, but before he fainted, he managed to command his subordinates to pursue the man. Lam Huan held Nakula close and encouraged her to stay strong. After a while, they started to stagger, unable to stand upright. Then both collapsed to the ground, unconscious from the effects of the poison. Meanwhile, Lam Huan's group split up to search every nook and cranny, but they could not find any trace of the mud-stained man. After a long search, someone in the group discovered numerous footprints covered in mud. They suspected a fight had taken place in this area and concluded that the camp leader should be nearby. One of them shouted orders to the others, instructing them to search the area. He emphasized that it didn't matter if they found anything. They were to keep searching until nightfall and then regroup at the designated location. Hearing this, the group behind him responded in unison. The scene shifted to Lam Huan, who, along with Nakula, was lying at the bottom of a large pit. After a long while, his eyelids twitched, signaling that he was about to wake up. Suddenly, his eyes opened wide. However, he realized he had awakened in his spiritual form. "I remember that Nakula and I were bitten by snakes." He glanced over at Nakula. He saw both himself and Nakula lying in the sun, resembling two dried corpses. Lam Huan panicked, yelling and striking his own body. "I can't be dead, can I?" At that moment, the system abruptly announced, "Body enhancement activating," initiating emergency mode automatically. Lam Huan propped his chin on his hand and thought, "This is to strengthen the body. It's the previous reward." He began analyzing the blood vessels in his body. It was no surprise that the previous physical enhancements were ineffective. It turns out that emergency mode can only be controlled manually. With the appearance of blood vessels and meridians, I can now determine the path and penetration of the venom. After careful observation, he finally located the source of the snake bites. Now that the location and wounds from the venom are identified, he skillfully manipulated the system interface with his fingers. Next, I need to regulate the acupuncture points and blood vessels to expel the poison. After a long wait, the treatment progress bar gradually increased and finally hit 100%. Lam Huan shouted joyfully, celebrating his complete healing. He turned to Nakula, observing her still writhing in pain from the snake venom. It was time to save her. He used a knife he carried with him to make a small cut on his finger, allowing the blood to drip into Nakula's mouth. "First, use my blood, which contains a certain amount of anti-venom," he instructed. "Then suck out the poison. I need to locate the wound, which is around her thigh, if I remember correctly." He carefully took off Nakula's socks. After removing the socks, he blushed, realizing this wasn't where the snake had bitten. He continued to explore up Nakula's thigh, but the higher he climbed, the closer he came to her skirt. Lam Huan was compelled to rip a tear in Nakula's skirt to continue his search. "The snakebite location," he muttered, feeling embarrassed. "The fabric is quite thick. I need to tear it. My apologies." At last, he discovered the spot where the cursed snake had bitten him. However, the location was quite uncomfortable for him. He began to pray. "Ahem. Heavens, please don't look. I'm just saving someone. Here we go." He remained calm and focused as he began the process of extracting the venom. This scene is not suitable for viewers under 18. The harder he sucked, the redder Nakula's face grew, and she began to make strange sounds. After sucking for a moment, he spat the venomous blood aside. His face took on a lewd expression as he murmured to himself, "Ooh, that smells so good. That smells so poisonous." The scene shifted back to the town, where two imposing gatekeepers stood guard. However, hidden in the surrounding bushes were numerous assassins lying in wait. One Nak Yula and Lam Hoon spoke up, declaring that the main force wasn't present. They urged, "Let's attack. We must annihilate them today." The assassins charged toward the village gate, catching the two guards off guard. They both yelled to alert the villagers about the enemies. Nak Yula's leg was exposed. Her eyes slowly opened, and she let out a soft gasp. Her consciousness slowly returned. Nak Yula looked down and saw Lam Hoon's mouth pressed against the wound on her thigh. Seeing this, Nak Yula lay back down, her eyes swirling and her face flushed. Nak Yula remembered the moment when the snake bit him. She closed her eyes, her face still flushed as she repeated to herself, "This is detoxification. This is detoxification. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it." On the stone floor, Lam Hoon continued to help her remove the poison. Nak Yula's face was now so red it was practically steaming. An image of Lam Hoon lifting her chin, his eyes full of passion, flashed through her mind. Nak Yula wondered, could this be? After extracting the poison from Nak Yula's thigh, Lam Hoon paused, wiped his mouth, and frowned slightly. It was strange. The poison should have been completely extracted. Lam Hoon's head twitched as he looked down at Nak Yula. Could there be more than one wound? Should he continue checking for injuries? He tugged at the edge of Nak Yula's shirt, feeling a bit embarrassed. "Sorry, I need to tear this a little more." Nak Yula's dress tore, exposing a patch of skin. Although Nak Yula was awake, she kept her eyes closed. What should she do? Should she wake up or continue pretending to be unconscious? It was embarrassing, but this way, she wouldn't be looked down upon by him. Nak Yula suddenly turned over, catching Lam Hoon by surprise. What's going on?" he thought, bewildered by her sudden movement. Lam Hoon moved closer to Nak Yula and waved his hand in front of her face. "Nak Yula, are you awake?" he asked. It was strange. It could be muscle spasms caused by the toxins. Receiving no response, Lam Hoon's expression turned serious as he tore open more of her clothing. He thought to himself, "I have to find the wound quickly." Suddenly, a flare lit up the distant sky. Lam Hoon was startled and turned around. "That was the signal I left at the Law family camp. The Law family camp is in danger." At that moment, Nak Yula suddenly sat up, covering herself with her hands as she gazed at the flare. "We have to implement the plan quickly," she said. Lam Hoon, still unaware that she was awake, continued, "That's right. Immediately assemble the rescue team." Lam Hoon finally noticed that Nak Yula was awake. He gazed at her in silence, causing Nak Yula to blush and become speechless. The two quickly parted ways. Lam Hoon quickly walked away. He jumped onto a rock. "The Law family camp is in danger, and we need to take action." Nak Yula, still covering herself, looked at Lam Hoon and said, "We ate. You find me some clothes first." A few minutes earlier at Law family camp, men in black stood facing the others. Their faces were covered. One of them said, "I didn't expect you to be so vigilant, but it doesn't matter. Your fighting power is completely inferior to ours." They removed their face coverings. The man with brown hair said, "No need to pretend. The chief values Law family camp." The man with purple hair continued, "If you're wise, you'll immediately come back to work for us, and your lives will be spared. Otherwise," from that side, observing them, "I can see that your attack methods are outdated. Lam Hoon has taught me far more effective techniques." They pulled out something like this. A flare shot into the sky, prompting everyone to quickly retreat. The brown-haired man gazed up at it in astonishment. The flare exploded in the sky, showering golden sparks. The men in black shielded their eyes from the bright light. The brown-haired man signaled and said, Before they return, we'll have killed all of you." He stood there while everyone else retreated inside. The brown-haired man, slightly irritated, said, "Want to run? How will you run? Before they come back, you'll all be dead." Suddenly, sharp stakes shot up from the ground, rising between the two sides. Of that, the others looked down with confidence. The men in black gazed silently at the numerous sharp stakes below.